In Korea, a reporter asks people one very simple question. What would you do if you had 100 million won? Everyone gives the kind of polite, expected answers you'd imagine, so she decides to change the question instead. What would you do if you became the richest person on earth? One woman says she would first need to know where the money came from before giving any answer. The scene then shifts to a TV studio, where that same street interview is playing on a monitor. A journalist is speaking with the actual richest man in the world, who looks unbelievably young, and she mentions a famous rumor. People say he can see the future, and that this power helped him build his fortune. On camera, the man says something like that would be impossible, but deep inside he knows that statement is not true, because right before his eyes he can see a shaman. Her strange magic moves and swirls through the air, and he is the only person capable of seeing it. So in front of the cameras, he simply brushes it off and calls himself a fortunate investor. Nothing beyond that. And then, the entire scene is revealed to be a strange and unsettling dream. Kang Jin-hoo wakes up back in his real life. He wonders why he keeps dreaming about the eagle he once saw during his military days. He has only recently been discharged, and he has no job. He also lives with his mother in a semi-basement apartment. His life was not always this difficult. In the past, his father managed a decent business and supported the family, but that comfortable time has already disappeared. Sometime later, he goes to visit his friend, Taekyu. Taekyu is busy proudly showing off his action figure collection. The two have been close since high school, and Jin-hoo tries to sound optimistic as he says that, even without money, he entered a prestigious university and plans to get a good job after graduating. He even thanks Taekyu for spending last Christmas with his mother when he was stuck in the military. Noticing that his friend seems discouraged, Taekyu decides to tell him some good news to lift his mood. He recently recovered the password to a Bitcoin account he had lost access to some time ago. Jin-hoo remembers that whole incident very clearly. Taekyu had cried helplessly after losing the password. It hurt even more because he had sold his game character. Also, he could buy the crypto in the first place. Taekyu says the password turned up on a random piece of paper, and as of yesterday, the coin was trading at 1 to 121. Jin-hoo quickly calculates the numbers and realizes it must be worth quite a lot by now. His friend confirms it. The account is now valued at 13 billion won. Taekyu admits he can hardly believe it either, but insists he is telling the truth. The problem is that he cannot withdraw the money yet. He already transferred everything onto an exchange platform. He believed the price would continue rising, and Jin-hoo feels painfully jealous. He regrets not taking that game more seriously back then. Then another thought suddenly comes to him. He used to play together with Taekyu, so he reminds his friend that Taekyu was the one who persuaded him to sell his character as well. So in his mind, he should naturally receive part of that fortune. At that moment, Jin-hoo sees it again, the same eagle from his dreams. This time he is fully awake, and he has no idea why it has appeared. The eagle flies closer, and it soon becomes obvious this is not an ordinary bird. Spiritual presence reveals itself, yet only Jin-hoo can see it. His startled reaction scares Taekyu badly, especially because his friend sees absolutely nothing. Ignoring his confusion, Jin-hoo asks what Q knows about Mountain Hill. Taekyu is stunned, since that is the crypto exchange he is using, and asks how Jin-hoo knew. Jin-hoo has just seen a vision of Mountain Hill falling apart. He cannot explain it, but he knows the eagle caused the vision. Now he takes it seriously, because if it is true, Taekyu is about to lose everything. He tells Taekyu to sell every bit of his crypto immediately. The price will not rise, and Taekyu is clearly shaken. Jin-hoo says he cannot explain yet and urgently asks his friend to trust him. Taekyu says his sister already opened a dollar account for withdrawals, so he will use it to cash out. Still, he makes it clear that once everything is settled, Jin-hoo owes him a very solid explanation. While Taekyu begins handling the sale, Jin-hoo watches the eagle disappear. He understands it as a sign that he made the right choice. Even so, he still has no idea what is really happening. A second later, his friend gasps and says the Mountain Hill server has crashed. Somehow, he sold everything at the perfect moment. That is enough to convince Jin-hoo. He had not imagined it. The eagle truly existed. It had been trying to warn him. To confirm it, Taekyu says the platform is online again, but every account has been completely erased. He looks at Jin-hoo and asks whether he had anything to do with what happened. Jin-hoo is every bit as lost as his friend, but he realizes telling the truth may be his only choice. He tells Taekyu that he thinks he may have suddenly gained the power to glimpse the future. 1 year earlier, Kang Jin-hoo was still serving in the military. He was taking part in a training exercise. That was when the strange eagle appeared before him for the very first time. Its sudden arrival immediately made him uneasy. What felt even stranger was that no one else seemed able to see it. None of the soldiers around him noticed anything, and that only unsettled Jin-hoo further. Then the warning came. Something was about to explode. He saw a mortar being prepared for another launch. He assumed that had to be the danger. Though he did not fully believe the vision, his instincts screamed at him to get down. Because he obeyed that feeling, he was the one who survived the blast. Now, in the present, he tells the whole story to Tai Q, who brushes it off as pure luck. But Jin-Hoo insists that without the eagle's warning, he would have shared the other's fate. He would not have come back unharmed. He also says the army doctor called the eagle nothing more than a false memory, something created by the shock of the incident. Tai Q notes that this has now happened twice, which makes it hard to call it a coincidence. Jin-Hoo agrees, though he is surprised that his friend accepts the idea so quickly. Tai Q's reasoning is straightforward. After watching so much anime, almost nothing feels impossible to him anymore. Once that is cleared up, Jin-Hoo shifts to a more practical matter. He wants his share of the fortune Tai Q just earned. After all, he reminds him, he sold his game character to help fund that investment, so part of the profit should naturally belong to him. Tai Q says he wants to pay him, but not right away. The issue is the taxes. Jin-Hoo, an economics student, dryly asks whether he plans to create a tax haven. As it turns out, he does. Tai Q says his sister warned him that declaring his Bitcoin earnings would leave him owing billions in income tax. To avoid that, he created a shell company in the United States called OTK Company. In other words, an actual tax haven. He believes it will not be long before he can stop working and live from his investments. Jin-Hoo knows things are not that simple, but regardless, he still wants what he is owed. Tai Q assures him that he will pay every bit of his share. That promise helps Jin-Hoo relax. Not long after, he checks the balance in his bank account. He finds a transfer from Tai Q, though for now it is only part of the payment. Q said he would send the rest once all the tax haven paperwork and procedures were handled. Even so, Kang Jin-Hoo leaves the bank smiling. For the first time, he has enough to help his mother and buy something for himself. With that in mind, he makes his way to a shopping mall. The moment he gets there, he notices a disturbance nearby. A woman is loudly causing trouble. She is yelling at an employee, claiming the worker stepped on her shoes. The store manager tries to calm things down and tells the employee to simply apologize to the customer. But Kang Jin-Hoo realizes he knows the employee is his mother. Jin-Hoo is stunned to see her being treated so shamefully. All this time, he believes she worked in an office. She had never told him what her job really was. He steps forward just before she is made to kneel. He asks what could possibly be serious enough that someone should have to kneel down and beg for forgiveness. The woman making the fuss demands to know who he is to interfere. Kang Jin-Hoo calmly says he is the cleaner's son. His mother tries to cover her face, but he makes it clear that he feels no shame in her at all. The wealthy woman is caught off guard, yet she refuses to back down. She says the mop touched her foot, and that is why she insisted on receiving an apology. Jin-Hoo can hardly believe she would degrade someone over something so petty. Irritated, she snaps that her shoes cost 600,000 won, far more than a cleaner could ever hope to repay. So Jin-Hoo immediately takes out 600,000 won in cash. He tells her to apologize to his mother, take the money, and leave. The woman notices people are filming, so she decides not to make things worse for herself. Reluctantly, she forces out an apology, and she quickly grabs the cash. Before leaving, Jin-Hoo speaks directly to the store manager. He explains that since he has paid for the shoes, they now legally belong to him. He tells the manager to retrieve them from the woman. If they are not in his hands by tomorrow, he will report it as theft. With that, he turns and walks off, leaving the woman seething with anger. Outside the mall, his mother is filled with worry. She says she needs to go back and make things right, because she cannot afford to lose that job. Kang Jin-Hoo simply draws her into his arms and says she has become too thin. He adds that she will never work there again, because from now on, he will handle the family's finances. Feeling proud, she tells him he has truly matured. The two then make their way to a restaurant. Jin-Hoo explains that Bitcoin has been bringing in good money, so she no longer needs to stress over their finances, but she refuses to accept his help. She wants him to think about his own future and use the money to complete college. He firmly says he wants to help, and the first thing they need to do is move. He is convinced her constant cough comes from the place they are living in. Even though she objects, Jin-Hoo has already decided to use his money to give her a better life. She lets out a sigh and says he is every bit as stubborn as his father. At that moment, Jin-Hoo receives a call from a friend. It is Tai Q, who tells him there is an urgent situation. Apparently, his sister has returned to Korea. Now he needs Jin-Hoo's assistance. A little later, an eye-catching car stops in front of a luxury hotel. Inside, Kang Jin-Hoo can barely stand the secondhand embarrassment caused by his friend's taste in cars. Still, the two of them head in the building. Almost immediately, they come across Oh Hyun-ju. She says she did not expect to meet Kang Jin-Hoo there, admitting it has been quite some time. They all take a seat and begin catching up. Oh Hyun-ju tells Jin-Hoo that after he graduates, a position will be waiting for him at Golden Gate. He admits it is a strong offer, but he can sense that something is bothering her. She mentions Mountain Hill's bankruptcy and asks whether her brother is alright. He puts her at ease, explaining that he managed to sell everything just before the collapse happened. After hearing that, his sister appears far more relieved. She then gives him the contact details of the Golden Gate branch manager in Gangnam. She advises him to contact that person first whenever he needs to make any domestic transfers. Oh, Hyunju says she is in the country for an audit and will be staying for the next 10 days. Just then, her phone starts ringing, so she excuses herself to answer it. Once she leaves, Jin-Hoo asks why his friend was so unwilling to meet his sister alone, and Oh Tae-kyu admits that her personality feels rather intimidating. When Oh Hyun-jo comes back, she apologizes and explains that the call was important. Her brother assumes it had something to do with the oil company. She confirms his guess, saying the results of the OPEC meeting are scheduled to be announced tomorrow. The instant Jin-Hoo hears that, the spirit eagle appears before him again. It has come to show him another prediction, and this time the vision is unmistakable. There will be an agreement to reduce oil production. Jin-Hoo asks Oh Hyun-jo what the OPEC meeting is about. She explains that it concerns a production cut, exactly like the vision he just saw. Then adds that gold and oil are the world's real assets. Every country around the world wants to secure them. That is especially true for the United States, the largest buyer, even though it is not among the biggest producers. However, the rise of shale gas and oil transformed the market and sparked a major shift. The issue with shale, though, is that producing it costs a great deal. Forecasts suggest that more than half of the companies in that field may go bankrupt, which is why emergency meetings are held and decisions sometimes have to be made quickly. Trying not to expose what he already knows, Jin-Hoo suggests that the deal Hyun-ju is waiting for may not turn out as expected. When she asks what makes him think that, he simply says it is just a feeling. Oh Hyun-ju seems impressed, but she reminds him that intuition and information are two completely different things. After some time, they exchange their farewells. While sitting in the car, Jin-Hoo realizes that if his prediction turns out to be correct, the price per barrel of oil is about to soar, meaning he could purchase oil ahead of time and earn a huge profit. Every prediction he has received so far has proven accurate, so he's certain this one will be right as well. The only issue is money. After everything he recently spent, he has just $270 left in his account. He cannot help wondering whether putting all his remaining money into this is really the right choice. Meanwhile, Oh Tae-kyu says he noticed Jin-Hoo acting oddly while speaking with his sister. He asks if Jin-Hoo experienced another vision, and Jin-Hoo admits that his friend's instincts are surprisingly sharp. He then tells him what he discovered about the OPEC agreement. Tae-kyu grasps the plan right away. They have to buy oil, but one practical problem immediately comes to mind. Where exactly are they going to keep it? Later, at Tae-kyu's house, the two study the oil market together, and Jin-Hoo explains that crude oil is not only fuel but a key raw material for many industries. Tae-kyu then transfers the remaining money he owed. Jin-Hoo says their next move is buying oil through the New York Stock Exchange. Still, since he cannot be completely sure, he plans to invest only $300,000 for now. Tae-kyu says he will join in as well, but he is putting down $10 million. Kang Jin-Hoo warns him that the gamble is extremely risky, but Tae-kyu trusts his predictions completely and believes there is no way they can lose. With that, Jin-Hoo tells him to do whatever he wants. As for himself, he plans to take a more careful approach. In his mind, if things go well, the gains will be worthwhile, and if the plan fails, the damage will still be manageable. At this point, there is no reason to retreat. He goes ahead and places the orders. Now, they only have to wait for the OPEC meeting to finish. Kang Jin-Hoo finds a two-bedroom villa priced at $120 million. The place has been newly renovated and looks spotless. His mother is delighted by the open space and the bright sunlight pouring in. Jin-Hoo remembers how every move in the past meant a smaller place, with some of his father's belongings disappearing each time. This time, however, his mother was able to keep one box of things she could not bring herself to throw away. Owning a home had always been her dream. His father had even purchased land to build one around the time Jin-Hoo was born. She wishes his father could see what their son has become after spending his whole life working so hard. Jin-Hoo reminds her that they are not finished yet. They still need appliances like a washing machine and a refrigerator. He tells his mother to take at least 3 months away from work and finally get the rest she deserves. For that reason, he gives her an account containing 100 million won. He tells her to buy anything she wants, but the gesture does not make her happy. She scolds him for spending so freely just because he now has money. She says she has savings of her own and tells him to use it for himself instead. Jin-Hoo refuses to back down. He says if she does not want to spend it, she can simply keep it for him in case he needs it someday. Of course, he knows that day will not come. He has enough to live comfortably for at least 20 years. A little later, Tae-kyu comes over with food for the housewarming. While they eat, Tae-kyu shares the news. Mountain Hill has gone bankrupt. The damage from the hacking incident reached the billions and completely brought the brokerage down. Every one of their investors has lost everything. Tae-kyu explains that if it had been a bank, the government might have stepped in. But in the world of crypto, there is no protection to rely rely on. He is certain it cannot be a coincidence that Jinhu predicted it. He becomes convinced that Jinhu has some kind of power that activates during a crisis. He has even created a name for it, Oracle's Eye. Jinhu remains doubtful. He says that if his OPEC prediction comes true too, then he will consider the idea. If not, he is ending the theory there. Taikyu asks for one more condition. If the prediction is right, Jinhu must let him use the name Oracle's Eye. The following day, they wait for the results at Taikyu's place. Jinhu is completely on edge. He is far from sure that his vision will actually come true. His anxiety grows even worse as he keeps watching the charts. Losses continue to rise before his eyes. Seeing his friend close to breaking down, Taikyu suggests playing a game to distract themselves for a while. Jinhu gives it a try, but he cannot concentrate. The numbers keep spinning through his mind. He ends up making a careless move in the game. His friend immediately scolds him for it. Then, as the pressure keeps building, Kang Jinhu suddenly collapses. A short while later, Taikyu wakes him up. The results have arrived. Filled with fear, Jinhu turns his eyes to the screen. There he sees that his prediction was correct after all. He tells Taikyu to check the account and see how much they earned. Taikyu quickly calculates the total. Together, they have made over 800 million won. But to Taikyu, the money is not the main point. The real victory is that he was right from the beginning. His friend truly has a special ability. Now he can call Kang Jinhu Oracle's Eye whenever he likes, fully convinced that his friend has a superpower. Kang Jinhu, however, is not impressed. Compared with flying or super strength, his ability seems almost useless. Still, he thinks abilities like that could probably be replaced by machines. But seeing the future is different. Even the most powerful AI in the world cannot predict what has not happened yet. Q begins naming all the possibilities, from elections and sports to natural disasters and beyond. He calls it an awakening, a special ability that appeared during a crisis. But Kang Jinhu immediately points out one serious problem. He cannot activate it whenever he wants. If that were possible, he would already have emptied a casino by now. His friend offers another theory. Maybe the power only reacts to financial matters, since it appeared while they were discussing Bitcoin. Jinhu argues that the first vision happened during the mortar explosion. Taikyu says that might have been an exception because his life was in danger. Then he recalls the news. That explosion was connected to a massive corruption case in the military. The defective mortar made the manufacturer's stock price collapse, and their defense contracts disappeared as well, meaning even that incident had a financial connection. Jinhu admits the logic makes sense, but says nearly everything in the world is tied to money somehow. That gives Taikyu a sudden idea. He says he will invest all his available capital in his friend, as long as Jinhu uses his ability to guide where the money should go. The offer is attractive, but Jinhu worries he will be blamed if any losses happen. Taikyu says he understands the danger and is still willing to gamble on it. Even so, the protagonist remains unconvinced. There is no proof the power is completely accurate, and it might have been pure coincidence. He thinks probability is more likely. It may show a high chance of success, but there is always room for error. Without certainty, it is useless. Winning big once and losing everything later is no real strategy. Taikyu still tells him to trust him, and to believe in himself too. Kang Jinhu remains hesitant. Their discussion is suddenly interrupted by a phone call. Old friend he has not met since joining the army invites him out for drinks. Jinhu says he has something to handle first but promises to get back to him. A while later, he arrives at the bar and reunites with his old group. He has only one request, and that is not to talk about the army. Two freshmen, Huang Jihee and Yuri, are also there with them. Since their friend Ji Hong is running late, they decide to begin without him. Someone asks whether Jinhu plans to go back to college. He replies that he is still considering it. They continue drinking while waiting for their senior to show up. At last, Jung Gi-hong arrives. He is glad to see Kang Jinhu finally out of the military, and the two begin catching up. Gi-hong works in finance and says the industry feels unstable, with many positions being shifted around. Jinhu asks if he is worried about his position at the central bank. Gi-hong admits that even experienced people are struggling, so he is considering a move into private capital. He says Korea has plenty of talented entrepreneurs, but not nearly enough strong investors. Because of that, the country needs someone capable of standing against foreign capital. In the middle of the conversation, Yuri answers a call. She explains that she was meant to meet her friend Siona, but since she came drinking with them, she invited her to join instead. Hearing that name makes Kang Jinhu go completely still. The others quickly scold the freshman, who does not understand why everyone is reacting so strongly. As if on cue, Siona herself enters the place. She suddenly stops when she notices Kang Jinhu. It turns out they were once a couple, and this is is the first time they have met since their breakup. Later on, Kang Jin-hoo happens to meet his ex-girlfriend Seona at a coffee shop. He is surprised, since 2 years have passed since they last met. He asks directly whether she is still with that senior. The man he means is Ko Jun-hyung, the third son of GH Constructions. After enlisting, Jin-hoo heard rumors that Seona was dating him. She confirms it, though her expression shows little happiness. Jin-hoo notices how much she has changed. The shy, quiet woman he once knew to be gone. She apologizes for leaving him, but Jin-hoo says it is already in the past. Too many things have happened since then. Then Seona tells him she still has feelings for him, saying she always believed he was someone she could trust. He admits that choosing a wealthy man over him was selfish, but says she did it for her future. When he asks further, she says it was all because of her dream to become successful. After saying that, she walks away. Watching her leave makes Jin-hoo think deeply about his own life. He remembers losing his father and being unable to hold a proper funeral because their home had already been taken from them. Seona leaving him during that painful time hit him hard, and with nowhere else to turn, he joined the army. That left his mother to face the burden alone. But now, thanks to Taikyu, he has recovered billions of won and earned major investment profits. Even so, something still weighs on him. He now has 13 billion won in his possession. Yet he does not feel as if he has truly accomplished anything. As he wonders what success really means, the spirit eagle appears once more. This time, however, something feels different. The creature's presence is far stronger than before. Without warning, Jin-hoo is struck by another strange vision. And just like before, he realizes that what he has seen is bound to come true. Later on, Kang Jin-hoo heads over Taikyu's place. He shakes his friend awake and announces that the two of them are going to reach real success together. By the next morning, Jin-hoo wakes up with a pounding hangover. Taikyu tells him he arrived completely drunk and then passed out. Jin-hoo can only remember scattered pieces of what happened the night before. He recalls the eagle's vision and some kind of promise he made with his friend. Jin-hoo points out that Taikyu never truly invested. He simply got lucky by buying crypto at the right moment. Jin-hoo, meanwhile, has made genuine investments, even if they were small. He admits he only put in 1 million won and ended up losing half. That was the reason he stopped. Taikyu admits his own knowledge only comes from 1 year of college, but he also knows he now has a fortune most people will never touch. Jin-hoo explains the advantage clearly. Turning $10 million into $100 million requires a 1000% return. But if you start with $10 billion, a mere 1% return is enough. That is the strength of Taikyu's capital. Taikyu is eager to begin, saying it sounds entertaining, almost like playing a game. Jin-hoo does not agree. To him, investing properly depends on his ability, and he has no way of knowing when or how the eagle will show him another vision. They need to solve that issue before taking the next step. Over the past few days, he has been studying economic news and watching major stocks closely. He is slowly getting a stronger sense of the market, yet the eagle has not shown itself again. That makes him suspect the power only reacts to truly major events. Events like the OPEC deal. Taikyu, always hopeful, says they should at least prepare a contract. After learning a few things from his sister, he suggests splitting the profits evenly. Jin-hoo has no objection to that. While they are still talking, Jin-hoo receives a phone call. It is from Shin Yu-ri. She is the freshman he met during the group date. In a slightly shy voice, she makes an unexpected request. She asks Kang Jin-hoo if he would like to have coffee. The following day, Jin-hoo goes out to meet Shin Yu-ri. She thanks him for agreeing to come, and he notices that she has the look of a pop idol. Trying to sound casual, he says he only came because he was already nearby at a friend's house, then asks why she wanted to meet. Yu-ri says she wanted to apologize. She feels bad that Seona crashed the party and made things uncomfortable, and adds that she is glad he is returning to college so they can meet more often. Jin-hoo is slightly caught off guard. A girl this pretty is rarely so straightforward with him, but then she asks him for a favor. She wants to buy a new phone, though she knows almost nothing about them, so she needs his help. That quickly ruins his hope that she might be interested in him. In the end, he is just her free tech helper for the day. Even so, the two of them go to an electronics store. While Yu-ri checks out the phones, Jin-hoo starts thinking that he could use a new one as well. The instant he touches one of the displayed smartphones, the spirit eagle appears. It delivers a very simple warning. This model is going to be discontinued. At first, Jin-hoo cannot make sense of what the warning means. When Yu-ri asks what he is staring at, he quickly pretends it is nothing. Deep down, however, he feels relieved. This proves his ability has not vanished. A little later, Shin Yu-ri leaves the store with her new phone, and Jin-hoo cannot help warning her that the model may be discontinued soon. She asks how he could possibly know something like that. He quickly takes it back and says he was only joking. Then he hurries away, claiming he has something urgent to attend to. Yu-ri is left feeling disappointed because she she had hoped they could have lunched together. Meanwhile, Jinhoo rushes straight to his friend's house to explain what he discovered. He knows Taekyu bought that exact same phone, so he wants to warn him immediately. Taekyu begins explaining the situation in the market. Samsung offers a wide variety of smartphones, but Apple is currently dominating the premium segment. To challenge that, Samsung created its flagship L6 model, and it has been selling incredibly well in Korea. That only leaves Jinhoo more puzzled. Why would a top-selling phone suddenly be discontinued? Taekyu guesses that it might be related to a patent dispute. After all, the two companies are always battling each other in court, but Jinhoo says those cases usually end with the losing company paying a penalty and continuing on. The two spend the entire night trying to uncover the real reason behind the warning. The answer arrives loudly the following morning. Taekyu wakes Jinhoo in a panic, shouting that his smartphone burst while it was charging. He has owned the phone for less than a week, yet it is already showing a serious defect. In that instant, both of them understand they have finally found the answer they spent the whole night searching for. A little while later, they search online and find that many others are dealing with the same issue. Taekyu realizes Samsung is trying to keep the matter quiet by compensating people, and he suspects the defect is far more widespread than it appears. Since the phone sold in huge numbers, the amount of reported cases will only keep increasing. The protagonist becomes convinced that a recall is inevitable. The only uncertainty is the timing and figuring out the perfect moment to invest. Following day, Taekyu receives an unexpected visitor. It is a Samsung technician, sent after he reported the problem. They also offer him compensation as long as he agrees not to write about it online. That alone proves all of Taekyu's suspicions about the attempted cover-up. At this pace, the phone is likely to be pulled from the market very soon. The protagonist estimates that if the model gets discontinued, the company could lose 40% of its operating profit. That means this is not a moment to buy stocks, but to sell them. The problem is that they have no shares to sell until Taekyu suggests short selling. He breaks down the idea. You borrow shares, sell them at a high price, then repurchase them after the value falls. The gap becomes your profit. The protagonist considers it, but even with a recall, the stock would probably fall by only about 30% at most. With their $13 billion, that return would not be impressive enough. Still, he thinks of a way to earn much more, but it requires a derivatives expert. Taekyu suggests they ask his sister, since she knows this field better than almost anyone. But Jinhoo knows Hyunju would not be pleased if she learned what they were planning, so he proposes another person. Park Sang-yeop, the president of the Real Investment Club. No matter what others say about him, nobody can deny that he is exceptionally brilliant. Sang-yeop was raised in Australia. Even so, his intelligence earned him a place at a prestigious Korean university to study mathematics. During that time, he began paying attention to a small company called QMK Tech. After noticing how accurate their market forecasts were, he acted immediately and invested every bit of money he had, including his rent, into their stock. Because of that, he had no choice but to sleep on a friend's couch for 2 weeks. The stock suddenly surged. Within just 2 months, Sang-yeop became a millionaire. Afterward, he kept making successful predictions one after another and eventually founded his own investment group. That was how Jinhoo came to know him in the first place. Back in the present, Jinhoo and Taekyu sit down with Sang-yeop. As they talk, Sang-yeop casually mentions that he recently lost a large amount of money. He is in debt and has to work just to cover his costs. Jinhoo notes that most people would be completely panicked in his place. Yet Sang-yeop talks about his debt with an oddly composed attitude. Jinhoo gets straight to the matter and says he wants to understand stock investing better. More specifically, he asks about the difference between futures and derivatives. Sang-yeop explains that futures are straightforward contracts. Two sides agree to trade a certain amount of something at a set price on a future date, and both must follow through no matter the outcome. Derivatives, however, work like options with an expiration date, involving both a buyer and a seller. The buyer holds the right to decide how to proceed, although the seller may look disadvantaged at first. In reality, sellers tend to have a higher chance of winning in the market. That is why they decide the terms with extreme care. He then gives an example involving a put option with a very low chance of success. If someone put in $1 billion, the buyer, the payout could reach $9 trillion, though Sang-yeop says such cases almost never happen because bad news appears far more often than good news. When serious bad news does appear, put option prices can soar by hundreds of times, and the seller is legally obligated to pay. That is exactly what Jinhoo needed to know. He explains his strategy. He plans to short Samsung's stock. He tells Sang-yeop that the company's newest phone is likely to be discontinued because of a major manufacturing defect. Park Sang-yeop asks whether he has any evidence to support that claim. Jinhoo cannot reveal his ability, so he has no solid proof to present. Sang-yeop warns him not to treat this lightly, because a risky move like that could leave him bankrupt. Jinhoo thanks him for the warning, and the two sides go their separate ways. Now he has gathered every piece needed to put his plan into motion. At his friend's place, Jinhu explains the full plan. He will put 70% into put options and use the rest for short selling. He explains that the reports of exploding phones may look like isolated accidents, but he has noticed a troubling pattern. For the moment, however, the market is ignoring the issue entirely. Most investors remain calm because no official news has appeared to alarm them. So Kang Jinhu starts weighing the possibilities. If the stock climbs more than expected, he will lose money. But if the hardware issues are confirmed, everything changes. After reviewing the possible outcomes, he decides to purchase the put options. His entire wager depends on the stock price dropping. Despite all the uncertainty, Kang Jinhu puts a massive portion of their funds on the line. Now, there is nothing left but to wait. The days feel endless, and at first, nothing goes their way. The company's stock keeps rising as its new devices enter the global market to excellent early reactions. Kang Jinhu's anxiety begins to wear him down. He feels time running out, knowing that if his prediction fails, everything they invested could disappear. The burden of that responsibility is beginning to weigh heavily on him. Even Taikyu, who tries to remain positive, can no longer fully hide his concern. Then, at last, something changes. A major news story begins to unfold. Reports of phones catching fire return, and this time it is not just a few isolated cases. They are coming in everywhere. The company quickly releases an official statement, blaming the problem on defective batteries. Yet the incidents continue, and the crisis starts slipping far beyond their control. In the end, they have no choice but to take drastic action with a massive global recall. The two friends sit in shock as they watch the news unfold. Millions of devices are being taken back, and Samsung is losing an enormous amount of money on every returned phone. Still, the company plans to replace the batteries and resell the refurbished units. After the recall announcement, the stock had started to fall, but instead it bounces back and finishes only 1.5% lower. To reassure investors even more, the company announces a new shareholder return plan that includes quarterly dividends. It is a crisis control move that strikes directly against Jinhu's strategy. His friend, however, is not worried and remains certain that Kang's prediction will come true. Jinhu, on the other hand, begins questioning his own ability and wonders whether his luck has finally ended. Sick with worry over the mounting losses, Jinhu spends the night tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep. Eventually, the noise wakes his friend, who suggests they have a beer to settle their minds. As they drink, Jinhu concludes that he may have been right about only one thing. The Samsung device is going to be taken off the market. He asks Taikyu if he resents him for making the wrong call. Taikyu says he does not, because he was the one who insisted on investing in the first place. Besides, he still trusts that his friend's prediction will come true eventually. To him, it is only a matter of time. Jinhu cannot bring himself to share that confidence. 1 week passes after the recall is announced. Samsung stores are crowded with people returning faulty phones and others lining up to buy new ones. Their stock price begins climbing again at a rapid pace, and as it rises, Jinhu's losses only continue to grow. Short sales soften the impact a little, but not nearly enough. Taikyu has already lost almost everything he gained from Bitcoin. Jinhu realizes that even with the small amount he saved, the outcome is going to be painful. He thinks he should have listened to Park Sang-yeop, but Taikyu says he does not regret anything. He has been broke before, and he knows he can survive it again. Somewhere far away, a plane suddenly faces trouble. Smartphone catches fire mid-flight, putting everyone on board in danger. Even worse, the device is a replacement model that was issued after the recall. This shows that the real issue was never the battery, not the way the manufacturer had claimed. Back with the two friends, Jinhu wakes up in shock. He has just had a strange dream involving the eagle. He tells his friend that in 4 days, something major will happen to Samsung's stock. Even after waking from the frightening nightmare, Kang Jinhu remains shaken. The vision feels far too vivid to dismiss. He is certain it was more than an ordinary dream. Because of that, he and Taikyu begin investigating the Samsung situation again from the start. Almost immediately, the details feel wrong. The company officially blamed everything on faulty batteries, but several points still keep bothering Jinhu. New reports of phones catching fire continue to appear, even after the company replaced all the batteries. The airplane incident reaches the headlines, and before long, airlines begin banning the device from every flight. As the stock price plunges, Samsung executives gather for an emergency meeting. The vice president steps forward and takes control. He admits to everyone in the room that they still have not found the true cause of the problem. Other directors begin arguing over the next move. Some believe they should simply continue with the recall. Others insist that a recall alone will not be enough to resolve the crisis. That is when the vice president introduces a dangerous idea. He begins with a philosophical concept, the ship of Theseus. He explains the classic thought experiment. If every piece of a ship is replaced one by one, can it still be called the ship? The point is that even when parts keep changing, the core identity can still remain. Most of the people in the room are left puzzled by the comparison, so he explains it more plainly. No matter how much they have changed over the years, the company is still, at its heart, Seo-sung. But if they completely lose the public's trust, no amount of reform will be enough to rescue them. Money that is lost can be earned back. A ruined reputation is much harder to restore. At that moment, they arrive at a drastic decision. The company will stop all sales and exchanges of the L6 entirely. A spokesperson announces the decision to the press. When Kang Jin-hoo hears the news, he can hardly believe it. His prediction has come true. The phone has been discontinued completely. The damage to the manufacturer is devastating, with estimated losses reaching $50 trillion. It is even worse than the financial crisis from nearly 20 years earlier. Before this happened, Samsung had been gathering put options through Golden Gate. The blow to the Korean stock market is so serious that even Golden Gate suffers a significant loss. Then an analyst notices something odd. Someone bought Samsung shares through Golden Gate right before the incident, and they were not shorting the stock. An enraged Samsung shareholder orders his team to discover who was behind it. He is certain that whoever did it had inside information. Meanwhile, Kang Jin-hoo and his friend are still trying to absorb what just happened. For a while, both of them are speechless. Then the reality of it finally hits them. They understand just how much money they are about to earn now that the prediction has proven true. The profit is far larger than either of them expected. The two celebrate with even more excitement than if they had won the lottery. Sometime later, Taikyu completes the calculations. Their total stock profit comes out to $685 billion. Jin-hoo observes that they fell just short of $1 trillion. Following their agreement, Taikyu says half of the profit belongs to Jin-hoo. Hearing that feels strangely unreal. Not long ago, Jin-hoo was an unemployed former soldier. Now he has more money than he even knows how to use. He feels somewhat guilty accepting it, especially since his ability almost led them in the wrong direction. But Taikyu refuses to budge. Jin-hoo's prediction made them rich, so splitting it 50-50 is the fairest choice. Jin-hoo realizes he truly has a real friend, someone who never once tried to take advantage of him. Even so, remembering how close his powers came to failing, he decides he must be more careful from now on. He does not know what lies ahead, so the wisest choice is to keep his ability hidden. Aside from his mother, Taikyu is the only person he can truly trust. While Taikyu enjoys their huge gain, Jin-hoo feels a sting of guilt for making money from a national crisis. Taikyu reminds him that they did not cause the devices to be discontinued. Jin-hoo knows that, but he also knows Samsung's stock plunged while foreign competitors gained heavily. His friend tells him to enjoy their success and stop carrying the larger burden by himself. Besides, they now face a practical problem. If Taikyu legally transfers Jin-hoo's share, the taxes will be enormous, and cash is impossible, because there is nowhere to store it. Jin-hoo admits that this is the kind of problem he never expected to face. Taikyu wants to reinvest for even greater returns, but Jin-hoo warns him that the more capital they have, the harder it becomes to multiply it. Jin-hoo privately thinks he has already made enough to live comfortably for the rest of his life. Still, is it really right to stop here? After all, he has seen another vision, one he has not told Taikyu about yet. Jin-hoo tells Taikyu that he plans to follow this to the end, though he will understand if Taikyu wants to stop now. Taikyu answers immediately that he has no intention of stopping. He is staying with Jin-hoo until the very end. Then he explains how they can handle the issue with the money. He has already set up his company OTK in Delaware, United States. Since the state provides tax exemptions for donations, they can avoid going through the Korean government. Taikyu then asks Jin-hoo to show him the contract he gave him. He takes the paper and tears it apart. He says a 50-50 split no longer makes sense and suggests changing the terms to 80-20. Jin-hoo cannot understand the sudden shift and feels as though he has been pushed into a corner. Then, to his surprise, Taikyu makes it clear that he will take the 20%. The 80% is meant for Jin-hoo. Confused, Jin-hoo asks why he would suddenly propose such a split. Taikyu explains that their situation has changed. Before, he had the money while Jin-hoo had the predictions, but now Jin-hoo has capital of his own. Because of that, keeping the split at 50-50 would actually be unfair to Jin-hoo. Taikyu says the best investment he can make now is not in a company, but in Jin-hoo himself. What he gives up today is small compared to what they may build together, and he has already earned enough to live well. Taikyu believes going all in is the right choice because he trusts his friend. He adds that with an 80% share, Jin-hoo should handle the company's administration. Since he has been studying that area, he is the best person to take on the role. Just like that, Kang Jin-hoo officially becomes the CEO of OTK company. Jin-hoo feels embarrassed for ever questioning his friend's judgment. Now understands that trusting Taikyu's choices was the right move. As the year draws to a close, Taikyu asks Jin-hoo how he spent Christmas the year before. Jin-hoo had been trapped in the army clearing snow. Then asks his friend the same question. Tae-kyu says he spent the day with his mother, thinking she should not be alone on such a meaningful occasion. Changing topics, Jin-hoo tells Tae-kyu to send exactly 800 million won to his Korean account, since he wants the taxes handled properly. Tae-kyu pulls the account details his sister gave him and asks what Jin-hoo plans to use the money for. Jin-hoo says he is going out to buy his mother a Christmas gift. He steps into a real estate agency. There, the agent instantly assumes he is a college student searching for an affordable rental. But Jin-hoo explains that he is not looking to rent. He wants to purchase a house. The agent is startled and warns him that homes in this area can cost as much as 1 billion won. Jin-hoo simply points across the street and asks the price of that particular house. She says a place like that is around 600 million. Jin-hoo immediately says he will buy it. Realizing he is serious, the agent offers to search for similar properties. Jin-hoo refuses, making it clear he does not want something similar. He wants that exact house. The agent is forced to tell him that the house is not currently on the market. Jin-hoo asks whether the owner might reconsider if he offered far more than the market price. Then he takes out a bag filled with cash. He offers to add another 200 million on top. Then he asks if that amount would be enough. The house is owned by a woman named Kim Mi-ja. Buying it had once been her dream, but that dream quickly turned sour. The 20-year-old building required costly repairs. The commute was exhausting, and the property's value had dropped sharply. She felt completely trapped. Then, one day, she receives a call. The young man is offering to purchase her house for much more than it is worth. The amount is so large that Kim Mi-ja is nearly shocked out of her senses. But her first reaction is not relief, it is suspicion. She assumes that if someone is willing to pay so much, the house must be worth more than she realizes. So she tells the agent she needs time to think about it. Her husband urges her to accept the offer immediately. But Kim Mi-ja has a different idea. She calls the agent again and tries to push the price higher, demanding a full billion. The agent tells her the client has already given up and is now checking a cheaper property. Alarmed, Kim Mi-ja begs the agent to bring him back. She is desperate not to miss such a rare opportunity. A few days later, the agent contacts her again. She says she managed to persuade the buyer to return and asks whether Kim Mi-ja will accept a down payment. Afraid he might change his mind again, Kim Mi-ja agrees. The agent then asks if she can move out by Christmas. The woman objects, saying she has nowhere to go with so little time. The agent then says the buyer will pay an extra 20 million if she leaves by December 25th. Just like that, Kim Mi-ja says she can move out within 24 hours. Back on Jin-hoo's side, he is pleased that the deal is finished. This was his childhood home, where his family lived while his father was still alive. He knows he paid too much, but waiting was not an option. His real goal was to surprise his mother for Christmas. The real estate agent congratulates him on becoming the owner. Out of curiosity, she asks why he insisted on that particular house. Jin-hoo answers vaguely, and she understands that she should not press any further. Later, as he walks along the street, he sees everyone around him shopping for gifts. He looks down at a photo on his phone showing his whole family together. That is the true reason he wanted to buy the house. The agent did not need to know that. Afterward, he calls his mother and tells her he is on his way home. Sometime later, Jin-hoo tells his mother they are going out for a special dinner. Tae-kyu is waiting outside, ready to act as their chauffeur. His mother wonders where they are going, but Jin-hoo only tells her that it is a surprise. On the way there, he receives a call from the freshman. Shin Yu-rae gets straight to the point. She wants to know how he predicted that her phone model would soon be discontinued. He tries to brush it aside, but she says everything happened exactly the way he said it would. Jin-hoo quickly ends the call, saying he is busy and will contact her later. Right after that, he notices a message from Park Sang-yeo asking the same question. That small tip about the phone is becoming troublesome, but he has more important matters to handle now. The car stops in front of a house. His mother is instantly overwhelmed by emotion. She says they should not stay for long, but Jin-hoo insists that they go inside. She objects, saying it feels wrong to enter a property that no longer belongs to her. They step inside. The house is completely empty. As she looks around, memories of their happy days there come rushing back, but the warmth is mixed with sadness because the house is no longer theirs. That is when Jin-hoo finally reveals his surprise. He gives her the deed, showing that he has bought their old home back. Completely overwhelmed, she asks how something like this could possibly happen. He explains that he earned some money through investments with his friend and wanted to do something for her. She breaks into tears and thanks him for always looking after her. Jin-hoo tells her this is supposed to be a joyful day, so crying is not allowed. Then he notices Tae-kyu tearing up too and tells him to stop before he ruins the atmosphere. Later, he explains that he made some money, though he keeps the details unclear. He also tells her that he will postpone college for now to focus on investing. His mother does not like the idea and warns him not to abandon his education just because he got lucky once. Even so, she is relieved he has a good friend beside him, and Taikyu promises to handle any trouble Jinhu causes. Changing the topic, his mother says the house needs serious repairs, which is likely why the previous owner sold it so quickly. Jinhu tells her not to worry, he will handle the renovations, and they can move in once everything is ready. Taikyu reminds them that they have a dinner reservation, so they leave to celebrate. Jinhu thinks that now his father is gone. Taking care of his mother has become his responsibility. He silently promises to do his best, hoping his father can finally rest peacefully. Sometime later, Jinhu helps Taikyu move into a new place. They had agreed that expanding the business required a proper base to work from, so Taikyu purchased a larger house. He clearly spent a lot on it, but insists the purchase was a necessary investment. Inside, Taikyu claims the first floor as their office and gives Jinhu the second floor. After unpacking, he is already excited to go shopping, making Jinhu wonder if he has not bought enough. Taikyu says that is the wrong way to look at it. The point is not what to buy, but how far his buying power can go. Jinhu suspects this is just an elaborate excuse for Taikyu to buy more manga and anime figures. Later, they arrive at a huge department store, where a salesman comes over to greet them. Taikyu only browses at first until a massive television catches his eye. The salesman says it is Samsung's newest model, and Taikyu immediately declares that he will buy it. There is one issue. It is a display model and not for sale, but Taikyu refuses to back down and insists on purchasing it. After that, he starts choosing all kinds of premium electronics and home appliances. The stunned salesman asks if he will pay in installments, but Taikyu says he will pay the full amount in cash. He says he is simply returning a favor to Samsung, so he plans to buy at least one top-tier item from every category. After their shopping spree, Jinhu suggests he may have overdone it, but Taikyu says he is just repaying Samsung for their recent profits. Back at home, Taikyu begins redecorating everything, building luxurious relaxation spaces and even remodeling the bedrooms. He also announces that he has prepared a proper office. Once it is finished, it will become their headquarters for pursuing more profitable negotiations. Then he mentions another business matter, the company registration papers they signed. Jinhu looks over the contract and the reality finally hits him. He and Taikyu are now officially partners in investment. They hold their first meeting in the new office space. Jinhu says there is no longer any question that his ability is real. However, he has found several serious weaknesses. He cannot decide when the eagle appears. That means he cannot simply predict the future whenever he feels like it. The visions he receives are also vague and limited, so he gives an example. If he saw that a piece of land would rise in value, he would not know whether it would happen in a week or a year. There is also the danger that their own choices could alter the future, possibly making the outcome worse. Taikyu agrees that this is a real issue. Natural disasters are one matter, but human decisions are a completely different variable, and he notes that their Samsung play could easily have gone wrong. The company might have taken even riskier actions, and they may have recovered their money, but it could have taken years before the situation was finally resolved. Using Jinhu's land example, he adds that if their land became too valuable, the entire development project might be cancelled or moved elsewhere. Taikyu decides their only choice is to keep working hard and push ahead. Jinhu says the ability feels almost like a sixth sense. He cannot control it at will, yet he can sense it moving through him. Taikyu assumes they will simply have to wait until the eagle shows another vision. Jinhu quietly thinks the best outcome would be foreseeing another major crisis, something similar to the smartphone model being discontinued. But then he realizes that an event of that scale could seriously damage the nation's financial sector, leaving consequences that might last for years. While lost in thought, a news report catches his attention, and he quickly calls Taikyu over. The report says Samsung is looking into who bought all those put options shortly before the L6 was pulled from the market. The company suspects a foreign group knew the news in advance, or even worse, may have caused the defects from the beginning. The two immediately understand that Samsung is now looking straight at them. They sit down for a serious talk, and Jinhu says they have treated this too much like a game, but now they cannot risk drawing more attention. Taikyu argues that they never expected things to grow this huge, and besides, they did not break the law. Jinhu says the issue is how people see it. When you earn money while others succeed, you look brilliant. But when your profits come from other people's losses, everyone starts seeing you as the bad guy. Taikyu continues to insist that nothing they did was illegal. Even so, Jinhu says no one wins big twice without attracting suspicion. They need to plan carefully, since short-term options are dangerous and far too noticeable. Long-term investments have a stronger chance of working, but the timing and profits are much harder to predict. Both the Korean market and the global market have suffered major crises before, but they have learned from past mistakes and grown stronger over time. So, unless another major financial shock appears, the wiser choice is to build long-term investments. To make that happen, Jinhu wants to change their company. OTK OTK should become a holding company. From there, they can begin buying stakes in other businesses. Jinhoo lays out a fresh strategy. He should invest in companies with strong growth potential, then take control of the best performers. Their target is to double their 600 to 70 million within 3 years. Taekyu likes the idea and even thinks the challenge does not sound that difficult. Jinhoo intends to study companies online while waiting for his eagle to appear again, but after spending hours staring at the screen without a single result, he begins to feel that the entire effort has been a complete waste of time. His friend arrives with a pile of printed documents, thinking paper would be less exhausting than ruining their eyes in front of a monitor. The next morning, Taekyu wakes up and finds Jinhoo still surrounded by those documents. He has stayed up the entire night, but Jinhoo says the eagle never appeared even once. Even worse, he has realized they have been moving in the wrong direction. He explains that the overall plan is not bad, but their approach is the real problem. Their method of buying stakes is not producing what they need. For giant billion-dollar companies, profit is mostly a matter of patience. But with smaller companies, stock prices are unpredictable. They can soar or collapse without warning, and Jinhoo realizes the fund will only become harder to manage as it grows. Taekyu suggests looking overseas, perhaps at major tech companies. Jinhoo agrees, but says they need connections or must bring in a real expert. Whatever business model they decide to follow, they will need capable people and reliable information. Just then, Taekyu's phone starts ringing. His sister is on the line, and she is furious. She demands to know why his house is completely empty. Taekyu calmly tells her that he moved and gives her his new address. Jinhoo comments that the timing is perfect, since he wanted to speak with Oh Hyun-ju anyway. But Taekyu warns him that his sister is furious, so this will not be a pleasant visit. A little later, Oh Hyun-ju arrives. Still visibly angry, she looks around and asks who owns the place. Taekyu says it belongs to him and that he will be living there from now on, which only makes her angrier. She demands to know what happened to the billions that had been sitting in his account. Taekyu asks whether that is the real reason she came back to Korea. Oh Hyun-ju explains that the recent Samsung incident shook the entire Korean market, but a rumor has started spreading about a certain mysterious entity. That entity bought an enormous amount of put options right before the news became public. As it turns out, the account belongs to a client at Golden Gate, where she works. The trade was so large that it dramatically improved the balance sheet of the Asian branch. She already knew shell companies often used random letter combinations, so she suspected OTK might be one of them. Then a senior colleague confirmed her suspicion by mentioning a transfer of more than $10 billion to an overseas account. Since Oh Hyun-ju had opened the account for her brother, she was authorized to review his transaction history. What she found horrified her. He had used every last bit of it on Samsung put options. She demands to know what in the world he has been doing. Jinhoo instantly understands that she has figured everything out. Taekyu, however, simply admits he bought the options and asks what he did wrong. Oh Hyun-ju tells him that because of his trade, the Financial Supervisory Service has officially asked Golden Gate to provide documents. They are requesting OTK's transaction history and information about who owns the company. He says they are fortunate for now, because Golden Gate only knows the country where the company was founded, not its owners. But refusing cooperation only protects them from domestic institutions. Eventually, the truth will surface. She explains that OTK is suspected of using inside information. They are even being suspected of having some direct connection to the Samsung phone incidents. For listed companies, any important information must be shared with all investors equally. Using non-public information for trades is illegal. If OTK's gains are judged unlawful, the government can seize the money, and both of them could face prison. Oh Hyun-ju points out that without solid evidence, the authorities cannot charge them. Even so, she wants the full truth about how they managed it. Jinhoo admits that he was the one who gave Taekyu the information. That immediately leads to the next question. How did he know? Jinhoo pauses, unsure how to answer. His hesitation only makes Oh Hyun-ju even more irritated. She makes the stakes clear. If they cannot give her a convincing explanation, both of them could end up in jail, and she might be pulled down with them. So Jinhoo gives her the version they can officially stand behind. Once the news about the L6 phones catching fire came out, he carried out a detailed analysis. He concluded that it had to be a serious manufacturing defect, bad enough for the whole model to be discontinued. After he shared that conclusion with Taekyu, Taekyu believed his analysis and chose to bet on the prediction. From there, they bought put options without insider trading or help from any outside party. Oh Hyun-ju is not naive. She knows they are hiding something, but for the moment, she decides their explanation is acceptable. She mentions an old scandal called the Sweet Bank case, where a group manipulated stock prices and profited from the crash, earning around 50 billion won. These two young men, working from one small room, made more than 10 times that amount. She explains that the sweet bank scandal brought much tougher regulations, but what they did with Samsung has no real precedent. Even with protective hedges in place, a firm like Golden Gate still lost $20 million, all because two investors used effective product crisis to make billions. If OTK had been a Korean company, she says, all three of them would already be standing in court. Because the company was formed overseas, they are safe for now. She looks at them and says they already caused a massive mess with just 13 billion. Then she asks what they plan to do now that they have far more money. IQ explains the company's new structure. Jinhoo owns 80%, while he keeps the remaining 20%. His sister is stunned and asks why he would ever hand Jinhoo the majority stake. Taekyu's reasoning is straightforward. Jinhoo brought the information and proposed the move, while he only provided the money. Oh Hyunju calls the setup absurd. In finance, the person who supplies the capital usually takes the largest share. She tells her brother that he has basically handed the whole company over, but Taekyu knows exactly what he is doing. He needs Jinhoo to manage the company so they can keep investing together. His sister still is not convinced. She calls their last trade a lucky break and asks if they truly plan to continue this madness. Taekyu says they have a plan, but they need her help. To make the offer more appealing, he promises her 3% of his shares, worth about 20 billion won. Jinhoo adds that he understands her worries about him running the company, but he promises he is not reckless. He also notes that she would not need to leave her current job. In fact, her position could help them gather valuable information. Oh Hyunju responds by sending Jinhoo out to buy her a coffee. As he steps outside, Jinhoo finds himself thinking about her. Oh Hyunju has been brilliant all her life, entering a top economics program with the highest scores. She then joined one of the world's most elite investment banks and quickly rose to become a team leader. Meanwhile, her brother spent half his life fooling around before accidentally becoming a billionaire. Jinhoo understands why accepting a job offer from someone like him would be hard for her to swallow. When he returns, Taekyu gives him the good news. His sister has agreed to join. Then Oh Hyunju sends her brother out to buy cigarettes. She wants to speak with Jinhoo privately. Jinhoo thanks her for joining them, but she keeps her answer practical. The offer was too attractive to turn down, and she knew that if she refused, they would simply hire someone else. Besides, she admits, this is the first time her brother has ever taken anything seriously outside of his otaku hobbies. She still thinks their investment was reckless, but she cannot deny the outcome. She admits she would never have dared to make such a risky move, even though she expects that behavior from her brother. What surprised her was seeing Jinhoo do the same. Jinhoo explains that he spent most of his life without money, so he was willing to risk everything for one real chance. In his view, every legendary investor must have taken a major risk at some point, and this was his. Oh Hyunjo reminds him that finance is full of experts, but also full of frauds. Even after 10 years in the field, she still does not know everything. Jinhoo understands. She is worried about her brother. He promises that no matter what happens, he will not let Taekyu get dragged into trouble. Hearing that seems to ease her worries a little. She tells him that she is counting on him to take care of her brother. And with that, the company gains its third partner, making OTK a team of 3. Jinhoo owns 80% while Taekyu holds 17%, and Oh Hyunjo joins in with the remaining 3%. Sometime later, Jinhoo explains his next plan. He intends to launch a separate investment firm, while allowing OTK to operate as a holding company. Oh Hyunju thinks the idea is strong, though she wonders how Jinhoo plans to manage everything. She tells him there is no need to hurry, because she is there to support him. The first priority is finding someone reliable to lead the new company, a right-hand person he can trust. So he asks for her help choosing the right candidate. She soon returns with valuable information, an internal report from Golden Gate. Since OTK is an important client, they are legally allowed to request that kind of data. Oh Hyunju has essentially given him a list of the market's biggest upcoming trends to choose from. Just then, Jinhoo receives a call from Park Sang-yup, who invites him to dinner. When they meet, Jinhoo instantly notices the brand new suit. His friend must have dressed up, because something important is happening. Sang-yup declares that dinner is his treat, making Jinhoo ask whether he finally cleared his debts. He says he did, and he owes Jinhoo for it. The Samsung tip ended up saving him. Jinhoo asks whether he also purchased put options on Samsung Electronics. Sang-yup says no, because he never truly believed the L6 would be discontinued. Instead, he concluded the real issue had to be the battery, which meant the battery makers would suffer the damage. So he used the $700,000 he had left after covering his monthly bills to buy put options on Samsung's insurer. The outcome was an easy 150 million won. Jinhoo is stunned. Even with knowledge of the future, he had not been fully certain how events would unfold. Then he realizes that Sang-yup is a born investor. He spotted an opportunity, acted without hesitation, and risked everything he had to become a millionaire. Sang-yup explains that once his debts were gone, the first thing he bought was this suit. He also knows Jin-Hoo and his partner earned a fortune. A finance sector friend told him that foreign corporations bought up all the Samsung call options. After their last conversation, Sang-yup had no trouble guessing who was behind it. He adds that his friend thought the company purchasing the put options was Japanese, because its name was OTK Company. From there, it was not hard for Sang-yup to connect the dots. Jin-Hoo asks if that is the real reason he invited him to dinner. Sang-yup says it is. Jin-Hoo helped pull him out of a difficult situation, so he wanted to thank him properly. Jin-Hoo only asks him to keep it quiet, since he has no interest in making headlines. Sang-yup promises, but immediately asks where they plan to invest next. Jin-Hoo stays calm and says he is not even sure he will keep investing, but Sang-yup does not believe him. He knows they are preparing a new corporation, and he wants to join. He makes his case, saying Jin-Hoo needs someone skilled in numbers and analysis to survive this market. He has studied the market more than anyone, and claims no one can do what he does. Besides, he trusts Jin-Hoo's instincts and has already decided to work for him. As it turns out, the suit was not just for dinner. Jin-Hoo finally understands. This is not a thank you meal, but a job interview. Sang-yup states it directly. Jin-Hoo is the CEO, so the decision belongs to him. Jin-Hoo considers it carefully. His current team is capable, but it will not be enough for what lies ahead. He needs someone who can act as his hands and feet, someone who understands his vision. So he asks Sang-yup if he can handle that role. Even though he is older, Sang-yup says he has no issue working under Jin-Hoo and is fully capable of meeting his expectations. Jin-Hoo reflects that a CEO's greatest ability is knowing how to accept talented people. And at this moment, Sang-yup is the most capable person he knows. With that, Jin-Hoo officially hires his new employee. Once Sang-yup is on board, he asks whether the team is really only the two of them. Tae-kyu explains that his older sister is also part of the operation. She is a team leader at Golden Gate's Asian branch and handles all their legal and administrative matters. Shifting the topic, Jin-Hoo asks how Sang-yup's former company reacted to his resignation. Sang-yup says they immediately tried to keep him with a raise, which only made him regret not quitting earlier. Now, he is focused on catching the next major industry shift. He explains that when Apple released the first iPhone, other companies dismissed it. Because of that, many were eventually replaced, since the iPhone combined several devices into one. He believes ordinary people only recognize genius after the world has already changed. He refuses to be ordinary and wants to stand there while the change is happening. Jin-Hoo realizes Park Sang-yup thinks on an entirely different level. Bringing him in was definitely the right decision. Tae-kyu agrees and suggests they raise their glasses to the future of their new team. Next morning, Jin-Hoo wakes up at home with a brutal hangover. Once he manages to gather himself, his first thought turns to his next investment. At that moment, Tae-kyu wakes as well, irritated by the sound of a phone alarm. He notices that someone named Shin Yu-ri is calling Jin-Hoo and tells him. Jin-Hoo answers, and the freshman asks why he never called her back as promised. He apologizes and says he was busy, while Shin Yu-ri calmly invites him to lunch. Jin-Hoo remembers that she was the reason he received the Samsung Vision, so he decides the least he can do is treat her to a meal. She is delighted that he agreed, and the two of them settle on a time to meet. Tae-kyu instantly asks who the girl is, and Jin-Hoo says she is just a freshman from his university. That makes Tae-kyu wonder if they are dating, but Jin-Hoo quickly says they are not. His friend reminds him that he has a mission to stay focused on and cannot waste energy on distractions. Jin-Hoo says he understands. When he thinks about paying for lunch, he realizes he has no cash left. He spent everything, and his new card still has not arrived. So, feeling a little awkward, he has no choice but to ask his friend for a loan. Jin-Hoo cannot ignore the irony. He has billions sitting in offshore accounts, yet he cannot even pay for a simple meal. Tae-kyu lends him the money, but warns him to use it wisely. Later, Jin-Hoo meets the freshman at the restaurant, and she asks whether he had any trouble finding the neighborhood. Jin-Hoo says he actually just moved to Gangnam, which makes her brighten up as she says they can meet more often now that they live nearby. Her behavior feels a bit unusual to him. Even his ex-girlfriend had not been this warm when they were together. He begins wondering why this girl is treating him so kindly. When the bill comes, Yu-ri insists on paying because she was the one who invited him. She tells Jin-Hoo he can pay next time, then says she simply did not want to eat alone and was glad he joined her. After that, she points toward her apartment building, which is obviously in an expensive area. She tells Jin-Hoo he should come by someday, since the building has a beautiful Han River view and a very nice lounge. As they walk toward her complex, Jin-Hoo notices that the walking area is far larger than the one at his own place. Yu-ri explains that she has her own apartment and lives by herself because her parents work abroad. Hearing that, Jin-Hoo can only think of one thing. This girl is clearly wealthy. Not just anyone can own a place in an area like this. While they are walking, Shin Yu-rai says something has bothered her since their last meeting, then asks him directly, how did he know Samsung would discontinue the L6 phones? Jin-Hoo immediately remembers Tae-Kyu warning him to be careful. He knows he has to choose his answer very cautiously. Jin-Hoo says that after the phone launched, so many users reported problems that he simply guessed it might be discontinued. Shin Yu-rai admits she thought he had inside information because he sounded so sure back then. Keeps his composure and says there is no way he could have known for certain. He says it was only a guess. Yuri wishes she had known about the defects earlier, since it would have spared her trouble, and her mother is upset because her Samsung stock dropped hard. Even though the price has recovered somewhat, she is still losing money. Yuri asks whether her mother should sell or wait, and Jin-Hoo tells her to hold. He points out that most Koreans, including Yuri herself, chose to exchange the faulty phone for a replacement. They did that instead of asking for a refund. But more importantly, Samsung's core business is not smartphones but semiconductors. Since the chip industry is expanding rapidly, Samsung's investments give it a major advantage. He says that because the industry will keep growing, holding Samsung stock is the wiser choice despite the current trouble. He quickly adds that he is not an expert, it is only his personal view. Yuri is not bothered by that. She says even professionals make mistakes, and she plans to follow his advice. Jin-Hoo is surprised to hear that she owns stock as well. She explains that she used her allowance to buy some shares when the price fell. The thought hits him right away. If her allowance is enough to buy stock, her family must be extremely rich. Just then, her grandmother appears and asks whether Jin-Hoo is her boyfriend. Shin Yuri quickly explains that they are only friends. Her grandmother says she should marry such a handsome young man before another girl takes him. After they separate, Yuri tells him a little about her grandmother's past. Her grandmother once ran a small shop on a valuable piece of land. Eventually, she sold that land to a major department store. With the money from the sale, she purchased 3 apartments in the new condominium building. She kept one for herself and gave one to each of her 2 children. Just like that, Jin-Hoo understands where Yuri's family wealth came from. But to him, it is more than an interesting story. Something clicks and he tells Shin Yuri that she has helped him figure out his next move. Promises to treat her to coffee the next time they meet, then quickly leaves. To Yuri, it only looks like Jin-Hoo is acting strangely and running off again. To him, it is a major breakthrough. He hurries home and tells Tae-Kyu that he finally knows what they should do. Tae-Kyu's first question is whether Jin-Hoo received another vision. Jin-Hoo says no, but he has realized that apartment redevelopment is the perfect model for their goal. He explains that a small house on valuable land can be sold to a conglomerate and later become a skyscraper, making the original owner rich. But that depends on luck. The owner could not have known the land would become so valuable. So Tae-Kyu asks what any of this has to do with stocks. Jin-Hoo starts connecting the idea. In the business world, a startup is like undeveloped land for a company. Investing in one early could later turn that asset into a huge profit. The key difference is that they cannot depend on luck, so they must choose promising startups and invest long-term. Tae-Kyu understands the reasoning, but points out how hard that would be. Jin-Hoo reminds him that they possess an advantage nobody else has, the power to identify which startups are truly worth choosing. With the plan now decided, the only thing left is to locate the right targets. After the new year arrives, Jin-Hoo's mother comes over to visit. They enjoy a warm dinner together and give her a tour around the new house. Jin-Hoo tells her there is more than enough space for her to live there too, but she says she is comfortable in her current home. Even so, she promises that she will come by more often. Once she heads home, Jin-Hoo immediately returns to his work. Tae-Kyu explains that nearly every startup is negotiating with Golden Gate, so he has gathered a list of the ones that look most promising. But Jin-Hoo is not interested in that list. He wants the companies Golden Gate turned down. His logic is simple. Companies with secure investment are too obvious, while the ones everyone ignored may be hiding the real value. Only he can recognize that value. Tae-Kyu says 2 people cannot sort through that much paperwork, but Jin-Hoo has already prepared for it. He has assigned the first round of screening to his sister, since routine sorting is exactly the kind of work she knows well. Even then, Jin-Hoo must personally check her picks, because his vision only works when he makes the final judgment himself. After some time, he grows exhausted from reviewing the documents one at a time, so he tests something new by touching the whole stack at once. His power reacts faintly, confirming that the right document is hidden somewhere inside. He then spreads every paper across the floor. He asks Tae-Kyu to arrange them so none of the pages overlap. This method, he can examine the documents much more quickly. and he can easily throw away the ones with no value. Several days pass. While Jinhoo handles the exhausting work, Taekyu relaxes on the couch playing video games. At last, Jinhoo presents a small pile of documents that seem promising. He says he has narrowed the choices down as far as possible. Taekyu tells him to rest because he has been working for days, but Jinhoo says he has come too far in 10 days to stop. Not when the answer finally feels so close. He collapses from exhaustion and falls into another vision. This time what appears is not an eagle. It is a unicorn. A message appears saying that in a partly unknown Eden, he will find what he has been seeking. Jinhoo is overjoyed. His vision has finally given him a clue. Jinhoo eventually opens his eyes. According to Taekyu, he has been unconscious for almost 20 hours. He says he had a strange dream about a unicorn, but the details have already faded. Taekyu, on the other hand, has not been wasting time. He has already prepared a list of possible investment targets, and says they need a specialized negotiation team to begin properly. Jinhoo points out the problem with that idea. Building an investment firm and hiring skilled people would take months. By that time, their target companies might already find other backers. To avoid missing the chance, he has a two-part strategy in mind. Not long after, he schedules a meeting. Sang-yeop was told he would be meeting the team, and his nerves quickly got the better of him. He arrives far earlier than necessary, thinking there is no harm in being ahead of time. As he nears the room, he hears them discussing enormous investments, and his confidence immediately starts to waver. Inside, Jinhoo, Taekyu, and Oh Hyunju are reviewing startups. Oh Hyunju reports that meetings with foreign companies are already scheduled. For now, Jinhoo wants to stay away from Korean startups. That is because OTK is still being closely watched by financial regulators. He needs everything kept quiet since the plan will only work if his company does not appear directly involved. At that moment, Sang-yeop finally steps inside. Jinhoo introduces him as a university senior and a skilled mathematician. He then introduces Oh Hyunjo as the head of Golden Gate's Asian team and Taekyu's sister. Once the introductions are finished, Jinhoo calls Sang-yeop out for eavesdropping outside the door. He knows Sang-yeop is far too punctual to have just arrived. Jinhoo goes straight to the matter. He is creating an investment firm under OTK Company, with OTK as the sole shareholder, and he wants Sang-yeop to run it. He will support him with $70 million in capital and offer him a personal yearly salary of 100 million won. Sang-yeop is stunned. After their previous conversation, he never imagined he would be handed something this big so suddenly. After all, no one invests that much money in just anyone. If Jinhoo chose him, it means he truly believes in his potential. Jinhoo says he knows Sang-yeop well enough to trust him with the role. In fact, he says finding someone more capable would be difficult. Now they only need a suitable office location. Hearing that, Sang-yeop mentions that he already noticed a good place on his way to the meeting. Since Jinhoo had already hinted at the subject, he thought it was best to prepare in advance. Jinhoo only smiles. That is exactly the reason he picked him. Taekyu adds that this would be the perfect moment to choose a name for the new subsidiary. Jinhoo shuts the idea down at once. With his friend's history of otaku-style names, there is no way he is letting him decide this time. Sang-yeop notes that the K in OTK means to guard or protect. Then he suggests a name for the subsidiary, K Company. Taekyu and his sister both like it, saying it is simple but stylish. Jinhoo gives his approval. The name will be K Company. With that settled, he officially appoints Sang-yeop as CEO. Once the meeting ends, Hyunju starts setting up the subsidiary, while Sang-yeop is assigned to review startups for investment. Meanwhile, Golden Gate employees are sent to K Company's headquarters to join the team. Taekyu is amazed by the building, and Jinhoo explains that the location was chosen for easy airport access for Golden Gate staff and foreign investors. Hyunju then says she has arranged a meeting with an international lawyer. As if on cue, the lawyer walks in. Her name is Ellie Kim, one of Hyunjo's friends and someone also connected to Golden Gate. Having just arrived from the airport, she introduces herself and explains that although she lives overseas, her father is Korean, so she speaks the language fluently. Jinhoo admits he expected an older man and bluntly asks whether she can handle the job. Hyunjo quickly steps in and assures him that her friend is more than capable. She also explains that she only gave Ellie the necessary basics, since no one at Golden Gate knows Jinhoo is OTK's true owner. Jinhoo understands attorney-client privilege, but he still wants to attend the meetings personally. He will only leave the purely legal procedures in Ellie's hands. As the team waits for the first meeting to begin, Jinhoo finds himself feeling unexpectedly nervous. For Ellie and Hyunju, this is routine work, but for Jinhoo, the pressure feels heavy. He understands that leading the team is now his responsibility. The first founders arrive, Toby Strong and Gerald Bacon, seeking investors to expand their startup. Their pitch is straightforward. They want to become the Netflix of adult content. Toby argues that the industry is enormous but poorly organized. It is filled with illegal files, and he believes his company can solve that problem. Jinhoo has already reviewed the startup and thinks the business model is not bad. However, focusing only on adult content greatly narrows their potential audience. Taikyu, meanwhile, is completely convinced. His sister Hyunju remains uncertain, viewing an adult content streaming platform as a risky investment. But Taikyu insists he knows this field better than anyone and tells her not to back away. After a serious discussion, they settle on a deal, $9 million for 80% of the company. Their next meeting is with a startup selling autonomous pizza-making equipment for food trucks, designed to reduce labor costs. Once again, Taikyu becomes an instant supporter. His sister is still doubtful, but he declares himself the table's top pizza expert and says making pizza on the way to customers could change everything. Ellie adds her view, noting that pizza is a huge market in the United States and that this technology could truly transform it. After further discussion, they decide to put $75 million into the pizza startup. After a long day filled with business meetings, Jinhoo feels completely worn out. Taikyu does not understand, asking how sitting in a chair all day could be so exhausting. Jinhoo admits that he is impressed by how calm his friend stayed. For him, keeping track of all those numbers is extremely stressful. Hoping to clear his mind, Jinhoo steps outside for fresh air and happens to run into Ellie. She says she went out for a run because sitting all day made her feel stiff, and she asks whether he would like to have a drink with her. Jinhoo is caught off guard by the invitation. Still, he agrees. Not long after, Jinhoo and Ellie end up at a convenience store. She says this is her third visit to Korea, but her first time coming for work. Jinhoo thanks her, saying that having her there has helped them tremendously. Ellie, in return, says she is impressed. She can hardly believe that the company that shook the financial world is being run by only 2 people. She explains that the Samsung incident affected far more than Korea. It reached the entire world, including her own firm, Golden Gate. And amid all that confusion, an unknown company called OTK managed to make millions. She finds the whole situation extraordinary. Jinhoo brushes it off as beginner's luck, but Ellie knows luck alone could not have produced that result. He tries to avoid the praise again, saying he did not do it by himself and had help from his friend and sister. Ellie says that because of the name, many people assumed OTK was a Japanese company. She admits she thought the same until she met them, but since tomorrow is important, she decides they should stop drinking for the night. They make their way back to the hotel. Before going their separate ways, Ellie asks Jinhoo which actor he likes the most. He does not really have an answer, or at least he prefers not to say it out loud. The following day, the meetings start with a Chinese startup that specializes in efficient logistics. The owners explain that although China has many railways, it still relies heavily on poorly organized road transport. For instance, a truck may carry goods from Shanghai to Shan, only to return empty if no return shipment is available. So they created an app that links shippers with drivers, improves routes, and lowers transportation costs. Hyunju is not fully convinced that the system works as efficiently as they claim. The founders insist that it is both practical and cost-effective. Then they begin discussing the matter among themselves in Chinese. Jinhoo is left unable to follow any of it. Ellie, however, understands everything. She steps in and assures them that her firm sees value in their idea. That single move, the tension in the room quickly fades. Ellie's response earns the partners' trust. In the end, they manage to reach an agreement that works for both sides. Once the startups for investment have been chosen, Jinhoo realizes he already misses the pressure and energy of the meetings. He makes a point of thanking Hyunju, saying her role in the negotiations was absolutely important. A little later, they stop to have lunch. Jean points out that they have barely taken a break since the company was founded and suggests that they should take a day off. Ellie asks whether Jinhoo has any plans. When he says no, she asks him to show her around Seoul. Hyunju immediately jumps in and asks if Ellie is asking their boss out on a date. Ellie admits that she is, and Jinhoo says he has no objection. In that case, Ellie says she will get ready and meet him later. Later that same day, they meet in the hotel lobby. Jinhoo is slightly taken aback when he sees Ellie dressed up so beautifully. Outside, his friend Taikyu suddenly appears. Knowing Jinhoo rarely goes out, Taikyu offers to lend him his car. Jinhoo would rather refuse, feeling deeply embarrassed by the flashy otaku-themed car. But Ellie surprisingly likes it, leaving him with no easy way out. While they are on the road, Jinhoo asks whether there is any specific place she wants to visit. She says there is. She wants to see a Korean university. Ellie explains that her earlier visits to Korea were limited to work or simple sightseeing. She had heard a lot about Korea University from Hyunju and knew it was Jinhoo's alma mater. Jinhoo, returning to his old university, does not feel like anything special. The real issue is the attention-grabbing car he has to drive. When they arrive, Jinhoo explains that certain areas are only open to students. Still, they are free to walk around the main campus grounds. It is not long before some of his former classmates recognize him. Naturally, they also notice him standing beside the otaku car he had been so desperate to hide. One of them, a girl named Lee Hai Mai, mocks him and says he should feel embarrassed driving something like that. His other friends simply tell him to ignore her, just like they always do. Feeling slighted, Haimei decides she will not be brushed aside that easily. Just then, she notices Jinhoo's ex-girlfriend, Siona. Siona is walking nearby, so Haimei deliberately calls her over. To make things worse, Siona is with her current boyfriend. Jinhoo feels utterly embarrassed, standing there beside such a tacky-looking car. He knows very well that Siona's new boyfriend is wealthy and drives something far more impressive. Haimei knows it too, which is exactly why she arranged this awkward little reunion. At that moment, Ellie walks over and says it is a pleasure to meet Jinhoo's friends. She introduces herself politely as an employee of Golden Gate and explains that she is currently in Korea on business. Everyone in the group is shocked to see Jinhoo accompanied by someone so impressive. Siona's boyfriend Jun Hyung introduces himself and asks what brought Ellie to Korea. Ellie says she came for work, but after several exhausting days stuck at the hotel, she asked Jinhoo to show her around the university. Seizing the opportunity, Jun Hyung gives her his business card and mentions that he and his father have business with Golden Gate. Ellie recognizes the company name, GA Construction, and mentions their projects in Indonesia. Not that any of that matters much to him at the moment. Siona clearly feels uncomfortable with the conversation, so she pulls her boyfriend away. Once the tension passes, Jinhoo's real friends invite him and Ellie to have lunch. Haimei, however, is furious that another woman has taken the attention away from her. She mutters that working for a famous firm is not that impressive anyway. After spending the afternoon avoiding all kinds of nosy questions, the university tour finally ends, and Jinhoo takes Ellie to another part of the city. As they walk, Ellie says the girl with Jun Hyung really is as pretty as Taekyu described, then accidentally reveals she knows Jinhoo dated her until he enlisted. Jinhoo complains that Taekyu talks too much, but says that everything is already in the past. He has no connection to that girl anymore. Ellie says they have a busy workday tomorrow, but adds that she truly enjoyed spending time with him. Jinhoo agrees and admits he had a great time with her as well. Away from the university, Jun Hyung notices that Siona seems troubled. He says he knows she once dated Jinhoo, but that was not what bothered him. What seemed strange was the car Jinhoo was riding in. Siona assumes the car probably belongs to Jinhoo's friend, Taekyu. That only makes Jun Hyung more curious, wondering how they are connected to a lawyer from Golden Gate. Siona explains that Taekyu's older sister also works for Golden Gate in its Asian branch. Even so, Jun Hyung still feels something about Jinhoo was unusual. Unlike everyone else, Jinhoo did not seem intimidated by him at all. Siona admits Jinhoo has changed a lot, but makes it clear she does not want to discuss him anymore. Back with the protagonist, he is attending another startup meeting. The company owner explains that they specialize in AI-based architecture, using machine learning to design increasingly complex skyscrapers. This time, Hyunju is the one impressed, and she agrees to invest right away. Afterward, she says their next meeting is still some time away, so they have a chance to take a break. Ellie uses the opportunity to invite Jinhoo to play squash. He refuses, saying his body is still sore from overdoing it the previous time. Later, while relaxing with his friend, Jinhoo notes that for someone who barely understands English, Taekyu has been paying surprisingly close attention. The otaku keeps his real thoughts hidden, but privately believes that only one startup has truly caught his interest so far. He simply tells Jinhoo that since his money is being invested, he wants to know where it is going. Jinhoo then asks whether he has ever heard of Song Masayoshi. Taekyu recognizes him as the man connected to Alibaba, the Chinese online shopping platform. Jinhoo explains that in the early days, eBay dominated the online marketplace. When Softbox's director Song Masayoshi visited Beijing for business, Alibaba's founder immediately asked to meet him. After only 2 hours, Song Masayoshi agreed to invest $20 million in the company. At the time, no one believed a Chinese website could rival an American one. Yet 20 years later, eBay withdrew from China because of poor sales, and today Alibaba is listed on the New York Stock Exchange. Alibaba's market value is around $330 billion, making it worth even more than Samsung. Softbox's $20 million investment for a 30% stake became a return beyond anyone's imagination. Jinhoo links this to Taekyu's complaint that their investments have not paid off yet, explaining that, like Masayoshi, they are backing businesses with major long-term potential. Jinhoo says Song Masayoshi's $20 million seed grew into 11 trillion won, and OTK could reach that level too if they choose the right startup. This finally makes sense to Taekyu, who realizes that with 600 million, they have far more money than Masayoshi did and more room for mistakes. Jinhoo agrees, saying that even if their first attempt fails, one major success will make everything worthwhile. Then Hyunju arrives with an update. She says the company Jinhu has always wanted to meet just contacted them. The people from Kairos are coming to Korea, and she asks if he wants a meeting. She adds that not every startup they invited agreed to meet, since many had already secured other investors. Jinhu points out that Kairos rejected their first proposal too. Hyunju explains that OTK's original offer simply was not high enough for them. Soon after, Kairos CEO Ryan Gates and CFO Sergey Jovanovic arrive in Korea. After Hyunju and Ellie introduce themselves, the two executives look right past Jinhu and Tae-kyu, assuming they are only assistants. They ask who at OTK actually has the authority to make decisions. Hyunju calmly tells them that she does. With that clarified, Ryan immediately gets to the main issue. Kairos needs an investment of $100 million. Hyunju does not even flinch. She confirms that her company is fully capable of providing that amount. Jinhu can see that she has the arrogant foreign representatives under control, so he decides to let her take charge of the meeting. Ryan offers to make his project explanation easier to understand, but Hyunju cuts him off before he can continue. She says she already knows the basic details and wants to hear about their current complicated situation instead. Sergey then begins explaining how everything reached this point. He says the modern automobile industry is now shaped by two major trends: electric cars, autonomous vehicles. 5 years earlier, Amazon invested heavily, followed by Hyundai from South Korea. A small Japanese stake was later sold to Kairos, until Amazon eventually quit and sold its shares to Hyundai. Hyundai then acquired Kairos as well, giving it a powerful hold over the electric vehicle market. Hyunju asks the obvious question: if Hyundai is that dominant, why are they trying to sell Kairos now? Sergey explains that their partnership eventually broke down. A Samsung subsidiary turned out to be more efficient, leaving Kairos with no real purpose. Now Hyundai simply wants to sell Kairos patents and technology to recover part of its investment. After hearing that, Tae-kyu can no longer stay silent. He asks why they should buy a company that Hyundai has basically thrown aside. Then he looks at Jinhu and asks whether he knew about this connection. Jinhu says he did. That answer is enough for Tae-kyu to pull him into another room for a private discussion. Once they are away from the meeting, Tae-kyu says Jinhu is not thinking straight and demands to know what he is planning. Ellie wonders whether this matter is personal to him. Jinhu finally admits the truth. Hyundai is the company that ruined his family and led to his father's death. Jinhu explains the past. His father owned a small metalworking business called DHK Nganharia, which had only 10 employees. After working for many years, he created an integrated suspension system and was finally prepared to patent it. At that point, a Hyundai representative came to him, wanting to purchase the patent for one of their vehicles. However, they first asked for a product sample so they could study it. Not long afterward, Hyundai canceled the contract. They had used the sample to imitate the design. Then they hurried to patent the technology before the real inventor had the chance. Jinhu says his father was never the same after that. He remained that way until the day he passed away. Ellie asks whether DHK at least received compensation after the contract was cancelled. Hyunju explains that as a foreign lawyer, Ellie does not understand how things usually work in Korea. In Korea, a small company almost never beats a corporate giant in court. Large corporations can drag the case out until the smaller side is crushed by legal costs they cannot pay. Even with all that history, Jinhu says he is setting his family matters aside to focus on business. But even without emotion involved, Hyunjo opposes the deal. She says spending that much on a company with little left to offer is simply a poor investment. Lee agrees, saying the Kairos patents are worth only around $50 million, so paying twice that amount would mean a certain loss. It would also lock up most of their $120 million capital, leaving them with fewer choices later. Tae-kyu is firmly against it too, mainly because he refuses to do anything that might help Hyundai. Jinhu knows they are right. Without his vision, he would have rejected this deal as well. Hyunju makes it clear that her role is to provide a professional assessment. Still, the final decision belongs to the owner. Tae-kyu then asks his friend what he wants to do. Jinhu answers that he needs to meet Kairos' CEO first. Ryan, the representative, says that will not be possible because his boss is busy, which is why they were sent instead. Hyunju refuses to accept that. She reminds them that Kairos is the one seeking help, not OTK, and an offer of $100 million is not something they can casually dismiss. With that reasoning against them, the Kairos representatives promise to speak with their boss and arrange a meeting. A while later, Tae-kyu admits he still does not understand, but respects his friend's choice. Even so, he asks whether Jinhu is truly satisfied. Jinhu thinks about how he stayed awake all night asking himself that exact question. In the end, he chose to trust his vision and bury his personal emotions for now. Soon, Daryl Sagan, the CEO of Kairos, arrives at the hotel and greets Jinhu. The moment their hands meet, another vision strikes Jinhu, giving him all the confirmation he needs. Jinhu is now prepared to carry the Kairos acquisition through to the end. During the meeting, Daryl Sagan explains the vision behind his company. He says modern cars are no longer just just engines and wheels. They are also computers, and Kairos aims to create an AI that can control an entire vehicle independently. Hyunju notes that technology like that already exists in the market. Daryl Sagan explains that his software is different. It is not merely autopilot, but a true AI able to think like a human. As promising as the project sounds, Hyundai's CEO is not convinced. That is why Kairos is searching for a new investor. Daryl Sagan explains that Hyundai only focuses on quick results, which is why they ignore long-term projects and settle for ordinary software. Jin-Hoo realizes that among every project his company has invested in, nothing compares to the AI system Daryl Sagan is describing. Everything begins to make sense. This must be why his future vision brought him here. He asks how Kairos is currently owned. Daryl Sagan explains the structure. Hyundai owns 86%, he holds 6.5%, and the employees share the remaining 7.5%. He says Silicon Valley talent is expensive, so they offer stock options instead of paying enormous salaries. Jin-Hoo knows buying Hyundai's stake in Kairos will cost a fortune, but he is determined to do it. Still, he has no intention of paying their full price. After all, Kairos is the side under pressure, not OTK. Instead, Jin-Hoo announces that OTK will invest directly in Kairos. He also promises that unlike Hyundai, OTK will not interfere with their management or the direction of their projects. He believes that even without quick results, Kairos has the potential to create something truly remarkable. With those conditions, Daryl Sagan accepts. He will leave Hyundai and join OTK. Jin-Hoo is eager for their rivals to realize what a huge mistake they have made. They have just let go of a company that will be worth billions within a few years. Taekyu celebrates as well, even though he had opposed the idea at first. In the end, he trusts that his friend has made the right decision. After his most recent ride, Jin-Hoo decides it is time to upgrade. He never wants to ride in his friend's car again, so they head to a BMW center where Jin-Hoo has booked several test drives. Taekyu comments that they are the only ones who know cars will be driven by AI in the future. While the women head off to get coffee, Jin-Hoo and Taekyu begin looking around. Their arrival draws the attention of two salesmen. One of them instantly dismisses them as poor students who are only there to look. The other, a rookie, decides he might as well use the chance to practice customer service. He walks over and offers them a test drive. He recommends a popular new convertible, the 4 Coupe. Jin-Hoo is interested in a different model. The salesman praises his choice. He notes that it is BMW's best-selling model. He explains the features and then reveals the price, 140 million won. Jin-Hoo needs a moment to process it. Taekyu points out that the price is in won, not dollars. Even so, Jin-Hoo admits he does not have that much cash in his account and asks to borrow it. Taekyu hands him his credit card without hesitation, saying Jin-Hoo can repay him later through future dividends. Caught up in the moment, Taekyu decides he should buy a car for himself too. He chooses the most expensive luxury sports car in the showroom. The salesman is merely going through the usual routine. He expects them to back away once they hear the cost, so he is genuinely surprised when Jin-Hoo says they will take both cars and pay for them in full right away. That day, rookie salesman Kim Do-yeon learns an important lesson. Every customer could be a VIP. He goes to prepare the paperwork, while his senior colleague is left stewing over the huge commission he missed. Jin-Hoo asks Taekyu whether he is satisfied with his new car. Taekyu says he is, though he notes that the car is not really made for decals. Jin-Hoo quickly agrees, saying it looks much better in its original form. Taekyu then reminds Jin-Hoo that this is already his second loan, mentioning the $100,000 from that date. Naturally, Ellie is standing close enough to hear everything. She comments that the date must have mattered a lot if Jin-Hoo needed to borrow money for it. Taekyu adds that Jin-Hoo even took the girl home afterward. Noticing the atmosphere change, Hyunju quickly shifts the topic by asking whether they have chosen their cars. Brother proudly shows off his new purchase, and Jin-Hoo reveals his own. Ellie dryly remarks that at least now he will not feel embarrassed when going out. Jin-Hoo quietly asks her not to tell Taekyu about what happened with the previous car. He knows it is childish, but he does not want to hurt his friend's feelings. Ellie seems to notice that Jin-Hoo is a better friend than he usually lets people see. Since there is still time before her flight, she invites everyone on a farewell trip to an amusement park. Hyunju does not enjoy it much, since thrill rides are really her thing. At the end of the day, Ellie and Hyunju leave for their trip. Jin-Hoo tells his friend that the difficult part is finished. All their investment moves have been made. Now they only need to wait, see which startup brings a major return, and enjoy a short break. Sometime later, they reach the K subsidiary headquarters. Park Sang-yeop is there to congratulate them on successfully closing the deal. Jin-Hoo can tell the man is completely worn out. Sang-yeop insists he is fine, saying he was simply holding things together while they were gone. IQ suggests they go out for dinner. In the end, they just order food and eat at the office. It turns out Sang-yeop still has not found an apartment and has been living there since he started working. Jin-Hoo decides this cannot go on. They need to hire more people, so Sang-yeop is not carrying everything by himself. Sang Yep says he knows a few possible candidates. There is one person he has in mind, Jihong. Jin-Hoo remembers the name from college and has heard the guy is unemployed, but he does not want to hire personal acquaintances right now. Changing the topic, Sang Yap asks about their next investment targets. He wants to understand what standards Jin-Hoo uses. His choices do not seem to follow any obvious pattern, almost as if someone else is guiding him. Jin-Hoo simply says he chooses companies with growth potential, and his only real rule is all or nothing. That answer does not satisfy Park Sang-Yap. He tells Jin-Hoo that he is working on a level beyond any genius he has ever known. This is not something that can be explained by sharp instincts alone. In any case, Sang-Yap reports that after setting up the company headquarters, they still have $6 billion left from the original $70 billion, and he wants to invest it. Jin-Hoo agrees and asks if Sang-Yap has found anything promising. As it happens, he already has a list of possible investment targets prepared. A few days later, the negotiations with Hyundai come to an end. BOTK acquires Caros for $80 million. The price is far lower than expected. On top of that, the cars Jin-Hoo purchased have finally arrived at their address. He decides it is time to take his new car out for a drive. His first destination is his mother's place. She is busy preparing to move into her new home. Jin-Hoo shows her the new car, and he tells her he bought it for her. Shocked, she asks how much something like that could possibly cost. The protagonist says the only thing that matters is whether she likes it. Q adds that he has prepared a present for her as well. When they arrive at the new house, he reveals that he has already filled the entire place with brand new furnishings and equipment. Their mother feels touched by all the gifts, but says she is not sure she deserves so much. Jin-Hoo tells her not to think that way and to simply enjoy her new life. That is his plan as well. He wants to travel the world, and his mother asks if he and Tae-Kyu are going to study abroad together. Tae-Kyu, meanwhile, feels certain this has absolutely nothing to do with him. A year passes, and then it turns out the two of them really did go on a trip around the world. Tae-Kyu was willingly dragged along, which is why he is nearly crying with joy to finally be home. Just then, Yuri calls Jin-Hoo to remind him about something. Today is the final day to re-enroll at the university, so Jin-Hoo agrees to meet her and talk it through. Tae-Kyu sees him leaving and asks where he is going when they have only just returned. Jin-Hoo says he is going to the university. He plans to resume his studies and finally graduate. When he meets Shin Yuri, she explains that she also took a year off. That is why she was so determined for him to return at the same time she did. She invites him to lunch, saying there is something else she wants to talk about. Jin-Hoo walks toward a car, but explains that it is not his. It belongs to his friend. Yuri is quite impressed that a friend would casually lend him a car like that. Jin-Hoo simply says his friend prefers staying at home, so the car does not get driven very often anyway. At the restaurant, Jin-Hoo notices how expensive the menu is. He asks if she is truly sure about paying for the meal. She insists, saying she owes him for always answering her calls over the past year. Thanks to that, she did not feel quite so lonely. Besides, she says she made a huge profit from Samsung stock because of his advice. Once that is settled, she asks what Jin-Hoo plans to do now that he is back. He admits that he is actually planning another trip soon. This time he is going to Hong Kong to meet a friend. Shin Yuri mentions that she has always wanted to visit Hong Kong. Maybe she can go there herself during the next break. Back at home, Tae-Kyu finds Jin-Hoo facing a serious dilemma. Follow-up to his favorite game from the same studio has just been cancelled because it could not secure funding. He loves that game so much that he once wrapped his old car with an image of its main character. Unable to watch the new project disappear, he pleads with Jin-Hoo to invest in the game company. He presents it as a righteous mission for gamers everywhere, even though the cost is $100 billion. But Tae-Kyu insists the price does not matter when someone is a true fan. Jin-Hoo's first reaction is he would normally reject an investment like this immediately. Then he thinks about everything Tae-Kyu has done for him and his mother. He decides he owes his friend at least one thing that would make him happy, so he agrees to arrange a meeting and discuss it. As soon as that is settled, Shin-Yu contacts Jin-Hoo again. This time she is asking him for help. She says a guy from their department has been following her around. She has no idea how to deal with it, so she asks whether he will return to campus soon, and whether he might be able to help her handle the situation. The next day, after being away for 3 years, Jin-Hoo finally goes back to the university. He makes sure to visit his old professor first. They chat for a while before Jin-Hoo says he brought a gift. The professor refuses right away, explaining that under anti-corruption rules, he cannot even accept a glass of water. Jin-Hoo asks if that law also applies to an autograph from Chase Southwell. He knows very well that his professor is a huge fan. He explains that his friend's sister works at Golden Gate and managed to get it for him. Chase Southwell is one of Golden Gate's 5 directors. He is currently in charge of their Asian division, and only a week earlier, Jin-Hoo and the entire OTK team had gone to Hong Kong at his personal invitation. Chase said he had been looking forward to meeting them in person. After praising them, he mentioned that Golden Gate had earned excellent profits from working with OTK and hoped their success would continue. He also hinted that good news might reach them before the end of the year. Back in the present, Jin-Hoo is seated in class. He is discussing the lesson with a classmate. Their conversation is interrupted when several girls ask who the new guy is. His classmate Jae-young introduces Jin-Hoo, explaining that he is not a freshman, but a student returning from a leave of absence. The girls are instantly drawn to his appearance. Jae-young sends them away, saying they were in the middle of something important. Jin-Hoo then remembers he is supposed to meet Shin Yu-ri and invites his classmates to come with him. Tries calling Yu-ri, but she does not answer. His friend uses the moment to ask whether he still keeps in touch with Ellie, the lawyer. Jin-Hoo explains that she went back to Hong Kong and they have not seen each other for some time. Just then, Jin-Hoo sees Shin Yu-ri ahead, trapped in an uncomfortable situation with some guy. Myung-ho identifies him as Myung-ho. He is the heir to a fast food chain, and Gyeongul warns that Myung-ho has an awful reputation with women on campus. He says it is better to avoid him, so naturally Jin-Hoo does the complete opposite. He walks straight over and leads Yu-ri away from the situation. Myung-ho immediately demands to know who Jin-Hoo thinks he is. Jin-Hoo introduces himself as Yu-ri's senior and tells him to stop bothering his friend. Myung-ho insists he was only gathering freshmen for a meal and had no intention of causing trouble. Yu-ri makes it clear she is not interested and tells him to stop being so pushy. Jin-Hoo realizes this must be the guy she mentioned earlier and tells Myung-ho that she already has plans with him. Myung-ho scoffs, saying everyone is always available for him, and this freshman should understand that. Jin-Hoo simply ignores him and leaves with Yu-ri. The spoiled young man is left talking to himself. Unsurprisingly, he does not take it well. Jin-Hoo then properly invites Yu-ri to lunch and asks if she minds his classmates joining them. She is delighted by the invitation and agrees without hesitation, but their pleasant mood does not last for long. Myung-ho's group comes rushing back toward them. They try to force Yu-ri to come with them. Jin-Hoo steps in at once, making sure the creep cannot touch his friend. He catches the spoiled kid by the arm and pulls him away. The kid clearly does not appreciate being stopped. Before things can get worse, a senior named Juan appears and demands to know what Jin-Hoo is doing. He scolds him, saying that being older does not give him the right to lay hands on a younger student. Jin-Hoo argues that he was not trying to attack anyone. Juan points out that he was clearly holding the other guy back by force. The spoiled Myung-ho acts calm and says the situation is already settled. Yet even as he tries to appear composed, he is burning with anger inside. The senior leaves with Myung-ho, but not before warning Jin-Hoo that he will be watching him closely. After they leave, Yu-ri explains that Myung-ho is a well-known nuisance. He keeps bothering her, even calling late at night, and everyone in the department is tired of him. Jin-Hoo has a feeling this guy is going to keep causing trouble. After that, they go for lunch just as they had planned. However, the restaurant they chose is packed with people. In the end, they settle for the only table still open. Unfortunately, Siona is already sitting there, so everyone tries to chat politely while the awkwardness hangs heavily in the air. Jin-Hoo's friends decide this is still better than dealing with those other irritating students. Right on the topic of irritation, the three most troublesome students in the department appear at the perfect moment. Myung-ho notices Yu-ri and acts as if running into her again is a pleasant surprise. He wastes no time trying to provoke Jin-Hoo. He brings up the rumor that Jin-Hoo's family has gone bankrupt. Jin-Hoo stays completely calm, denying him the reaction he clearly wants. So Myung-ho shifts his attention back to Yu-ri, despite her already making it obvious she has no interest. He claims women who play hard to get are the most appealing. Siona finally cuts in, saying most women simply dislike men who cannot understand rejection. Myung-ho pays her no attention and offers 1 million won to anyone willing to leave so he can speak with Yu-ri alone. Jin-Hoo responds by offering twice that amount if Myung-ho agrees to go eat somewhere else. Myung-ho sneers, calling that pocket money for his family and asking if Jin-Hoo truly thinks such a small amount can move him. Jin-Hoo casually says he was only joking. After all, no one would waste 2 million won on someone that annoying. Angered, Myung-ho accuses Jin-Hoo of showing off in front of the girls and challenges him to a game. The rules are straightforward. They have 2 hours to place as much cash as possible on the table, and whoever has less must leave college permanently. Jin-Hoo accepts the challenge, leaving his friends alarmed since none of them believed he had money to spare. Before long, Kyeon takes everyone's phones so news of the unlawful wager will not spread. Myung-ho begins by reminding them of the 2-hour limit, and that only cash counts. No checks and no property documents are allowed. He starts by putting 5 million won on the table. Jin-Hoo matches the amount, then adds the extra $150,000 he had with him. Myung-ho is caught off guard since he had fully believed the bankruptcy rumor. Fine then. He drops a briefcase onto the table, packed with 100 million won. Everyone is speechless. For most of them, it is the first time seeing that much cash gathered in one spot. Yu-ri remains completely composed though. She already knows Jin-Hoo is going to come out ahead. Myung-ho tells him there is still time to withdraw. If Jin-Hoo admits he lost now, they can pretend the whole thing never happened. But Jin-Hoo only reminds him that the game runs for 2 hours. He is merely waiting for his funds to arrive. Seeing this unfold, Siona wonders how he can act so unbelievably foolish. Then she notices a familiar person and suddenly goes still. Taekyu walks in carrying 2 huge bags filled with cash. He asks whether the blonde kid is the one bothering his friend, Jin-Hoo confirms it, and Taekyu pours an almost impossible amount of money across the table. Jin-Hoo looks at Myung-ho and asks whether he still wants to continue. Myung-ho demands to know how Jin-Hoo can casually carry around $500 million in cash. Yu-ri meanwhile says this is exactly what she expected from her friend. Refusing to be outdone, Cha Myung-ho makes a call and orders 1 billion won in cash to be delivered. Taekyu, however, has no patience to wait an hour while this spoiled kid complains. Instead, he simply gives Myung-ho a card, leaving him confused. Jin-Hoo explains that if Myung-ho wants to bend the rules, he can treat the card like a virtual check. Myung-ho notes he could claim any absurd amount. Jin-Hoo replies that the heir to a major franchise would never lie about his own assets. Besides, he already knows the family business is worth a great deal. At that, Myung-ho understands that Jin-Hoo is ready to match whatever number he says. He looks at the single bag Jin-Hoo opened and starts wondering how much more money is still hidden away. Choosing to gamble, Myung-ho announces that the most he can gather in time is $2.5 billion. Jin-Hoo accepts. From that moment on, the card carries that value. Myung-ho is stunned because Jin-Hoo is trusting his word, which means he must have had enough money to cover the bet from the start. Taekyu lets out a knowing smirk. He says the bags of cash were not their only move. A flashback reveals Siona scolding Jin-Hoo before the game began, insisting there was no way he could win. Jin-Hoo ignores her concerns and simply asks Yu-ri to lend him all the cash she has with her. Yuri gladly agrees and empties her wallet for him. Siona hesitates, but even knowing who his opponent is, she cannot ignore Jin-Hoo's confidence. Even so, she is certain the match will end with his loss, and she hates seeing him risk his education over such a foolish game. Back in the present, Siona and the others can only stare in disbelief as Taekyu calls a Golden Gate representative, Yu Seongmu, who arrives with several large briefcases. Jin-Hoo states that the cases contain the equivalent of more than 6 billion won, and now Cha Myung-ho is the one starting to panic. Raising $1 billion was already pushing things far beyond reason. There is no way he can pay that much. He cannot understand how a kid from a ruined family has ties to Golden Gate. Burning with anger, Myung-ho demands to know what he has done to deserve being embarrassed like this. Taekyu says that, for one thing, his family's chicken tastes awful, which may explain why he is not wealthier. Jin-Hoo simply asks whether Myung-ho knows how to fill out the university withdrawal form. The pampered rich kid finally understands the situation. He has no choice except to accept his loss. Jin-Hoo tells the Golden Gate employee to take the money, but before the man can do it, he scoops up some cash for himself and declares that tonight's meal is on him. Just as he is about to leave, Siona calls him to a stop. She asks whether this is connected to the Golden Gate lawyer she met earlier. Jin-Hoo only replies that he has some influential friends. Deep down, he feels he owes her no explanation, so he walks away and leaves her guessing. Later on, he meets Park Sang-yup, who says he wishes he had witnessed the whole scene. Jin-Hoo waves it aside and asks him for the latest news on K-Company. Sang-yup says his private investments have brought in huge returns, while K-Company's rapid growth has made it a major name in Korea. He also brought in Jung Ji-hong, who has been performing impressively. Still, Sang-yup realizes this is not just a casual visit, so he asks Jin-Hoo what he really came for. Jin-Hoo tells him not to touch the startup investments. However, he wants all long-term investments moved into short-term positions. He warns that a major event is about to unfold. Once he gives the signal, Sang-yup must be prepared to turn everything into cash at once. 15 days later, the new semester begins. After that little confrontation, Jin-Hoo notices that only Yu-ri still treats him normally. The biggest change, however, comes from Lee Hai-mi. She once looked down on him completely. Now, she is almost openly chasing after him. Jin-Hoo has no interest at all. His attention is fixed on his new car. Last, he no longer needs to borrow rides from his friends. At that moment, Yu-ri comes over and asks if this is the rental car he mentioned. Jin-Hoo already has an excuse prepared and says he works for Ji-hong, a name everyone on campus recognizes. The car and the money all belong to his boss. It is an easy lie to hide his true fortune. Yu-ri thinks the explanation sounds a bit odd, but she chooses to believe him. Jin-Hoo offers to take her out for a drive in the new car. While they are on the road, Yu-ri receives a call from her father. He is leaving for the UK because an unexpected issue has come up with the Brexit vote date. The word Brexit immediately sparks another vision from Jin-Hoo's eagle. For a moment, he almost loses control of the vehicle. He swerves sharply to avoid a truck. Yuri is badly startled. Jin-Hoo apologizes and says he was distracted for a second. After they pull over, he asks what what connection her father has to Brexit. She explains that her father works in the finance industry. He used to work overseas, but he has since returned to Korea. After hearing that, Jin-Hoo says he has an urgent matter of his own to handle. Yuri is not even annoyed anymore. She has started getting used to him rushing off whenever something sudden comes up. Jin-Hoo's vision was unmistakable. The Brexit vote will pass, so he immediately calls his friend and tells him to gather every bit of information on it as quickly as possible. Back at their place, Taekyu says their investment in the video game company is doing well, and the fans are pleased. Jin-Hoo nods but says his attention has shifted to something else now. He explains that the United Kingdom is about to leave the European Union, and he intends to make money from it. Taekyu asks what reasoning supports that move. Jin-Hoo gives him a brief explanation. The United Kingdom has never felt completely united with Europe. It also wants to break away from certain agreements to gain more financial and legal independence. So what will happen if the vote succeeds? Jin-Hoo explains that the euro and the pound will essentially move as separate currencies. The impact will send a shock through the entire global market. His friend asks how they are supposed to invest when everything is falling apart. Jin-Hoo reminds him that they have done this before. This time, however, they are not aiming at one company, but at the global financial market, and there is one key difference. With L6, they did not know the exact shutdown date. This time, Jin-Hoo's the vote is scheduled for June 23rd. They have an ideal opening now, and they are much better prepared than before. Sometime later, Jin-Hoo meets his team at the airport. He thanks the girls for coming despite the sudden notice. After that, he brings everyone, including Park Sang-yup, to a restaurant for a meeting. He says the atmosphere in the United Kingdom is growing increasingly tense. The public is sharply split over the approaching Brexit referendum. She believes the Leave campaign will lose because the polls look unfavorable. Oh Hyun-ju agrees, saying an EU exit would cause serious instability. It would also leave Britain facing major financial and diplomatic dangers. He even points out that Golden Gate, along with several other corporations, is already preparing to relocate its financial operations to Germany or France if the vote succeeds. Since the issue is so complicated and the stakes are so high, she asks Jin-Hoo why it has caught his attention. He reveals his plan. He wants to pledge the shares of his two startups as collateral, secure a huge loan, and wager everything on Brexit passing. Hyun-ju instantly says the idea is absurd. It is not merely dangerous, since every available figure suggests the vote will fail. Jin-Hoo understands that, but he cannot admit that his vision has already shown him the final outcome. He needs to persuade his team to follow his decision without revealing anything about his abilities. Everyone in the group opposes the idea. They place their trust in the specialists, who all expect Britain to choose remaining. Jin-Hoo counters that financial authorities are not always correct. He introduces the idea of silent voters. These are people who hide their true opinions until the moment they actually cast their vote. He adds that beyond economic concerns, there is also a cultural issue tied to Germany. Many people in Britain feel uneasy about Germany's leading position within the EU. Jin-Hoo explains that many feel placed beneath an old rival, and he has a way to turn that feeling into an advantage, but he needs full trust from the team. Girls still believe the move is extremely dangerous, and Ellie asks why Jin-Hoo is ready to risk so much on a single investment. Her question brings back a memory of a conversation the protagonist once shared with an old friend. Back then, they promised to push forward until the very end. For Jin-Hoo, this is not simply about profit, but about using his powers completely whatever happens. He tells them this chance is too valuable to ignore, and he has no intention of backing away. Sang-yup points out the most obvious problem. If the plan fails, both of Jin-Hoo's companies will collapse. Jin-Hoo answers calmly. If everything comes crashing down, they can simply begin again from nothing, just as Sang-yup once did. Hearing this, Sang-yup understands that Jin-Hoo has a point. He has grown too settled in his present life and forgotten the person he used to be. He decides to join. At that point, Hyun-ju realizes there is no way to change Jin-Hoo's mind. So she and the others finally agree to stand behind him. The protagonist knows they probably believe he has completely lost his senses. Still, he is certain their view will change once his vision comes true. With his team's backing secured, he tells them they must now put the plan into motion and turn it into an enormous profit. Not long after, OTK borrows $10 billion and puts everything on Brexit being approved. The decision quickly shakes the London currency market as British analysts scramble to understand what is going on. More importantly, they want to know why an unknown company has suddenly poured so much money into UK-related assets. The attention does not stop in London. OTK's actions are also creating a stir on the Tokyo Stock Exchange. Even Japanese analysts cannot figure out what a startup investment company hopes to accomplish with such a move. Meanwhile, the focus returns to the protagonist. He tells Taekyu this is not a mere gamble, but a calculated investment. Taekyu understands the basics. They are betting the pound will drop while the yen rises. Jin-Hoo says it is only natural that the rest of the world is taking the opposite position. When someone pours in such an enormous amount of money, the government and central bank of that country will always push back in the other direction. He compares the situation to 1992. That was when fund manager George Soros made a similar play and dealt the United Kingdom a historic financial blow. Back then, the Bank of England suffered a huge loss and nearly abandoned its currency defense. Soros had borrowed pounds before the crash, repaid them after devaluation, and earned $1 billion from the gap. Naturally, Soros was not acting alone. He and his team also turned their attention to Indonesia and Thailand. Their actions helped spark an Asian financial crisis that indirectly affected several nations. Taekyu asks whether Soros was also responsible for the IMF crisis that struck South Korea. Jin-Hoo says the situation was more complicated, but admits OTK is about to attempt something similar and must be ready for backlash. Taekyu is willing to support his friend, but he still asks whether earning $100 billion at another country's expense is truly right. The protagonist says a strong government has enough resources to recover. Britain and its allies will regain their footing before long. His judgment proves correct. Soon, other experts realize OTK is wagering on Brexit being approved. Some of them quickly be copying the same move. At the London Exchange, one official notices that as currency funds rush to purchase pounds, the exchange rate has begun moving upward. His superior observes that OTK is still pressing ahead with its speculative strategy. Even while the market steadies, he wonders whether they truly intend to challenge the entire world. Back with Jin-Hoo, Taekyu notes that they are going against the market and asks if this differs from Soros. Jin-Hoo says it is actually the reverse, because Britain's fate will ultimately be decided by its own voters. Later on, the protagonist receives a call while taking a walk. It is Chase Southwell, calling to talk about OTK's recent currency market activity. He admits Jin-Hoo is a brilliant investor, but warns that this time no one will support him. As a friend, he urges Jin-Hoo to withdraw while he still has the chance. The protagonist is simply pleased that the legendary Chase Southwell sees him as a friend. Still, he says he will finish this negotiation, and once the results come out, Chase will understand why. Until then, he asks his new friend not to interfere. Chase Southwell accepts Jin-Hoo's choice and sincerely wishes him success. After that, he contacts the Golden Gate's UK branch with one clear order. He believes the outcome may be unexpected, so they should simply let things play out. At the same time, over at K Company, Jung Gi-hong is beginning to lose his nerve. He tells Sang Yeop that their current wager feels far too dangerous. Sang Yeop admits he thought the same at first, yet he was the one who raised trillions of won under K Company's name, and he placed all of it into derivatives. It was something he had never once pictured himself doing. Now, the only choice left is to believe in the strategy. At last, the day of the vote arrives. IQ is fixed on the news at home, while Jin-Hoo quietly prepares for class. His friend is stunned that he would go to school on such a crucial day for his company. Jin-Hoo says watching the news will not change anything. More than that, he does not need to watch, because he already knows how it will end. IQ is nowhere near that composed. Even with Jin-Hoo's prediction, his nerves are completely frayed. Since he has staked everything he owns, he makes Jin-Hoo swear they will remain friends even if everything falls apart. Jin-Hoo agrees, but tells him to stop being so dramatic. Things will not reach that point. With that settled, Jin-Hoo leaves for campus and happens to meet Yuri. She says she stayed awake all night, too worried about the Brexit vote to sleep, and nearly skipped class altogether. Soon after, they come across Siona and her boyfriend Jun Hyung. Siona remarks that Yu-Rai seems to spend a lot of time with Jin-Hoo these days, then asks whether they are close. Yu-Rai simply replies that Jin-Hoo looks after her well. Meanwhile, Jun Hyung mentions a rumor that Jin-Hoo is close to K Company's CEO. He asks whether Jin-Hoo could arrange a meeting for him. Jin-Hoo says he will bring it up with his friend. Later on, Jin-Hoo comes across classmates holding a casual betting pool on the Brexit result. They ask whether he wants to join. Jin-Hoo places his bet on the UK leaving the Union. His classmate is taken aback, since nearly everyone else has chosen the opposite side. Jun Hyun comes over and confidently bets that the UK will remain. Not wanting to be left out, Yu-Rai follows Jin-Hoo's choice. When Siona asks if she is certain, Yu-Rai says yes, because Jin-Hoo has a talent for predicting things correctly. As the real vote count begins, the Remain side starts moving ahead. Back at the office, Sang Yeop is nearly losing control while his team grows increasingly alarmed, so he steps outside to make a phone call. During class, Yu-Rai notices that Jin-Hoo's phone keeps vibrating non-stop. Jin-Hoo checks and sees the calls are from Han-ju, so he excuses himself to answer. For a brief moment, anxiety begins to creep in. If Hyun-jo is calling him, then the situation must be serious. He wonders whether this could be the first time his prediction has been wrong. Then the vision returns to him. It appears as vivid and certain as ever. It confirms that Brexit will indeed pass. On the call, Hyun-jo is in a panic. She says there is still time to withdraw and reduce their losses. All he has to do is give the order. But Jin-Hoo is now absolutely sure. He tells her to sell the remaining $3 billion billion with 50 times leverage against the British pound. Hyunju reacts badly to this. To her it sounds as if Jinhoo has completely lost his reason. Jinhoo admits he would probably think the same in her position. Still, he insists Brexit will happen, though there is no time to explain. He only asks her to believe him and carry out the plan. Once the call ends, Hyunju decides she needs a drink. When Ellie asks whether this is because of Jinhoo, Hyunju says she has no choice but to obey the order. She cannot do it while thinking clearly. Even if she disagrees, she is still following the CEO's command. Ellie reviews the operations and realizes Jinhoo intends to push everything to the very end. She concludes that she will need a drink as well. After that, Park Sang-yup finally reaches Jinhoo by phone. He tries to persuade him to reconsider before the voting ends, but Jinhoo says it is already too late. He has already ordered Hyunju to sell everything they had left. There is no way to turn back now. That throws Sang-yup into complete panic. Jinhoo tries to steady him, saying he knows exactly what he is doing. But for the plan to succeed, he needs his team to trust him. Meanwhile, many people in England are already celebrating ahead of time. They are certain that Europe will stay united. The head of the London Exchange asks whether OTK is still maintaining its position. His employee says they are, but assumes they will give up sooner or later. The boss concludes that someone at OTK must simply be stubborn, and he feels sorry for the company's staff. After ending the call, Jinhoo feels a brief wave of uncertainty. Although he has witnessed the same future twice, the weight of it still feels overwhelming. Just then, Siona finds him outside after class and asks what he is doing. Jinhoo says he is not sure, only trying to clear his head. Hoping to lift his mood, Siona tells him that he won their class wager. The votes have been counted and Brexit has officially passed. Jinhoo is left speechless. His vision has come true once more, and the news shakes not only him but the entire world, since nearly everyone had expected the opposite result. At the London Exchange, they watch pound sell-off surge at an incredible speed. Meanwhile, the currency's value begins dropping sharply. Team leader William realizes OTK never backed down. To him, it seems England now has a new George Soros figure to resent. The unexpected result sends the world into chaos as reports of the turmoil spread everywhere. Jung Gi-hong understands that joining this company was the right choice, feeling deeply in debt to the man who dared to take such a huge risk. Somewhere else, Ellie finds her friend to celebrate Jinhoo's victory and asks whether Hyunju has contacted him yet. Hyunju says she is too drained after everything that happened and asks Ellie to call him instead. Far away, Chase Southwell studies OTK company's numbers and admits he badly underestimated Jinhoo. With a record this remarkable, Jinhoo's identity will not remain hidden from the public for much longer, and Chase knows regret is already useless. Still, he decides it is better to stand beside Jinhoo than oppose him. He picks up the phone and gives an order. The Golden Gate branch in Korea must be set up as quickly as possible. Through the Brexit vote, K Company gains nearly $6 trillion in total assets. OTK Company, meanwhile, soars to 45 trillion won. Taekyu is celebrating their win when realization suddenly hits him. Jinhoo has become the richest person in Korea. Jinhoo had not even considered that possibility. That title had always belonged to Samsung's CEO, but now he sees that his friend is right. While every news outlet is consumed by Brexit, the media is also focused on the unknown company that earned trillions from the vote. Taekyu notes this has happened before, but Jinhoo says this time is far worse, since many angry Brits have practically turned against OTK Company. Still, as long as they stay out of the UK, they should probably be safe. At that moment, Park Sang-yup calls Jinhoo. He says he could not even enter his own building today because reporters have completely surrounded it. He needs to know what their next move is. As Jinhoo watches the news, he notices the media has already latched onto a fresh story. Golden Gate is preparing to open a branch in South Korea. Jinhoo is surprised by the decision, but then recalls his last talk with Chase Southwell and realizes the move is meant as a message to him. Taekyu begins worrying about his sister, since Korean operations were previously handled by the Asian division. Jinhoo tells him not to be concerned, guessing that she and Ellie will simply be transferred to the new Korean branch. His guess proves correct. Hyunjo receives word that she is being sent back to her homeland. Chase Southwell tells her she will lead the new branch with complete authority. She has now become the director of Golden Gate, South Korea. Sometime later, Jinhoo goes to the K Company building to check on Sang-yup. Reporters immediately crowd around him from every side. Jinhoo had always known this moment would eventually arrive. He simply never expected it to happen today. Yet the reporters are not there to ask about his success. They know he is close to Sang-yup and hope to use him as a way to reach the CEO. Jinhoo only says he has class and cannot stay. Meanwhile, at Taekyu's place, Sang-yup says his phone has been ringing non-stop. He says he may need to change his number. Reporters are watching his entire neighborhood, and if this continues, he might have to move. Taekyu tells him to relax and just order something to eat. After Sang-yup calms down a little, he asks Jin-Hoo why he made the bet at all, admitting that even if he knew the future, he would never dare to act so boldly. Jin-Hoo simply says he took a risk and asks whether Sang-yup has ever wanted to bet on an unstable market. Sang-yup says he has been studying cryptocurrency. It is decentralized and highly unpredictable, yet investors from around the world are pouring money into it. Taekyu knows a bit about the market and says many people do not buy crypto purely as an investment. Instead, they use it to keep funds beyond government control. In his view, it should be treated like a digital asset, closer to gold than a stock for trading. Those words trigger another vision in Jin-Hoo, and his spirit eagle reveals their next opportunity. They should invest in Ethereum mining. He asks Taekyu how much he knows about it. Taekyu explains that Ethereum is a newer cryptocurrency that can record automatic contracts, not only transactions. Still, he is doubtful because they already run a crypto exchange and Ethereum is worth far than Bitcoin. Jin-Hoo says they need to grow bigger and put serious money into the new currency, while separately buying Bitcoin. He even suggests mining it themselves. Taekyu points out that mining would demand massive facilities, and the electricity costs would be enormous. Jin-Hoo already has a solution. They can look for a cold country where electricity is cheap. Sang-yup can hardly believe it. They have only just escaped disaster from one huge gamble, and Jin-Hoo already wants to leap into another. Jin-Hoo reassures him that he has a plan, though he will explain the details later. Later, Jin-Hoo sits in his university class as the professor reminds everyone to study hard for finals, explaining that strong grades matter for graduation, and because Golden Gate is entering Korea to recruit top students. The professor thinks it is unusual that Golden Gate decided to open its branch in Gangnam. That is not the usual choice for a corporation of that size. Jin-Hoo also finds the decision rather strange. Major companies normally place their headquarters in the heart of Seoul. He thinks back to what his friend from Golden Gate once told him. Then he starts wondering whether they are doing all of this because of him. At that moment, Yuri loudly asks what he is thinking about, so he quickly says it is nothing serious. The professor tells both of them to stop chatting during the lecture. Jin-Hoo feels embarrassed, while Yuri is simply delighted to be seated beside him. Still, Jin cannot stop thinking that the Golden Gate staff are arriving in Korea today. He knows he should be there to welcome them. Later that day, he goes to the airport with Taekyu. They are shocked to see the arrivals area crowded with reporters. It looks like the kind of welcome meant for a top celebrity. Then Taekyu notices who is walking out. It is his sister, and his surprise grows when a reporter asks Hyunju how it feels to become Golden Gate's first Korean branch leader. Both Jin-Hoo and Taekyu are completely caught off guard by the announcement. Ellie pulls Jin-Hoo aside, saying she missed him, but he needs to keep a low profile. With so many reporters nearby, she understands he does not want his identity exposed. Hyunjo adds that her promotion was meant to stay confidential. She does not know how it leaked, but this is not the place to discuss it. Later, they return to their place. Taekyu teases his sister for hiding her promotion, and she explains she wanted to tell them herself, but the media ruined the surprise. Jin-Hoo congratulates her, though she gives him the credit, saying the companies he founded are what convinced Golden Gate to launch in South Korea. It turns out Ellie has also joined the new Korean branch, working in legal because her superiors supposedly wanted her talent involved from the start. Hyunjo gives her a pointed look and asks whether that was truly the only reason she insisted on coming. Embarrassed, Ellie says she only wanted the chance to work alongside her friend. Jin-Hoo notices the awkward mood and eases it by saying it is wonderful to have the whole team together again. Hyunjo admits she is exhausted since she spent the flight reviewing important documents instead of sleeping. Her brother reminds her not to push herself too hard. She simply replies that she is a workaholic and prefers it that way. Shifting the topic, she asks whether they have chosen a proper building for their office. Jin-Hoo tells her they still have not found one. As luck would have it, Hyunju knows the building beside Golden Gate's branch is being sold for 500 billion KRW. Taekyu flinches at the price and wonders why Golden Gate would sell such a property. His sister explains that they need funds for the sudden Korean branch launch, and they would not sell to just anyone. This is a favor for Jin-Hoo, one of their key clients. Jin-Hoo agrees to buy it on the spot and tells Hyunju to prepare the paperwork under K Company's name. Of course, he already knows the building will really become OTK's headquarters, since K Company has an office and being beside Golden Gate is useful. Once that is settled, Hyunju turns serious. K Company is now drawing attention after Brexit, and her promotion has made her publicly visible. She asks Jin-Hoo how long he intends to keep hiding behind the scenes. He says that in Korea, politics, big business, and the media are tied together like one massive cartel. If people learn the truth about him, he fears they will crush him. His answer is simple: if he cannot beat them, he will join them. Ellie asks if he truly plans to challenge South Korea's largest conglomerates. Jin-Hoo says yes, explaining he endured their power for too long and now wants revenge. Hyun-Ju warns that the auto industry is the country's backbone, and the government will not ignore an attack on it. But Jin-Hoo has made up his mind, saying politics is only another kind of business. Tae-Kyu and Ellie both promise to stand with him, prepared to stir up the country's biggest hornet's nest. With his team supporting him, Jin-Hoo reveals their next step. They are going to the US to visit Karo's headquarters. Sometime later, Jin-Hoo is walking across campus when he happens to meet Yong-gi-hong. Hong is excited and starts boasting about the company where he works. It was tiny when he first joined, but now his boss has purchased a building in Gangnam. He recalls Park Sang-yeop saying they would buy a place on Tehran Row, and he never believed it. A year and a half later, it has actually happened. He adds that they bought the Golden Gate building cheaply and even paid in cash. He tells Jin-Hoo to graduate quickly so he can work for such a profitable company. Several math students overhear them and gather around, wanting to hear more stories about the famous Sang-yeop. Ji-hong takes out a corporate card and offers to treat everyone to drinks. Jin-Hoo can only think that the money being spent is his, while his colleague has no idea who his real employer is. At that moment, Siona comes over. She remembers seeing him at a party after he finished military service. She says he seems completely different now and asks what happened to him. Jin-Hoo shuts her down, telling her it is none of her concern. Whatever he went through, he certainly has no obligation to explain it to her. From their time dating, Jin-Hoo knows Siona is far too sharp. If he says too much, she may uncover everything, so he tries to avoid the topic. Just then, Yuri approaches and asks him to go out with her. She wants to celebrate the end of their exams. Siona understands the message and steps back, though she promises they will continue their conversation another time. Yuri presents her interruption as saving him from trouble, and now she expects to be compensated for that help. Jin-Hoo remarks that his life has suddenly become filled with sharp-tongued women. He says he has no time, claiming he is about to leave on a trip with a friend. At the same time, another student named Hwang Ju-sang is also discussing Jin-Hoo. He and his friend are trying to understand how Jin-Hoo went from having nothing to living so extravagantly in such a short span. Research also covers the Oh brothers and Sang-yeop, but his friend Jun Hyung feels they have reached a dead end. So he reminds Ju-sang that his father is the Prime Minister of Korea. With that kind of connection, surely he could uncover something real about Jin-Hoo. As for Jin-Hoo, he is currently flying first class to the US with Tae-Kyu. While Tae-Kyu sleeps, Jin-Hoo starts working and goes through the documents Hyun-Ju prepared for him. He soon sees that Hyundai, his country's biggest automaker, is involved in far more than just making cars. Bringing down a company of that scale would create disastrous consequences. The impact would be even worse than the Samsung incident. Harm to his own country would be enormous. Even with that in mind, Jin-Hoo has no intention of stepping back. After arriving in San Francisco, they are greeted by Henry Smith. He is a representative from Golden Gate. Smith explains that he came under his boss's instructions and offers to escort them to their hotel so they can rest. Jin-Hoo refuses without hesitation. He did not come to waste time and wants to begin right away. They therefore go straight to the Karo's headquarters in Silicon Valley to meet Daryl Sagan once more. Daryl Sagan says he has heard about their actions during Brexit and adds that those moves have greatly benefited Kairos. Tae-Kyu brushes it off, saying they were simply investing the way they always do. However, Daryl Sagan insists it was exactly the kind of help his company needed. It gave them a far broader margin to operate with. He then introduces Jin-Hoo to the powerful computers they use for developing artificial intelligence. He offers to give a fuller demonstration later. For the moment, however, their scheduled meeting must come first. When they step into the conference room, the Karo staff are already waiting for them. Among them are Sergey and Ryan, the same two who met them in Korea. Tae-Kyu comments that the welcome feels rather cold. Jin-Hoo assumes the staff are probably surprised by how young they are, since they likely expected much older investors. During the meeting, Jin-Hoo studies the reports and quickly identifies the problem. All the funds poured into Kiro so far have produced no meaningful results at all. He now understands why Hyundai withdrew. Without his knowledge of the future, he would have made the same choice. Daryl Sagan defends their progress, saying their technology must be flawless. Otherwise, they will become just another name in the crowded self-driving vehicle industry. Jin-Hoo agrees with the idea, but points out that at this speed they will never bring an actual product to market. Daryl Sagan presents a possible solution. His company has received partnership proposals from Daimler AG, Toyota, and Hyundai. The problem is that all of them want equity in Karos in exchange. Daryl Sagan explains his reasoning, saying even the best software means nothing without hardware. He needs an actual vehicle to run his AI system. Jin-Hoo can tell the CEO has already decided, but he makes it clear he will not surrender any of his own shares. The Karos employees are unhappy, insisting they cannot advance without a major partner. But Jin-Hoo offers a different path. If they do not want to depend on a giant conglomerate, there is only one option. Karos must build its own car. Daryl Sagan points out the obvious issues. Hardware is just as complex and costly as software, and no one on their team is an automotive engineer. Taiki responds that his company can provide the funding, even offering to raise their investment to cover the cost of producing the cars. But Daryl Sagan remains unconvinced. Money alone cannot solve everything, especially when they do not even know the project's final cost. That is when Jin-Hoo reveals his true plan. Instead of building a car company from nothing, they will acquire one, with the required capital estimated at around $30 billion. He admits the idea sounds extreme, but assures them he has a strategy and will explain the details later. After the meeting ends, he and Taikyu leave for their hotel. Taikyu notes that the place feels a bit too large for only 2 people. Their host, Henry, says he will let them rest, though he is available whenever they need him. Once they are by themselves, Taikyu asks whether his friend has already chosen which automaker they plan to buy. Jin-Hoo explains the political side. Buying an American car company would affect the local economy, which means the government might step in. That interference could work either in their favor or against them. He uses Tesla as an example. People laughed when it began selling electric vehicles, yet now its market value threatens the old industry giants. Jin-Hoo wants to make a major investment in that market, and with the money from their previous venture, the timing is ideal. Still unsure, Taikyu suggests that a proper dinner might help them think more clearly. They find Henry, who says he can take them to a good steakhouse. He then asks whether his grandfather, who happens to be nearby, may join them. Guys agree, and Jin-Hoo says he will pay for the meal. Soon afterward, they are seated at the restaurant and placing their orders. Henry's grandfather arrives. His grandson then introduces him to the visitors from Korea. The old man says it is an honor to meet OTK's CEO, adding that his friend Southwell has already told him about Jin-Hoo. Jin-Hoo is surprised that the man already knows his identity. Henry apologizes for not saying so earlier, then explains that his grandfather is James Clark Goldman, the CEO of Golden Gate. Once Jin-Hoo understands, he says the honor is his. He also notes that his friendship with Southwell is already bringing him some useful results. Goldman says that the moment he learned they were in the United States, he hurried over because he wanted to meet them personally. Jin-Hoo realizes Henry's meeting with them at the airport was never a coincidence. The grandfather had used the boy as a bridge. If a legendary investor went this far for 2 men from Korea, then their influence must already be growing fast. Even so, Jin-Hoo stays careful about what he reveals. The old man says he understands his caution. Goldman says he also avoids the media and unwanted attention, but then he shares a hidden truth. He admits he does not truly know how to invest. According to him, his market instinct is not as sharp as the public believes. He has stayed away from the spotlight to avoid looking foolish, admitting that the market is now far more complicated than when he began. Goldman even confesses that the famous investments under his name were actually proposed by foreign branch presidents, while he merely approved them. He says his gift is not investing itself, but choosing the right people. For that reason, he believes he has found someone with the potential to become his next star investor. Goldman admits he has been studying Otaikyu for some time, and was impressed that he recognized Jin-Hoo's ability before anyone else. Jin-Hoo gives the praise to his friend, and the old man says he envies the trust between them. He then asks whether they would allow him to call them his friends from now on. Both men agree at once. A friendship offered by someone like Goldman is not something anyone would refuse. As they raise their glasses, Jin-Hoo knows this is a wise move. A connection with Goldman will create many opportunities later. The following day, their search for an automobile company continues. Jin-Hoo says they must choose carefully and stay quiet. If their plans are announced too soon, major car makers will notice. His first strategy is to focus on the American market, since self-driving vehicles are still illegal in Korea. That means they cannot sell there yet. But Jin-Hoo predicts that once a giant like Hyundai enters the field, the laws will likely change at just the right time. Taikyu points out the obvious issue. Any car company available for purchase is either bankrupt or technologically weak. No one is going to sell a promising company at a bargain price. At that moment, Henry appears with a message from his grandfather. Jin-Hoo reads Goldman's letter and realizes it is giving him a clue. He turns on the television right away. News is reporting Donald Trump's candidacy for the Republican presidential nomination. Goldman's letter had advised him to watch the American election closely, since it would have a direct effect on the automobile industry. Jin-Hoo grasps the meaning immediately. He needs to invest in the administration connected to car manufacturing, and a hint like this from Goldman is extremely valuable. Tae-Kyu explains that Hillary Clinton is leading the Democratic ticket. She is a well-known politician with a long record behind her. Compared with her, he views Trump as nothing more than a pampered millionaire making his first serious attempt at politics. He cannot understand how someone like him became a major candidate. Jin-Hoo explains that Trump is simply voicing what a certain group of people wants to hear. He is also paying for the campaign himself. Tae-Kyu observes that choosing the obvious winner is not always the most profitable move, but unlike Brexit, he thinks they have no way to affect this election. Based on the polls, Hillary's victory looks guaranteed. She is leading by more than 10%. Then Jin-Hoo suddenly receives a new vision, and shock instantly shows on his face. His friend notices the change right away and asks what he saw. Still shaken, Jin-Hoo reveals that he has seen the election's result. He states it with absolute certainty. Donald Trump will become the next president of the United States. Tae-Kyu admits that Hillary currently has a strong advantage. Politics can shift in unexpected ways, and Jin-Hoo agrees. He says they will be the variable that changes the outcome. He compares the election to a poker match where everyone holds 4 cards while waiting for the final one. Hillary has a powerful 4 of a kind, an almost unbeatable hand that makes her win seem certain. At this stage, no small card can make her position stronger. Trump, however, has a strong hand too, though it is still missing one piece. Jin-Hoo suggests that OTK could become the final card Trump needs to win. Tae-Kyu decides that if Trump's victory helps them, then he has no reason to oppose the plan. Jin-Hoo, however, fears that a President Trump could throw the world into disorder and damage the global economy. His friend quickly reminds him that they profited from exploding phones and the near collapse of the British market. Tae-Kyu says they are long past pretending to be morally pure. From this point on, they should focus on protecting their own interests. With that, Jin-Hoo makes up his mind. He agrees to proceed, but carefully, and wants to meet both sides before the election. Elsewhere, Hillary is giving an interview to the Wall Street Journal, presenting her vision for a stronger America if she wins. In truth, the appearance is mainly meant to attract more campaign funding. Once it ends, she tells her campaign strategist, Joel Harford, not to schedule any more interviews. Back with Jin-Hoo, he receives an update. Hillary's team has refused to meet him, so she is no longer an option. However, Henry says Trump is currently campaigning in Los Angeles and has agreed to a 15-minute meeting before his flight. Henry still cannot understand why Jin-Hoo wants to meet a presidential candidate. Jin-Hoo only tells him that he will understand once the right moment comes. Before long, they arrive at the place where the meeting is being held. Security checks them carefully before allowing them inside. Inside, Trump says he knows Hillary rejected them, which is why he agreed to meet. As another businessman, he wanted to see the people behind the famous OTK for himself. He is surprised to learn that a young Asian man is the one running it. Jin-Hoo finds it notable that Trump describes himself as a businessman. It is a label often used to question how seriously he takes politics. That only strengthens Jin-Hoo's belief that Trump treats politics like another business field. Trump asks who the person beside Jin-Hoo is. Jin-Hoo introduces Tae-Kyu as OTK's chief operating officer. Once the introductions are finished, Trump asks why they requested the meeting. Jin-Hoo says he wants to support the Republican campaign. Trump immediately asks whether Jin-Hoo thinks he is struggling and has simply come to offer money. Jin-Hoo understands that American elections are driven heavily by funding. The candidate with deeper backing usually has the advantage, and Trump's campaign funds are only about half of his rivals. Even with his personal wealth, Trump cannot match Hillary's major backers. But Jin-Hoo tells him he can offer something more valuable than money. He says he can ensure Donald Trump's victory, then notes that Trump is behind in the polls and will lose if things stay the same. Trump dismisses the polls as unreliable, yet he is still interested in hearing what Jin-Hoo has brought. Jin-Hoo mentions Trump's key promise to restore American manufacturing and create jobs, saying candidates often offer impossible dreams, but he is there to make this one real. Trump asks him to explain exactly what he is proposing. Jin-Hoo says he can turn Trump's biggest campaign pledge into reality, as long as Trump accepts his support. Donald Trump is taken aback, since this is the last offer he expected. Back at the hotel, Hyun-Joo is nearly losing control as the media explodes with coverage. She demands to know what they were thinking by openly supporting Donald Trump. Her brother says the whole thing was Jin-Hoo's plan, and he simply chose to trust his friend. Hyun-Joo points out that Trump is not merely announcing OTK's support, but using it to feed conspiracy theories and reckless rumors. Jin-Hoo defends the decision, saying a Trump win would benefit them because he promised investment in the auto industry. Hyun-Joo argues that only matters if he actually wins, and every poll currently says he will lose. Jin-Hoo remains certain Trump will win, or he would never have supported him. He explains that the US election is not decided by a direct popular vote, so the polls cannot be read too simply. Hyun-Joo can see he truly believes it, but she still thinks the decision is reckless. Meanwhile, at a rally, Donald Trump begins making his argument to the crowd. He says Hillary is selling America to foreign interests, while he is the one who will restore the economy. A woman in the audience calls him dishonest, pointing out that he just met with OTK company himself. Since OTK is a foreign company, Trump admits the meeting happened, but says he sought their help because American companies refused to support him. He then declares that OTK's $20 billion will be used to reopen Detroit's closed factories and bring jobs back to the city. The woman still refuses to believe him, accusing him of making promises he cannot keep. To show he is serious, Trump invites Michigan's governor onto the stage, even though the governor belongs to the opposing party. Butler confirms that Trump's statement is accurate. The state government is already negotiating with OTK. The investments are expected to begin soon. Trump vows to return America to the top, even if that means bargaining with opponents or foreign companies. The crowd bursts with excitement. Watching from home, Jin-Hoo thinks the rally feels more like a pop concert, but he admits Trump played the moment well. Now he only has to watch how his opponents respond. During a meeting with Karos, Jin-Hoo explains his plan for investing in the American automobile industry. He will leave Karos' lab where it is, but the company's headquarters will be moved to Detroit. Daryl Sagan asks whether that means they are about to be absorbed by a manufacturing company. Jin-Hoo says it is actually the opposite. Karos will purchase an automaker, allowing it to grow from a software developer into a complete vehicle manufacturing company. With OTK serving as the holding company, Jin-Hoo tells Daryl Sagan he believes in his ability and trusts that under his leadership, the new venture will benefit everyone. He then uses the moment to reveal that he is not just a representative, but the CEO of OTK company. His friend, meanwhile, is the company's CEO. He promises to focus on managing Karos and not interfere with its technology work because he trusts Daryl Sagan to guide the team properly. Daryl Sagan thanks him for believing in him and promises he will not disappoint them. Jin-Hoo then announces that Karos' capital will rise to $20 billion, with the executive team receiving 4% of that value. Daryl Sagan raises no objection. He knows that if they want to lead the auto industry, they must build their own cars instead of outsourcing such an important step. Since Karos is an American company, he believes this development was only a matter of time. To celebrate the moment, Taikyu suggests ordering pizza. Daryl Sagan says Silicon Valley now is the best pizza, thanks to a new company called M Pizza that recently entered the market. IQ immediately recognizes the name. It is the pizza company they invested in, and his first thought is clear. Do majority shareholders receive some kind of discount? Back at the hotel, Jin-Hoo reveals their next target, Chrysler. The PTA group has been trying to sell the auto giant, but it has sat on the market for 3 years. The trouble began after Chrysler's merger with Daimler AG fell apart. Kia later stepped in with a bailout, taking over Chrysler and creating the PTA group. IQ cannot understand it. How could a merger between two huge companies collapse so badly? Jin-Hoo explains that KIA never truly entered the European market. When two weak companies combine, they usually just drag each other down. Henry adds that they did not even share parts or platforms, which badly damaged their profit margins. With no spare cash, they fell behind in electric vehicles and self-driving technology. That means if Karos buys Chrysler now, they can rebuild the company from the ground up. Jin-Hoo wants them on a flight to Detroit right away, but Henry tells him there is no need for that. He brings them to a private jet, explaining that it is now available for them to use whenever they wish. Once aboard, they raise their glasses to celebrate the upgrade. Henry quickly gets serious and asks whether Jin-Hoo truly thinks Donald Trump can win. Jin-Hoo says he is certain, then asks why Henry doubts it. Henry says OTK's endorsement has completely shaken up the presidential race, and he wants to understand the reasoning behind it. Jin-Hoo says he cannot explain the entire strategy yet. He simply asks Henry to wait a little longer. Later, they meet Ellie and Hyun-Joo. Both of them look completely worn out. Hyun-Joo says it is because OTK has been moving at such a relentless pace recently. Jin-Hoo apologizes, then formally introduces Henry to them. The two women are shocked to shake hands with the grandson of their own company's CEO. Henry immediately turns on his charm, clearly taken with Ellie. Taikyu quietly nudges Jin-Hoo and warns that Henry might make a move on her before he does. Jin-Hoo, however, has his mind focused only on business. Hyun-Joo moves straight into work matters. The factory site has been secured, and the state will handle infrastructure and tax benefits. TPA representatives are coming for talks, but she is more concerned about the US election than the negotiation itself. Even worse, Trump's public praise exposed OTK's ownership of Kairos, bringing them a rush of attention they never asked for. Jin-Hoo focuses on the advantage. To challenge Korea's largest conglomerate, they need powerful allies in America, and having the US president on their side would change everything. Hyun-Joo says that only matters if Trump actually wins, which still feels unlikely, though she knows Jin-Hoo too well to keep arguing. Ellie Ellie adds that, just like with Brexit, she will trust her boss's plan even if it sounds absurd. Tae-kyu also makes it clear that he is staying with them to the end. Just then, Henry receives a message. Hillary Clinton's office has requested a meeting through Golden Gate, and he asks whether Jin-Hoo is interested. Jin-Hoo says he is, since he wants to know what they are after. Later, Jin-Hoo and Ellie meet Joel, Clinton's chief of staff. Joel gets straight to the point, saying Hillary likes OTK's investments, but wants them to delay the deals. Jin-Hoo asks what he would gain from that, since everything is already prepared. Joel explains the political situation. Most Rust Belt governors are Democrats. If Hillary wins, it would benefit everyone. As president, she could pass favorable laws with help from local leaders. He admits his role is to help secure her victory, and with OTK's support, that victory would be almost guaranteed. Jin-Hoo says he is willing to consider a deal, but trust matters most. Then he asks just how generous Hillary's heart really is. Joel promises it is very generous. If OTK officially supports her, he will back them fully as chief of staff. Jin-Hoo rejects the offer outright. He has already given Trump his word, and his business is built on mutual trust. After the meeting ends, Ellie asks why Jin-Hoo did not simply take the offer. Jin-Hoo explains his reasoning. A politician's promise is not something you can easily trust. Donald Trump, however, is a businessman, and Jin-Hoo knew from their first meeting that someone like him would never turn down his offer. Ellie reminds him of the danger. If Trump loses, OTK's American business could be finished. Jin-Hoo answers that if Trump wins, every door in the country will open for them, and even if he fails to win re-election, OTK will be powerful enough by then that it will no longer need political protection. Sometime later, Park Sang-yup calls from Korea. He says K Company has moved into its new building and asks when Jin-Hoo plans to return. Jin-Hoo tells him the team will be back soon, and he will explain his new plans to him face to face. Meanwhile, Tae-kyu suggests everyone take a breather and asks his sister if she cannot wear something more comfortable outside work. She simply says she is always working, which perfectly sums up her personality. Then Jin-Hoo's phone rings. It is the CEO of Golden Gate. He says OTK has definitely stirred up Washington. Hillary seemed like the logical choice, but knowing Jin-Hoo does not follow convention, he is no longer sure she will win. Jin-Hoo says that with James' help, he has placed his bet on Trump. In exchange, James asks him for a favor. He wants Jin-Hoo to bring his grandson Henry into OTK Company. He says he has not discussed it with Henry yet, but he is certain the young man would be thrilled. Recently, Henry keeps talking about how much he enjoys working with Jin-Hoo. James ends with a warning. OTK's open support for Trump has drawn public attention, so Jin-Hoo must prepare for what comes next. After the call ends, Jin-Hoo asks his team what they think about hiring Henry. Tae-kyu fully supports the idea. The company needs fresh talent, and Henry has already proven to be a great help. Yeonju agrees. As Goldman's successor, Henry is more than capable of earning a place at OTK. Once the offer is presented, Henry accepts without hesitation. Yeonju wastes no time assigning him work. She hands him a pile of documents and tells him to begin there. Henry is delighted and promises to do everything he can to help. Yeonju remarks that, at the very least, his enthusiasm makes him seem useful. Meanwhile, back at the Blue House in South Korea, President Park Geun-hye calls in the director of the National Intelligence Service. She notes that a Korean company is gaining attention overseas, and she is glad to see a major investment firm emerging at home. The problem is, the origin of the company's starting capital remains unclear, so she orders the director to check whether K Company has any links to North Korean funds. Director Yoon Si-won quickly reviews the matter and finds no sign of North Korean involvement at all. Still, he uses the official request as an excuse to unlawfully gather every file he can on K Company and OTK. After going through the information, he reaches a completely mistaken conclusion. He decides Park Sang-yup is only a CEO in name, and Kang Jin-Hoo is merely his personal secretary. He assumes Jin-Hoo is living comfortably off his friend's money, and beyond that, he concludes that Tae-kyu must be the true mastermind and the real CEO behind OTK Company. After reading the report, the president struggles to believe that OTK's mastermind could be a young man who never even attended college. Yoon Si-won suggests Hugh may be a hidden genius, adding that his sister's achievements make the idea less unbelievable. The president accepts the possibility, saying a true genius does not need a degree, which could explain Tae-kyu's unusual academic background. Even so, he cannot stop thinking about Jin-Hoo. He is sure the man is not just a freeloader and believes the investigation missed something important. Yoon Si-won explains that going any further will require a warrant. The president thanks him and says he will make a call. Elsewhere, Min-gu, the chairman of Hyundai, is reviewing the latest reports about OTK. He has to admit that buying Kairos as a step toward acquiring a manufacturer was an audacious move. His son, Vice Chairman Han Chan-yong, notes that although Kairos has advanced technology, its production is restricted by existing laws. Mingu points out that if Donald Trump wins the election, he could change the law and give OTK a huge advantage. Chan-yong remains doubtful. Even in the best case, Kairos may enter the American market, but will struggle to break into Korea. Mingu explains that this is not about the current market. Shareholders are angry that an old investment may soon turn into a powerful competitor. He tells Chan-yong to keep a close watch on every move OTK makes. Not long after, Han Mingu receives an important phone call. It is the president of Korea, who assumes Mingu has already heard about OTK and K Company. He then explains everything his own investigation has found. The president makes it clear that both of them must be prepared to respond in equal measure. Meanwhile, in the United States, the OTK team is taking a short coffee break. Jin-Hoo receives a strange message from an unknown number, telling him to call back using an American cell phone. He borrows Henry's phone and makes the call. Sang-yeop answers and tells Jin-Hoo that the entire team must get rid of their phones and stop using their real names. He suspects they are being monitored. Then he delivers the bad news. Prosecutors and tax officials have raided KK Company's building with a search warrant backed by the intelligence service, collecting every physical and digital document on site. On top of that, they are being investigated for foreign exchange violations and several other charges. Everyone connected to them is now under government scrutiny. Jin-Hoo understands this is not an ordinary investigation. It is a coordinated campaign against them. Park Sang-yeop says most of their data is secure on an overseas cloud server, but he is about to be taken in for questioning. Jin-Hoo tells him to stay careful and use this new number if he needs to contact him. After hanging up, he turns to the team and tells them they have a major problem. After hearing what happened, Henry is stunned and says such an operation should be illegal. Taekyu simply replies that things work differently in Korea. Hyun-ju guesses the intelligence service had already been watching K Company for some reason and happened to discover its link to OTK. But Jin-Hoo knows that is not the case. An operation this fast, involving the highest levels of government, can only point to one thing. PS is involved. Ellie has no idea what PS is. Taekyu explains that they make airbags and plastic components for various cars, though he still does not understand the connection. Jin-Hoo explains it clearly. 90% of PAS's revenue comes from Hyundai. Park Geun-hye, Korea's current president, was Hyundai's CEO before entering politics. Legally, he cannot own stock while in office, but his family remains deeply connected to the company. Hyun-ju immediately understands that the president is sending a warning. Anyone threatening his old territory will be crushed. Henry begins to understand the larger picture. If Trump wins and tariffs rise, foreign exporters will suffer heavily. Ellie completes the thought. The Korean government is using K Company as an excuse to weaken OTK before it can grow. Jin-Hoo makes his choice. He will return to Korea because with Sang-yeop sidelined, K Company needs a CEO. Girls know the danger, but they decide to go with him. The guys join as well. They have no intention of letting Jin-Hoo face alone. As for Jin-Hoo, he would rather stand and fight than run away. He is determined to carry this matter through until the very end. Before returning to Korea, Jin-Hoo calls Donald Trump to explain what is happening. He assures him the investments will proceed as planned and promises to meet him after he wins the election. Ellie says that if even a presidential candidate is warning Jin-Hoo to be cautious, the situation must be truly serious. Jin-Hoo confirms it, explaining that Korea's president is behind the move and that he expects them to be detained the moment they arrive. His friends are shocked and ask if he really plans to step straight into a trap, but Jin-Hoo has his reasons. He has not actually broken the law, so even if he is taken in, it should not last long. Besides, he has a backup plan. If the worst happens, Hyun-ju will take charge. He knows the government would not dare target a Golden Gate employee without undeniable grounds, making her the safest person among them. Taekyu realizes that he and Jin-Hoo are the main targets, yet the thought does not seem to bother him at all. They land in Korea and for a while, nothing unusual happens. Taekyu thinks they may have worried for nothing, but Henry corrects him, saying he has noticed men following them for the past 10 minutes. Jin-Hoo decides they will not flee. He orders the team to keep following the schedule until the American election ends, even if he gets arrested. With that decision made, he readies himself to be taken without resistance, but to everyone's surprise, the agents pass him by and go directly for Taekyu. They arrest him as the CEO of OTK Company, accusing him of violating financial management laws. Hyun-ju explodes in anger and demands their identities. The agents show a warrant and say they are from the prosecutor's office. Jin-Hoo watches his friend shoulder the blame in his place and tries to intervene. Tae-Kyu stops him and calmly confirms that he is the CEO of OTK Company. He then tells Jin-Hoo to go finish what must be done. Once everything is over, they can eat together. The team can do nothing but watch helplessly as he is taken away. Outside the airport, Jung Gi-hong is waiting to meet them. He explains that Sang-yup could not come because he is currently being questioned. Gi-hong says his instructions are to follow Hyun-jo's orders while his boss is absent. However, he is puzzled about why their group is missing its fifth member. Jin-Hoo tells him their friend was just arrested. He will explain later, but for now, he only wants to get home. On the way, Hyun-jo sorts through what happened, and despite her anger, she admits it may have been the better outcome. Losing Jin-Hoo would have been a far greater blow to the team. She realizes her brother understood that, which is why he went along so calmly. Her attention shifts at once. She tells Ellie to find the strongest lawyer money can hire. They made a serious mistake by touching her brother, and she intends to make them pay for it. When they arrive at the K Company building, they discover that the entire place has been thoroughly searched and left in chaos. Hyun-jo explains that Golden Gate only received a polite request for cooperation, while K Company was hit with a full-scale raid. Jin-Hoo asks whether the Golden Gate building has any empty rooms available. When she says it does, he tells the K Company staff to pack their things. They will move operations next door. He reassures them that most of their key documents have already been backed up in the cloud. That means they can still function. Since many employees do not know him, he formally introduces himself as the person in charge until Sang-yup returns. Later, Hyun-jo gives Jin-Hoo a new phone issued by Golden Gate. He tells him his old phone can no longer be trusted. The weight of being monitored finally sinks in, and Jin-Hoo admits he is no longer sure he can continue with the plan. Hyun-jo challenges his sudden hesitation and asks whether he has any backup plan at all. Jin-Hoo has no proper answer, but she reminds him that they must keep moving forward because Tae-Kyu is relying on them. She says she cannot use illegal tactics like Korea's intelligence service, but in the financial world, money can be a weapon of its own. Then she calls Golden Gate's legal team and gives one clear order: investigate every link between President Jun-hai and Hyundai. Watching her, Jin-Hoo thinks this side of his friend is genuinely intimidating. He suspects even the President of the Republic would be frightened if he knew who he had truly provoked. With Tae-Kyu now in custody, Sang-yup is eventually released. He rejoins the team and immediately notices something strange. Jin-Hoo still has not told Jung Gi-hong that he is the company's real CEO. Jin-Hoo admits he simply has not had the chance. He has been completely focused on Tae-Kyu's arrest and finding a way to free him. For now, Tae-Kyu is holding firm and refusing to talk. The authorities are examining OTK's funding and a possible insider trading scandal connected to Samsung. But Jin-Hoo knows they have no solid evidence. They are only trying to keep Tae-Kyu detained until the American election is over. Park Sang-yup understands the Korean government's strategy. Still, he also knows they made one crucial mistake. They took the wrong person. Jin-Hoo sees it another way. His friend's sacrifice has given them more time, and he has no intention of wasting it. Returning to business, Jin-Hoo confirms that the automaker they plan to acquire is in poor condition. Even so, he tells Karos to continue moving forward with plan. Errol Sagan is certain that once their technology is integrated, the company will take control of the American market. Once that matter is settled, Jin-Hoo turns his attention to his next move. He says the Korean government is trying to slow him down, but he is about to do the exact opposite. He is prepared to spend every dollar he has. According to their intelligence, Donald Trump has disrupted the polls, but his win is far from certain. Everything now depends on two key states. The states are Pennsylvania and Ohio, so Jin-Hoo decides to add another major push. He plans to invest $5 billion into those two states. Not long after, Hillary's chief of staff angrily calls South Korea's president. He demands an explanation, saying he was promised OTK's investments would be blocked, yet Donald Trump is now about to receive a $5 billion boost in Pennsylvania. He also wants to know exactly where that money came from. President Jun-hai insists that such a thing cannot be possible. OTK's CEO is supposedly in prison, and even his meetings with lawyers are being watched. The president assumes the only person who could be acting on his behalf is his older sister. Oh, Hyun-jo. When Joel hears this, he realizes the information does not match. He asks to see a photo of the man they arrested. The moment he sees Tae-Kyu, he understands that this man is not OTK's real CEO. The person he met looked completely different. He tells the president that the man he dealt with introduced himself as Mr. Kang, not Tae-Kyu. In that instant, the president of Korea realizes just how serious her mistake was. The real target had been right in front of her all along. Meanwhile, at an elegant dinner gathering, Ju Sang, the son of Korea's prime minister, is showing off in front of his girlfriend. She is Jung So-hee, a rising actress. Sitting across from them, Jun Hyung is there with his own girlfriend, Siona. Ju Sang laughs at the news, finding it absurd that some 20-year-old nerd could cause such a political storm. Jun Hyung admits it is surprising, but says that nerds shook all of Washington with one move. Jusang only finds the situation even more amusing. He decides this must explain where Jin-Hoo got all that money for their ridiculous game before. He must have simply been working under Taikyu. Jun-Hyung smugly says the fun is over. With the golden goose locked up, Jin-Hoo's money source has finally disappeared. Yoon Seona is not convinced. The Taikyu she knew back when she dated Jin-Hoo was never someone capable of running a massive international operation. She remembers how much Jin-Hoo changed and feels certain it meant something. Seona then surprises everyone by saying Jin-Hoo is not the person they think he is. She believes he is the true leader behind everything, not Taikyu. Jusang says she is giving Jin-Hoo far too much credit, since his high-level contacts have all confirmed Taikyu is the one in charge. Even so, Seona insists Jin-Hoo would never serve under someone else or live off his best friend's success. Meanwhile, Jin-Hoo tells his team he has found a way to free his friend. When they ask what he intends to do, his answer is straightforward. He will hold a press conference and reveal the truth to the entire world. On the way there, Hyunju says the announcement will shock everyone. It will be especially shocking to those who do not know the real Jin-Hoo. She asks whether he should warn anyone first. Jin-Hoo realizes Yu Rai would be furious if she learned it from television, and she would not be the only one. A little later, he reaches his mother's house and uses the chance to formally introduce his colleagues. His mother senses that something serious is happening and immediately asks what trouble he has gotten into this time. Jin-Hoo only says they need to talk inside. Soon, the announcement of OTK's upcoming press conference catches everyone's attention. At the intelligence service, Siwon cannot make sense of it and wants to know what Jin-Hoo is planning. An assistant says agents have followed Jin-Hoo for days, yet he is not even trying to hide. Siwon finds it strange that a monitored company would act so openly instead of lying low. He decides he must stop them, but hesitation suddenly creeps in. If OTK has not actually broken any laws, the intelligence service could end up in serious trouble. Siwon fears OTK is preparing to reveal something explosive, so he decides to contain them before the conference begins, whatever it takes. He calls the prosecutor general and tries to persuade him to shut everything down, but the prosecutor refuses to go along with it. He reminds Siwon that, because of the intelligence service, they already arrested the wrong person and created a major problem. If they make one more mistake, all of them could be investigated for abusing their authority. With no support from the prosecutor's office, Siwon orders his own agents to stop the press conference at any cost. Even cutting the building's power is allowed if necessary. Back with Jin-Hoo's team, Yoonju reports that everything on her side is prepared. Jin-Hoo tells her to follow the plan until the American election is finished. If he is detained, they will communicate through lawyers. He also asks them to thank his friend for making this sacrifice and to explain the reason to Taikyu. Ellie notes that Jin-Hoo is remarkably calm for someone taking such a huge risk, and she finds that charming. Before he can take the next step, Jin-Hoo receives a call from a hidden number. A threatening voice tells him to cancel the press conference and even offers to negotiate. Jin-Hoo says the chance to negotiate vanished the moment they arrested his friend. He ends the call and breaks his phone in two. By now, Jin-Hoo is prepared to risk everything. He vows that he will not return without results. Jin-Hoo then appears at a press conference as OTK Company's representative. He begins with the facts everyone already knows. Their subsidiary K Company was raided, and OTK's supposed CEO was arrested at the airport. Then he reveals what the public does not know. His team's finances had been monitored, and their phones were tapped long before the raid. When one reporter asks him to show evidence, Jin-Hoo presents photos taken by his private investigators, clearly showing agents connected to the national security system. He declares the entire operation unlawful and says he has both the names of the people involved and the agencies they work for. Jin-Hoo describes it as political persecution, claiming everything began after they announced support for a US presidential candidate. He says the clearest proof is simple. The man arrested at the airport is not even OTK's real CEO. The authorities merely seized the first person they could get their hands on. Naturally, the reporters want to know who the actual CEO is. Without hesitation, Jin-Hoo looks into the cameras and announces that he is the true CEO of the company, and he is prepared to answer every question they have. The room instantly breaks into an uproar. Watching it all on television, Jin-Hoo's mother feels deeply worried for her son. The story he had told her earlier now feels frighteningly real. The shock even reaches Jin-Hoo's university, where one classmate recognizes him during the broadcast. He then tells everyone that Jin-Hoo is OTK's CEO. As the students sit there stunned, Yuri is the only person who does not look surprised. Jin-Hoo had already told her the truth, but the person most shaken by the news is Seona. She had known he was involved in something important, but she wanted to hear it directly from him. The last time they met, he had refused to tell her. Meanwhile, Lee Sung-kin, the owner of a major news outlet, watches the conference and thinks Jin-Hoo must be reckless. His company had been invited, but they dismissed it as a joke. A colleague says they should have taken it seriously, pointing out that a document related to OTK arrived in the mail. Sung-kin is not interested at first, but after several calls, he realizes the material was sent only to his outlet. It seems OTK chose his organization because of his well-known conflicts with Korea's current president. For that reason, he decides to give them a chance. If it gives him an opportunity to damage the president, he is willing to publish the story. As for the president, Park Geun-hye is watching as well. He insists he never meant to destroy OTK, only to send a warning and keep them under control. He had even imagined working with them after the American election, but now everything has changed. He calls his communications chief and orders him to contact every cooperative media outlet. Sometime later, the prosecutor who lost Taekyu tries to begin his workday, but the entire building is surrounded by reporters. He pushes past the press and storms into an interrogation room. Furious, the prosecutor demands to know who leaked the articles connecting PASS and the president of Korea. Jin-Hoo, however, has a sharper question of his own. He asks whether prosecutor Kim Kyung-jun arrested him under direct orders from the president. When challenged, Kim Kyung-jun tries to assert his authority, insisting that he is the one asking questions. But Jin-Hoo does not back down. Instead, he brings up an incident from several years ago. It involved an organization called Athena, known for making astonishingly accurate financial forecasts. Their predictions were so precise that they eventually became a problem for the government. At the time, the prosecutor used state power to bring Athena down through false reports and baseless claims. Athena was later cleared in court, but the government had already achieved its goal. Jin-Hoo notes that the prosecutor responsible was never punished and was instead promoted to prosecutor general. Now, Kim Kyung-jun is about to repeat that mistake. This enrages the prosecutor, who asks whether Jin-Hoo thinks his office is a joke. Jin-Hoo throws the question back at him, saying the prosecutor's office treats the Korean people like a joke. Unlike Athena, however, he has more than enough money to protect himself. Jin-Hoo presents a possibility. He could arrange a private meeting with the president and offer to invest 1 trillion won in PASS. The only condition would be making all of Kim Kyung-jun's hidden scandals public. In that case, Kim would be treated as Korea's worst criminal, and even his family would not be spared from scrutiny. Jin-Hoo explains that even without evidence, national security could detain the prosecutor's family for money, just as they did with Taekyu. The warning hits hard. Kim Kyung-jun tries to steady himself again. He reminds Jin-Hoo that the entire conversation is being recorded and could be used as a threat. Jin-Hoo simply smiles and says he was only joking. After all, the president would never discard a prosecutor as honest as Kyung-jun. The prosecutor is truly frightened now. Jin-Hoo's calm expression tells him that every word is backed by real power. Elsewhere, Sung-kin's assistant reports that their website has been shut down again. They can no longer rely on domestic servers. Lee Sung-kin understands that powerful people are trying to silence him, so he tells his team to switch from a private site to social media and podcasts. They quickly launch a podcast to discuss the new accusations against the president and the Korean government, with the main claim being that the president is PASS's true owner. It is a charge that, if proven true, could lead to Jun-hye being removed from office. When Jun-hye hears this, panic immediately sets in. He realizes he made a serious mistake by provoking OTK. On top of that, he desperately hopes Donald Trump loses the US election. If Trump wins, the situation will become far more dangerous. Hillary accuses OTK of being a foreign corporation that used illegal funds to support her opponent's campaign. Trump responds sharply, insisting that OTK is an American company. He argues that Korean ownership alone does not make its business activities unlawful. The two exchange attacks, but Trump appears to be gaining the audience's support. Meanwhile, in Korea, Yoon-si-won receives a report saying his team found no illegal activity linked to OTK. The same is true for its subsidiary. With the media leaning toward OTK, they cannot keep making claims without evidence. At this point, the investigation has practically come to a stop. At OTK headquarters, Jin-Hoo's lawyer tells the team that the CEO ordered them to carry the plan through until the very end. Yoon-jo adds that she persuaded Golden Gate to support Jin-Hoo's choice, meaning they can treat Donald Trump's victory as certain. Under Jin-Hoo's strategy, Trump's victory will send the stock market downward while pushing cryptocurrency prices upward. Sang-yup notes that OTK is already prepared to profit through Bitcoin and Ethereum investments, but he asks how trustworthy the information really is. Hyun-ju assures him the information is reliable. Golden Gate's CEO personally ordered the company to support Jin-Hoo's plan. Sang-yup is stunned, realizing Jin-Hoo has reached a point where even Golden Gate's legendary leader is backing him directly. As a team, all they can do now is trust trust their boss and follow his lead. Prosecutor Kim Kyung-jun insists there is no reason to keep Jin-Hoo detained any longer. He attempts to persuade his superior to shift the course of the investigation. However, his boss makes it clear that justice is not the goal. They only need to keep Jin-Hoo held until the US presidential election ends. That is when Kyung-jun understands that his superiors care less about the law than their own interests. With no way to stop it, all he can do is hope Hillary wins in the United States. Back with Jin-Hoo, he finds it strange to sit around doing nothing after growing so used to his daily routine. He even wonders whether he is becoming a workaholic like Hyun-jo. An investigator tells Jin-Hoo to answer truthfully, but Jin-Hoo replies that there is nothing more to say. After all, he is no longer being accused of anything specific. He also knows the man is simply wasting time until the election is over. Since the vote count has already begun, he asks for a pen and paper so he can write a message instead of sitting idle. Meanwhile, the vote begins in the United States, and at first, every sign points toward Hillary winning. She celebrates with confidence, believing everything is unfolding exactly as predicted. She even begins preparing her victory speech. At the same time, back in Korea, Jin-Hoo receives his pen and asks how the election results are coming along. The agent says he is not allowed to discuss it, but the man's reaction tells Jin-Hoo enough. Jin-Hoo guesses the industrial regions have not reported yet, meaning Hillary is probably leading for the moment. Still, he knows his friends are already moving to turn the situation around, and he is right. The entire OTK team is working on that very plan. Although they cannot contact Jin-Hoo, the team follows the vote count live. Ellie reports that Hillary has nearly taken the entire West Coast and still holds a narrow edge elsewhere. Even then, Hyun-ju says they will stay with the plan, though she admits it feels even more stressful than the Brexit vote. Jin-Hoo reflects on his strategy. He has met Trump in person and can also understand what motivates on both sides. The most important lesson is simple. If something is beyond your reach, let it go without hesitation. Using that idea, they created an operation to spread Donald Trump's message only in the most decisive regions. He does not need to win every state, only the ones that truly matter. As Tae-kyu watches the results, he sees the momentum begin to shift. Then he realizes his friend had been right from the beginning. Even Hillary is stunned when Florida falls to her opponent. With that, Donald Trump secures the majority of states and becomes the new president of the United States of America. When the Korean president hears the news, he loses his composure. The impossible has happened. He calls the prosecutor, admits the plan to hold Jin-Hoo has failed, and orders his immediate release. Hillary Clinton's cabinet is equally shocked, but Joel understands that Trump did not win by himself. He had financial support from outside. Joel says the real reason their candidate lost was that they failed to stop one single investor. As for Jin-Hoo, he notices the guard's sudden change in attitude and immediately understands that Donald Trump has won. A moment later, the official announcement reaches him. The prosecutor's office is dropping every charge against Jin-Hoo and his companies. He is free to leave, and as he goes, the guard advises Jin-Hoo not to use the main entrance, which is packed with reporters. Jin-Hoo understands. An interview would only embarrass the prosecutor's office and make them look unable to handle their own mistake. He figures the prosecutor made the error, but the staff would be the ones forced to deal with the fallout. To avoid causing them more trouble, he agrees to leave through the back exit. Besides, he has no desire to see himself on the news. Outside, he reunites with his closest friend, Tae-kyu. Tae-kyu gives him something to eat, saying he must be absolutely starving by now. As he eats, Jin-Hoo asks about his mother. Tae-kyu reassures him that she is fine and no longer in any danger. At that moment, Ellie steps out of the car in tears, overcome with worry. She rushes over and wraps her arms around Jin-Hoo. She admits she was terrified while imagining what might have happened to him. Tells her he is fine and that there is no need for her to worry anymore. Sang-yeop interrupts, suggesting they leave first and talk about everything properly later. Inside the car, Jin-Hoo asks how much they earned from Trump's victory. Sang-yeop confirms the profit came close to $3 billion. He then asks why Jin-Hoo did not make the same move during Brexit. Jin-Hoo explains that Britain was strong enough to endure the impact. Mexico, in its current condition, would suffer much more. He does not want to turn entire countries into enemies. To grow his business, he needs allies, not a reputation for damaging national economies. While they drive, Jin-Hoo notices something unfamiliar and asks what his friend has been doing. Tae-kyu smiles and says that after the press conference, he decided it was time to make their presence official, so he had the OTK logo placed on the roof of their building. When Jin-Hoo arrives, he sees Hyun-ju waiting for him. He thanks her for handling everything during his absence. She tells him Donald Trump's secretary called and asked Jin-Hoo to contact him once he was free. Jin-Hoo says he already handled it during the ride. Apparently, Trump is extremely thankful for the support. With that settled, Jin-Hoo asks about OTK's next step, and Hyun-Jutsu says their biggest issue is not in the United States. It is right here in Korea. Kyu explains that President Geun-hye is facing impeachment and may be forced from office. Hyun-Ju believes they should actively support his removal. After what Park Geun-hye put her brother and Jin-Hoo through, he deserves at least that much. Jin-Hoo realizes he will not be returning to college anytime soon, so he decides to work from the office and perhaps recruit more employees. After the scandal, Golden Gate creates a special legal team to protect its clients from further political pressure. Meanwhile, Geun-hye's approval rating has fallen to its lowest point. Public demands for his resignation continue to grow louder. In desperation, he tries to repair his image by giving a formal apology before the press. However, he never truly admits fault, insisting that he only acted for the sake of national security. The explanation fails to convince the public. Kyu cannot believe it and wonders how such a man can remain president despite all the evidence. Jin-Hoo explains that Geun-hye's political base is still powerful. They cannot expect him to step down easily. Still, the president needed scapegoats, including the prosecutor general and the prosecutor involved in the OTK case. The intelligence service director is also dismissed, so even though Geun-hye will not leave office right away, the Korean government's campaign against OTK has officially come to an end. The new logo on the building proves it more than anything. They no longer need to stay hidden. Jin-Hoo receives his own office, ready to turn his company into a more professional organization than ever before. During a meeting, he announces that their first priority is hiring a human resources director to oversee recruitment and manage the expanding team. He and his friend begin going through the resumes. One name immediately catches Taekyu's attention. It belongs to a Korean American named Michael Lee, whose career history is remarkably impressive. Henry recognizes the name and agrees that Michael would be an ideal fit for the role. Jin-Hoo realizes he has found the right candidate and starts considering how to contact him. Henry is certain Michael Lee will accept. After Jin-Hoo's recent rise to fame, plenty of people would want the chance to work with him. Just then, Jin-Hoo's phone begins to ring. It is his mother calling. She apologizes for interrupting him while he is at work, but she says the house is packed because all his relatives have come to see him. Jin-Hoo can already imagine the chaos waiting there, and he is not eager to face it. A little later, Jin-Hoo makes his way to his mother's house. Taekyu, riding with him, notices his tension and asks whether he is nervous about meeting the family. Jin-Hoo admits he had nearly forgotten he even had relatives. He recalls how his mother once asked them for help after his father passed away, yet not one of them offered any support. He says he does not resent them, since he understands how difficult it is to lend money to someone who cannot repay it. Still, now that they have seen him on television, their real nature is showing. Jin-Hoo asks whether Taekyu deals with similar problems. Taekyu says he does not. His sister has always been successful. Relatives are also well off, so there is no family drama to deal with. When they arrive, Jin-Hoo asks the head of security why she did not turn the visitors away. His mother says it was her decision. She simply could not close the door on her own family. Jin-Hoo accepts it and says he will go inside. The whole family is gathered there to welcome him. One of his uncles immediately points out the costly car he arrived in. The others quickly join in, saying how nice it is to see him after such a long time. Jin-Hoo cannot help remembering that the last time he saw any of them was during his father's funeral. They claim they were so worried after watching his press conference that they had no choice but to visit. Some even say they skipped school and work just to see him, adding how relieved they are that he is free. One cousin uses the moment to introduce her husband. Jin-Hoo offers them his congratulations, even though he knows they have been married for some time and never invited him or his mother to the wedding. He chooses to get straight to the point and asks what they actually came for. They all insist they only came to check on him and want nothing else. Jin-Hoo says they have now seen he is fine, so they can leave since he needs to return to the office. One uncle says the family should catch up while they are all together, then asks exactly how much money Jin-Hoo has earned. Jin-Hoo only says he has enough to let his mother live comfortably, and that is the chance they have been waiting for. Little by little, the relatives reveal their true purpose. Some want loans, while others hope for jobs at his company, which the news says is thriving. Jin-Hoo remembers how these same people harthered speaking to him before. He also remembers how they ignored his mother completely when she was going through hardship. He knows they will keep pushing until he gives in unless he speaks clearly. Still, he feels uneasy throwing them out, since they are, for better or worse, his father's family. Before he can make up his mind, his mother steps in. She says she understands why they really came and finds it shameless that they would enter her home asking for money. Jin-Hoo's mother has reached her limit and tells every one of them to leave her house. She also tells them never to contact them again. She reminds them that none of their families were wealthy, yet her husband always looked looked after his relatives no matter how his own company was doing. He paid for his younger brother's studies and saved money for his younger sister as well. Even his medical costs and funeral were covered by the money he left behind. Yet after his death, none of them helped her or her son, not even with a single cent. For them to come asking for money now, she says, is nothing but shameful. From this moment on, she tells them they should all live as strangers again. The relatives ignore her words and try to appeal directly to Jinhoo. They claim his father would never treat his own family in such a cold way. His mother agrees but reminds them that her husband is no longer here, and since they share some blame for that, none of them has any right to demand anything from Jinhoo. With that, she orders the head of security to have them escorted out. As the guards step forward, the relatives begin to lose their temper. Jinhoo's uncle makes one final attempt, handing him a business card while mentioning a promising opportunity for them both. Jinhoo tells him the only bond between them is already gone. He had hoped for at least an apology, but now he sees it will never come, so he agrees with his mother. It is better if they never meet again. Jinhoo admits his father was a good man, but he also valued his wife and son above everyone else. He tells them all to leave his house and never return. The family is stunned and keeps trying to persuade him, but Jinhoo does not waver. He warns that if anyone among them contacts him or his mother again, he will not hesitate to take legal action. This will be the final time they ever see each other. Once they are alone, Jinhoo's mother feels guilty about how everything unfolded. He comforts her and reminds her that she did nothing wrong. She tells Jinhoo to treasure himself and the people who truly treasure him. She also tells him not to waste his energy arguing with foolish people like he just did. Then, realizing the commotion kept them from eating properly, she decides to prepare dinner. After that, Jinhoo goes to find his friend and tells him what happened. IQ says he noticed the disturbance, which is why he chose to wait outside. Jinhoo says his mother is cooking and invites him to join them for dinner. Meanwhile, at Samsung, the vice president is conducting his own investigation into Jinhoo. He learns that they attended the same university, and more importantly, that Jinhoo was connected to the Samsung crisis. The vice president realizes Jinhoo was behind the decision to end the L6 project. He believes no one would make such a dangerous bet without knowing something beforehand. He also understands that OTK is not a one-man show, and Jinhoo has remarkable people around him. But rather than feeling threatened, the Samsung heir is impressed. He even finds himself hoping they can become friends someday. Back at OTK, Jinhoo is dealing with a flood of meeting requests. Taekyu comments on his friend's sudden popularity and asks who is scheduled for today. Jinhoo says it is the candidate Henry recommended. Not long afterward, Michael Lee arrives for his interview. He begins with a playful remark, calling Jinhoo Donald Trump's biggest supporter. Jinhoo stays composed and says the American people chose their president, not him. Michael accepts that point, but notes the result likely would have been different without OTK. He quickly shifts the topic, saying he came to discuss business rather than politics. Michael explains that he has studied OTK carefully. Since his wife is Korean, he would welcome the chance to work in her home country. He explains his approach to management. A company's first customers are its own employees, and a business can only grow when its people are satisfied. With that in mind, he introduces his proposal. The first point is an 8-hour workday and a 5-day work week. After that, he recommends opening a new Buffett-style cafeteria. He also proposes creating proper break rooms, rest spaces, and even a daycare center for employees who have children. Michael's main principle is that work should not feel like a sacrifice. When a company and its workers trust each other, both sides can develop together. Jinhoo understands that these are all proven methods for building a successful company. There is no real reason for him to reject the idea. He tells Michael that he likes the proposal and offers him the position. Michael accepts at once, clearly ready to begin. Under Hanju's supervision, Michael starts hiring new employees from the candidate list recommended by Golden Gate. Since OTK is now a genuine company rather than just a cover, Jinhoo also begins transferring employees from K Company. During one meeting, Sang-yeop jokes that his subsidiary is about to be left completely empty. Then Jinhoo moves to the real topic. It is time to decide the dividend payout, and he suggests starting with 50 billion won. The money will be divided according to each person's ownership stake in OTK. He also stresses that they will pay all taxes in full, no matter the amount. He refuses to hand his enemies an easy weakness. Jinhoo assures them the K Company employees will not be ignored. They will receive bonuses as well, including Sang-yeop. Sang-yeop is delighted, though he notes that the tax bill will be enormous. Jinhoo has already decided. Every K Company employee will receive a bonus worth twice their current salary. Sometime later, the team gathers at the OTK building. However, Ellie and Hyunju both look completely worn out. Ellie says they have been buried under the work of reviewing job applicants. Jinhoo says he noticed unfamiliar faces in the lobby and asks whether hiring has already begun. Hyunju explains that those people are actually staff for Golden Gate's Korean branch. Since the branch is not officially launched yet. She invited them to use OTK's office for now. She says Golden Gate plans to use the Korean branch to build a consortium and join the bidding for a local company called Anicap. Jin-Hoo recognizes the name right away. It is the security company they already have a contract with. Hyun-ju confirms it. Anicap is an American firm owned by the Type Group, which is selling its Korean assets after an accounting scandal nearly pushed it into bankruptcy. The sale price is close to 3 trillion won. Still, Hyun-ju believes Anicap has enough potential that they cannot simply ignore the opportunity. They are not the only ones interested, though. Several large companies are watching the same target, including Hyundai. The moment Jin-Hoo hears Hyundai's name, his next move becomes obvious. Hyun-ju says Golden Gate wants Anicap, but the number of rivals makes the fight difficult. Tae-kyu asks why Hyundai is competing when it already owns a security company. His sister explains that it is basic corporate rivalry. Once Samsung showed interest in Anicap, Hyundai had no choice but to step into the race as well. Ellie agrees that it is natural for Korea's two biggest conglomerates to try to outdo each other. Tae-kyu then wonders why Hyundai does not simply outbid everyone. Jin-Hoo explains that a careless acquisition can shake an entire corporate group, so even Hyundai must act carefully. He then declares that OTK also needs a security firm, so they will enter the bidding for Anicap too. Hyun-ju asks whether this is purely business for him or if personal feelings are involved. Jin-Hoo says it is always personal. Without that, he never would have taken so many reckless risks. Besides, he adds, joining this fight sounds entertaining. A little later, Tae-kyu notes that Anicap's market value is 500 billion won, yet the current asking price is an astonishing 3 trillion won. Jin-Hoo explains that the broker managing the sale is inflating the figure to increase the commission. Tae-kyu understands. It is a game of bluffing, with both sides putting on a show while chasing profit. Jin-Hoo says that to join the negotiations properly, they must make their own strategic calculations and create leverage. His friend asks why they do not simply offer more than the broker is demanding. Jin-Hoo says that would be a foolish waste of money. Worse, it would damage OTK's reputation by making them look like easy buyers who overpay for anything. Tae-kyu notes that his sister and Henry are already handling matters with Golden Gate, so why not leave it to them? The protagonist says he prefers checking things himself, especially since he can see the future. He adds that buying Anicap is not enough. To win, they must block every competitor completely. Speaking of rivals, Jin-Hoo mentions the legendary Korean finance firm RCK Brothers. Elsewhere, Ryu Kail-jun, the president of RCK Bros, has heard that OTK is joining the bidding war. His vice president Shin Bang-do dismisses the news and assumes Hyundai will ultimately acquire Anicap. Ryu Cheol-gyun thinks differently, pointing out that OTK has never missed on an investment. He tells his vice president to invite them over for coffee, since their building is just across the street. He is eager to meet them. Back with Jin-Hoo, Michael Lee complains that OTK's corporate structure is an absolute mess. He says they have been operating like amateurs and need at least 50 new employees to make the company properly professional. Jin-Hoo tells Michael to handle it and consult Sang-yeop about any major decisions going forward. After the meeting ends, Jin-Hoo heads out for a date. He hopes people on the street will not recognize him. Yuri spots him right away and asks why he is wearing sunglasses. He says it is a poor attempt at disguising himself, since the press conference has made his face a little too recognizable. Changing the topic, he remembers that he promised to pay for their next dinner, and tells her to pick any restaurant she likes. They eventually arrive at an extremely upscale restaurant. Yuri says the university went wild after everyone learned who he really was. She says everyone is talking about him now, then asks whether he plans to return. Jin-Hoo tells her that with everything so chaotic, he has no intention of going back. Yuri says they only studied together for one semester, but she hopes to work at OTK after graduating. Jin-Hoo asks if she truly wants to work with him. She says of course, since OTK is currently the most outstanding company in finance. Everyone at her university knows it. She trusts her own potential and refuses to settle for a lesser job, because any top professional would want to join OTK. Yuri then changes the topic and reveals that her father is Shin Bang-do, surprised that Jin-Hoo never figured it out himself. On top of that, her father is the vice president of RCK Brothers. Jin-Hoo realizes that explains quite a lot, and he is stunned to learn that his friend's father is a senior executive at their new rival. Yuri says her father also respects Jin-Hoo and even mentioned joining the Anicap auction. Jin-Hoo confirms he is competing too, though he pretends not to know if he can win. At that moment, a fresh vision comes from his eagle. With it, Jin-Hoo becomes completely certain the X-Cop auction will belong to him. Yu-Rai notices his expression shift and asks why his mood changed so suddenly. He tries to act casual and says it is nothing, but she clearly does not believe him. She brings up their near accident from before and asks what truly distracted him back then. Cornered, Jin-Hoo chooses the oldest escape tactic, a compliment. He says he was distracted because she looked so beautiful. Yu-Rai assumes the wine is talking and doubts he will still say that in the morning. He insists he is not that drunk. Either way, he has already called a car to take them home. When they reach her building, Yu-Rai says 5 major conglomerates are bidding in the auction, but she is hoping he wins. Before saying goodnight, she removes his glasses. She tells him he should not cover up such a handsome face. Jin feels that going on the date was the right choice. He truly needed a chance to clear his head. On the ride home, he thinks back to the vision. It arrived at exactly the right time and showed him the final auction price. Without that detail, the acquisition would have been incredibly difficult. He is beginning to see a pattern. The visions seem to appear whenever he is with Yuri, so in a way, he has her to thank. After reaching the OTK building, Jin-Hoo tells his friend what he has learned. Ta-Q runs the numbers and says they would need 17 straight years of profit at the current level to recover that investment. Jin-Hoo predicts Samsung will step back, but Hyundai will keep pushing. If OTK wants the victory, they will have to pay a heavy price. This calls for a team meeting, so they make their way to the Golden Gate building. He finds them there and explains that everyone is working late because the preliminary bid is only 2 days away. She notices the smell of wine and asks whether Jin-Hoo went drinking without her. He casually calls it a business dinner and promises to bring her along next time. Just then, Hyunju appears and asks why they are in her office so late. Jin-Hoo explains his plan. Hyunju is completely stunned. He says they will need roughly $3 billion to guarantee the win. Her first question is whether X-Cop is really worth that much money. She points out that a bid that high would put them in the red from the very beginning. Jin-Hoo realizes she is right. Hyundai is not only trying to win, but likely raising the price on purpose to frighten away other bidders. He is also seriously impressed that Hyunju figured that out after only 10 minutes of analysis. Still, no matter how risky it is, he is determined to see the auction through. 3 days later, Seo Sang-won, Hyundai's chairman, tells his team that their final offer is $288,000. His vice president Han Chan-young thinks they should wait to hear the other bids first, just to be safe. But Seo Sang-won is confident. He set the price so high that he doubts anyone can match it. The vice president reminds him that OTK and the Golden Gate Consortium are still competing. Seo Sang-won scoffs at OTK, dismissing it as a startup run by a pair of kids. To him, the only serious threat is RCK Brothers. The vice president agrees, yet he still has a bad feeling about OTK. He believes they are going to become a problem. He clears the room and asks to speak privately with Seo Sang-won about something highly confidential. Han Chan-young insists they cannot afford to lose this bid and wants to raise their offer. He says he will take full responsibility as long as the final bid is $2.93 billion. Back with Jin-Hoo, he already knows Hyundai's exact offer. He tells his friend that OTK will bid $2.93 billion and $100,000. Ta-Q simply grins. Things are getting exciting and he cannot wait to see the outcome. Next day, the main bidding moment finally arrives. Before that, Ji-hong introduces OTK's new employees. Jin-Hoo is surprised to see one of his former college classmates, Jo Hyun-jung, among them. She is delighted that he remembers her and even more excited to have the chance to work with him. Ji-hong is not surprised, saying many graduates from their university applied, so Jin-Hoo should expect more familiar faces. Jin-Hoo had never imagined becoming the boss of his old classmates, yet he was fully prepared to begin the job. Afterward, they gather with Ellie and Henry at the office. Ellie assumes Jin-Hoo must have stayed awake all night, worrying over the amount they should bid. He doesn't say it out loud, but in reality, he spent the night gaming with his friend. Thanks to his foresight, choosing the right figure barely required any serious thought. Henry interrupts, saying that because this is an important day, everyone needs to dress properly for it. As if on cue, Hyun-ju steps in looking polished and asks whether everyone is ready. The men say they are, though her formal professional outfit leaves them slightly surprised. They make their way to Moore Starley's only branch, the company handling Xscope's sale. Jin-Hoo tells Hyun-ju that he and his friend chose a bid close to the ceiling she had suggested. She admits she still isn't sure they can win, but says she will handle the documents anyway. Once inside, Tae-Kyu is startled by how many people have shown up. Jin-Hoo remarks that several of the participating teams are surprisingly large. There are also quite a few well-known figures from the industry gathered in the room. However, Ellie points out that Jin-Hoo himself is attracting the most attention. He glances around and realizes she is right, instantly growing uneasy under all those watching eyes. Things become even more awkward when several major industry figures come over to greet him. By the time the handshakes are finished, he is completely flustered. Jin-Hoo notices that only one group has has not approached him. RCK Brewers, the team he had actually wanted to meet. Then, the arrival of another team suddenly makes the entire room fall quiet. The president and vice president of Hyundai have entered the meeting. The real surprise, however, is when the vice president Han Chan-yong heads straight toward Jin-hoo. He says the room is a little crowded and asks to speak with him somewhere private. Once away from everyone, Han Chan-yong says he is surprised to see Jin-hoo, since he expected him to avoid public attention. He also brings up the indirect connection between Hyundai and OTK. Then he gets straight to the point, asking why Jin-hoo is so interested in X-Cop. Jin-hoo gives a simple reply. He needs a security company, and that alone is enough reason. Han Chan-yong acts as though he understands, but clearly states that Hyundai has no plans to lose this bid. Jin-hoo knows he is facing the heir of Korea's most powerful company, someone used to winning. He also understands that, as vice president, Han Chan-yong surely knows what Hyundai did to his father's company, making this polite behavior feel painfully empty. At that moment, Tae-kyu walks over and says the meeting is about to begin, then asks who Jin-hoo is speaking with. Han Chan-yong has obviously researched OTK in detail. He already knows Tae-kyu is Jin-hoo's right-hand man and introduces himself in a formal manner. Like Jin-hoo, Tae-kyu feels his anger rising simply from standing near an executive from Hyundai. Even so, he keeps himself under control and responds with a relaxed attitude. In fact, he throws in a subtle jab, thanking Han Chan-yong for selling Karos to OTK at such a low price and even offering to buy him a drink someday. Jin-hoo can't hold back and suddenly bursts into laughter. Annoyed, Han Chan-yong asks whether this is their way of declaring war. Jin-hoo only smiles and says he is laughing because he already knows how the auction will end. He tells Han Chan-yong that the results will make everything clear, and with that, the two friends walk away. Han Chan-yong is left seething. To him, they are just two kids who became rich overnight, and now think they can do anything. In his mind, someone needs to teach them a lesson. Selling a company usually takes months. Sometimes it can even take a full year, yet this deal was arranged in only 2 weeks. The group behind XTOP has chosen to hold a sealed bid auction. Whoever submits the highest offer in a sealed envelope will win. Song Myung-hwan, the brokerage firm's CEO, is in charge of the process. He opens the envelopes on camera while the entire procedure is being recorded. He announces that each bid amount will be revealed as he proceeds. As the offers are read aloud, some companies begin celebrating ahead of time. Others quickly understand that they have already fallen out of contention. Hyunju grows anxious as the numbers climb, but Jin-hoo calmly tells her their bid is higher. Meanwhile, Hyundai's president is convinced that victory is already within reach. He feels confident in the figures his vice president prepared, certain no one can exceed their offer. Chan-young sneers at OTK, saying they were foolish to think they could win. He brushes off their motive as childish revenge. He calls Jin-hoo an inexperienced brat who has no place in this business world. Hyunju still does not know the final amount Jin-hoo submitted, so she prepares herself for a loss against Hyundai. Yet Jin-hoo looks far too relaxed for someone supposedly about to lose. On top of that, her brother is smiling as if he knows something she does not. The auctioneer announces the final bid, a joint offer submitted by OTK and Golden Gate. He sees the number and goes still for a moment. Even so, he reads it aloud. $2,930,100,000, just enough to beat the highest offer so far. Hyunjo, completely stunned, asks him what he just pulled off. Jin-hoo simply tells her they can discuss it later. Enraged, Han Chan-yong rushes onto the stage and demands to check the document himself. The figure leaves him at a loss for words, unable to understand how it could be real. The auctioneer warns him that he is interrupting the event, while Jin-hoo quietly enjoys the scene. He had known his bid would surpass Hyundai's offer by exactly $100,000. He chose that amount purely to make the victory sting. After the auction ends, some competitors take the loss gracefully and congratulate OTK on winning. However, Jin-hoo's own team wants to know why the bid had such a precise figure. Jin-hoo says Hyunju's suggested bid felt too low, so he added $10 million. Then his friend added another $100,000. Hyunju turns to her brother and asks why. He simply says he thought it would be entertaining. Hyundai's reaction only proved that his guess had been right. Jin-hoo asks whether something is troubling her. She admits Hyundai would usually respond with a counter-offer, but this time she believes they are distracted by another issue. And her instinct is correct. Han Chan-young is already facing the president of Hyundai, accusing him of a leak. He reminds the president their bid was meant to stay strictly confidential and demands an audit to uncover who passed the information to OTK. Away from all that tension, Jin-hoo and his team make their way back to the building. Their employees greet them with an unexpected celebration, loudly cheering yet another victory for OTK. In a nearby building, Shin Byung-do receives the update. OTK has won the bid. His team leader immediately suspects someone leaked information from inside. He believes someone at Hyundai tipped OTK off, allowing them to to know exactly how much they needed to offer. He adds that even if they had known the rival bid, they would have offered $5 billion to avoid looking suspicious. Shin Byung-do wonders whether it might have been nothing more than coincidence. His ally quickly rejects that idea. OTK may be a young company, but they have Hyun-ju, a seasoned expert in the field. She never acts without reason. He is sure they understood the situation from the very beginning. Back with our protagonist, Park Sang-yeop asks the question everyone wants answered. How did he know Hyundai's offer? Jin-Hoo merely calls it luck. He says he dislikes Hyundai and insists he has no ties there at all. Sang-yeop says he trusts his boss, though he doubts Hyundai will accept luck as an explanation. Meanwhile, Sang-yeop has found a house matching Jin-Hoo's requirements. It once belonged to the CEO of Hyunjin Shipping. He explains that the shipping company nearly collapsed after its former CEO passed away. The widow, Chae Young-jun, took charge, but her poor management only worsened things. Tae-kyu adds that this also affects Hyundai since Hyunjin Shipping transports their cars. Sang-yeop continues, saying the mismanagement was not the only issue. Chae Young-jin was also under investigation for corruption. Before the case reached a conclusion, she left town with her children. The investigation continued, and under pressure, she listed her house for sale. Publicly, she promised to donate her personal assets in an attempt to repair her image, but there was a catch. She set the asking price far above the property's actual market value. That is because if the house sells, part of the money must go to a company shareholder. After hearing this, Jin-Hoo becomes even more determined to purchase the property. It is a chance he refuses to miss. Sometime later, Chae Young-in hears that someone truly wants to buy the house, leaving her stunned. The lawyer had assured her that no one would ever agree to pay such an absurd price. Her lawyer, Park Dong-soo, explains that the buyer is Kang Jin-Hoo, the man making headlines with billion-won deals. Chae Young-jin recognizes the name and firmly states that she has no intention of selling to him. Her lawyer warns that Jin-Hoo has already made his interest public. Refusing now would create a terrible impression. Her only move is to increase the price even further. She reminds him she never truly planned to sell. The listing was only a performance meant to distract Hyunjin Shipping's shareholders. But the lawyer says Jin-Hoo's fame will bring media attention directly to this house. At best, he can delay things for a while. Besides, Park Dong-soo has heard Jin-Hoo does not handle negotiations personally, and usually leaves the difficult work to his employees. He believes he can stall the process and push Jin-Hoo into paying an even higher amount. Later, Jin-Hoo receives the revised price, 22 billion won. He does not hesitate for a second and still decides to buy it. In the meantime, the acquisition of X-Corp is completed smoothly without any interference from rival companies. Soon after, Jin-Hoo is told that Choi Young-gun's lawyer has arrived for their scheduled meeting. Park Dong-soo introduces himself formally, but Jin-Hoo shows little interest. He tells the lawyer that he is a very busy man. Since the visit was unannounced and unwelcome, he tells him to get straight to the point. The lawyer asks Jin-Hoo to withdraw his offer on his client's house, using emotion by comparing it to Jin-Hoo buying his childhood home and claiming his client feels the same attachment. Jin-Hoo does not accept that argument. If Chae Young-un cared so much, she should not have publicly promised to donate her assets. Park Dong-soo admits the point and then proposes a compromise. He shows documents for another residence and offers a 20% discount if Jin-Hoo agrees to step away. The protagonist refuses, saying he prefers the location of Chae Young-un's house. More importantly, he already understands the real reason she refuses to sell it. Jin-Hoo lays out the facts. Before trading was suspended, Hyunjin Shipping shares were worth 40,000 won each, and 2,000 won from every share went straight to Choi Young-un. He contrasts her with small shareholders, ordinary people who sacrificed money for a hopeful investment, while Chae Young-un is so wealthy that losing 2.1 billion won would barely affect her. Even so, she allowed the small shareholders to carry the burden. She would rather watch her late husband's company collapse than give up 2 billion won. Jin-Hoo meets the lawyer's gaze and says a future inmate will have no need for a house. He tells him that Chae Young-un should begin packing. After the meeting ends, Jin-Hoo asks Sang-yeop if there is any good news. Sang-yeop has some. Hyundai has dismissed its president and the entire team, blaming them for the information leak. Jin-Hoo recalls seeing that president standing beside Han Chan-young at the auction. He recognizes that the man has real ability. As the clues begin to connect, Jin-Hoo decides he wants to meet the former president of Hyundai. He asks Sang-yeop to take care of the arrangements. A while later, Seo Sang-won agrees to have dinner with Jin-Hoo, but Jin-Hoo is not there for a casual meal. He wants to find out whether Hyundai's bidding information truly came from someone inside. Seo Sang-won explains that aside from himself and the vice president, only 3 other people knew the amount. He struggles to believe anyone on his team betrayed them, since he still trusts them even after being dismissed. Even so, the auction keeps weighing on his mind. Throughout the entire auction, Jin-Hoo stayed strangely composed, almost as though he already knew how everything would end. Seo Sang-won then reveals an important detail. After hearing that OTK had entered the bidding, the vice president pushed them to add another $50 million at the last moment. They only settled on that increased figure on the auction day itself, so if anything had leaked, it would have been the earlier, lower amount. Jin-Hoo understands that without that final adjustment, Hyunju's forecast would have matched perfectly. He feels no remorse for relying on his ability, but he does regret that an innocent man ended up losing his position because of it. So Jin-Hoo gives him a believable explanation. His team simply analyzed the figures, estimated the rival bid well, and happened to be lucky. IQ says he feels sorry about the misunderstanding. Then he moves to the real purpose of the dinner. They want Seo Sang-won to work for OTK, but Seo Sang-won refuses their offer. He says that accepting the position would only make him appear guiltier, as if he had exchanged confidential information for a job. Jin-Hoo can tell that the man means what he says. Even after losing his job, he remains loyal to Hyundai. But Jin-Hoo also understands that with the stain of being called a traitor, Seo Sang-won will struggle to find another place in the industry. He tells him that joining OTK is the best path forward, because they are the only ones willing to believe in his innocence. Seo Sang-won warns that hiring him would only bring more criticism toward Jin-Hoo. Jin-Hoo simply brushes it aside. Ever since people learned he was OTK's CEO, criticism has followed him constantly. One more complaint will not change anything. He promises to help clear Seo Sang-won's name if he joins them, and says he already has the ideal project prepared. It is something that will make OTK's previous deal seem insignificant. Jin-Hoo gives him time to consider the offer. Meanwhile, Jin-Hoo completes another deal of his own. He finally purchases Chae Young-un's house. He is delighted to have a home at last, especially one located just 5 minutes away from work. He invites his friends over to look around, and Taekyu is amazed by the luxury. Hyunju, however, is drawn most to the kitchen and says it is perfect for cooking. When Ellie asks whether he likes his new place, Jin-Hoo honestly says that he does. Despite all her flaws, the former owner clearly had an excellent eye for interior design. Hyunjo comments that Chae Young-un lost both her company and her house, and in the end, she could not even keep the money. Still, they choose not to focus on that and instead celebrate Jin-Hoo's new home. As the year draws closer to its end, they decide to hold a combined party for OTK, Golden Gate, and K Company. Jung Ji-hong, who has recently been promoted to team leader, is assigned to organize the event. Later, Jin-Hoo thinks about how dramatically his life has shifted in only 1 year. The year has been overwhelming, and although all the charges against him were dropped, people still gather outside his building, demanding that he be arrested. Then, during one of those protests, Jin-Hoo notices someone he recognizes. He immediately tells his driver to pull over. He rushes toward his uncle, Seok Byum, and asks why he is standing outside in the freezing weather. Seok Byum says he wanted to meet him, and since Jin-Hoo has become so difficult to reach, he chose to wait outside his office instead. Jin-Hoo takes him inside, where Seok Byum apologizes for not contacting him sooner. Jin-Hoo recalls that their last meeting was at his father's funeral, where Seok Byum had been the only relative-like figure to appear. Seok Byum then explains what happened. He lost his job at an auto parts company called Wukong Enterprises. It happened after he challenged his boss over the harsh working conditions. Things had grown so severe there that one worker lost his life. Seok Byum had also been hurt while working, yet the company offered him no help at all. With no other place to go, he came to Jin-Hoo as his final option. Jin-Hoo explains that although he calls him uncle, Seok Byum is not related by blood. Even so, he feels more like family than his actual relatives. They had drifted apart, but now that Jin-Hoo knows the truth, he promises to help however he can. When Jin-Hoo was young, 2 men named Kim Seok Byum and Park Jong-soo worked for his father. They were close friends and almost like family. After the company collapsed and Jin-Hoo's father passed away, both men ended up at Wukong Enterprises, a completely different environment where workers were pushed hard and denied overtime pay. A labor union held a peaceful protest to demand fair treatment. Wukong answered by sending a truck straight into the crowd. Some people were badly hurt while others lost their lives. The company and the driver both claimed it had only been an accident, and they escaped responsibility entirely. To the remaining workers, the warning was obvious: keep silent or face the consequences. Park Jong-soo was among the victims. He tried to challenge them in court, but after losing the case, he sank into despair and eventually ended his own life. After hearing this, Taekyu asks the natural question: why do the police and prosecutors always seem to favor the corporations? Jin-Hoo explains that in this country, major corporations support the whole economy. In simple terms, their influence is greater than that of politicians. Jin-Hoo has already promised to help, and now that he owns a top-tier security company, he brings in professionals, and Lee Cheoljin, an expert manager at X-Copopi, calmly explains the situation. Wukong Enterprises uses a law firm built for these issues. issues. Officially, they're lawyers. In practice, they're thugs who specialize in breaking unions. Still, Lee Cheoljin reassures him that this is well within Xkiop's ability to handle. His team is packed with former Special Forces soldiers and overseas mercenaries, so a few street-level troublemakers barely count as a threat. Jin-Hoo makes it clear that his next move isn't purely for the public good, but he still wants it to appear that way. Lee Cheoljin catches on immediately and promises to arrange everything. Meanwhile, Hong Wukong, the president of Wukong Enterprises, is busy grumbling elsewhere. He had hired a firm to shut the union down, yet the protesters are still gathered outside his home. Lee Seop, who leads the fake law firm, assures him the matter will be settled before the day ends. Outside, while the union members continue their protest, Duzik, the gang's second-in-command, tells his men to clear the place out. He even promises extra cash for each protester they manage to put down. He tells them not to hold back, reminding them that the police stayed quiet last time. That means they have no reason to worry. With his order given, the thugs move in on the protesters. They rough them up and start tearing apart their camp. Someone calls the police, but once the patrol car recognizes the troublemakers, it simply turns around and leaves. Imduzik grins and tells his men this proves his point, urging them to keep going. Then a new figure appears at the scene. It's Taikayu. He boldly declares that he has filmed the entire attack. He warns them that actions always bring consequences, and now it's their turn to feel the result. Lawyer Lee Seop notices they already have enough evidence and orders his thugs to stop, or his side will be forced to step in. Duzik shows no fear, bragging that a huge conglomerate backs them and asking if they've ever heard of Hyundai. Remembering how the police fled earlier, Jin-Hoo realizes the man may not be making an empty threat. Even so, Jin-Hoo says he doesn't care. Large corporations don't scare him. Furious, the thug rushes straight at Jin-Hoo, but Lee Cheoljin steps in and blocks him. Then he quickly forces the man back into line. The boss's men try to join the clash. However, Lee Cheoljin has brought support of his own. He commands his security team to guard the union members, pointing out that as a licensed firm, their actions are fully legal. As Taikyu watches the confrontation, he wonders whether they're being a little too gentle. Lee Cheoljin says that in the old days, this would have ended in a minute. But with changed laws, they must act carefully instead of relying on force. Besides, every member of his team is equipped with a body camera. The union members appreciate the help, but they fear this may only make things harder for them later. Lee Cheoljin assures them it won't happen again, because they intend to remove the problem completely. After the thugs are beaten back and restrained, the police finally arrive in large numbers. One officer walks up and asks why XQOP is here. Lee Cheoljin stays calm and says he was only passing by, saw innocent people being attacked, and chose to help. He adds that the suspects were caught in the act, and everything was recorded on their body cameras. Jin-Hoo uses the moment to point out that one of these men nearly caused a fatal injury with a fire extinguisher and escaped punishment. He says Kairos used facial recognition on security footage to identify the culprit. Then Jin-Hoo points at the thug and accuses him of assault. Panicking, the thug tries to flee, but he doesn't get far. Jin-Hoo then asks the officer whether he plans to arrest him or not. The officer wavers, saying they must review the evidence first and follow proper procedure. Jin-Hoo simply points toward the roof of a nearby building. Several newspaper reporters are gathered there, ready to turn the entire scene into breaking news. The officer's attitude shifts at once. He orders his men to arrest every suspect. The thugs resist, but now the police have more than enough reason to act properly as they are dragged away. One thug warns that this matter isn't finished. The union members agree, knowing these men may return one day, and the next time could be even worse. Jin-Hoo understands they're right. He needs a lasting solution. He introduces himself as the CEO of OTK Company, then promises the union members free medical treatment and legal assistance. He swears the thugs won't walk away from this, because his best lawyers will handle the case and push for prison time. And to make it clear, there will be no settlement deals. They won't simply escape the consequences. Realizing how serious his situation has become, the thug tries to bargain. He pleads that he has a family and can't afford to be sent to jail. Jin-Hoo reminds him that his uncle has a family as well, something the thug ignored when he attacked with a fire extinguisher. Cornered, the thug finally breaks and claims he only followed orders, saying the police promised support if they helped destroy the union. Hearing that, Imduzik snaps at the man and tells him to keep quiet. Then he turns his anger on Jin-Hoo, threatening to expose him to the media for using a private company against civilians. Jin-Hoo tells him to do it, but warns Imduzik and Hyundai's lawyers to brace themselves. He would gladly share his own footage of a thug admitting the nation's largest conglomerate has ties to organized crime. Jin-Hoo admits Hyundai may have ways to survive that kind of scandal, but he doubts the informant who talked would be just as lucky. Out of options, Imduzik quickly begins to apologize. As he pleads for mercy, his men follow his lead, each insisting they were only carrying out orders. Jin-Hoo finds the scene almost absurd. Moments ago they were ready to harm people, but now they whimper like abandoned dogs. Even so, he feels satisfied after helping workers who suffered like his uncle. Before leaving, Jin-Hoo and his team choose to visit the real source of the trouble. At the very least, he wants wants to look at the people behind everything before heading home. With their entire scheme falling apart, Hong Wukong wonders what he should do next. The answer comes almost at once. An employee reports that OTK's CEO and ex-cops manager have arrived and are asking for him. Even worse, the prosecutor's office has just contacted them about a criminal complaint filed against Wukong Enterprise. Before he can even understand what is happening, the police arrive to take the front office chief into custody. Right behind them stands Jin Hu, who introduces himself to Hong Wukong and says they need to talk. Later, Hong Wukong angrily asks why Jin Hu is interfering in his business. Jin Hu says his father taught him to treat employees as family. If Hong Wukong had followed that same principle, this situation would never have reached this point. The old man sneers and calls the union members pests. He says they only complain instead of proving their worth. Then he scolds Jin Hu, claiming a spoiled young man could never understand real labor, since he started from nothing and never complained about wages. Jin Hu cuts through his self-pity, reminding him that workers were badly hurt, and some even lost their lives under his watch. That should never be treated as normal, and demanding safer conditions is a natural right. Hong Wukong argues that union members are not always correct, and as the owner, he should not be forced to accept every demand they make. Jin Hu tells him to save those excuses for the court and the reporters, because by tomorrow, Hong Wukong's name will be printed across every major front page. Still, Jin Hu notices that the old man looks strangely composed. He assumes Hong Wukong believes he still has a hidden trump card. Hong Wukong confirms that he does. While his assistant answers a phone call, he brags that his company serves as an important subordinate of Hyundai, and they would never abandon him in a crisis. Jin Hu calmly tells him not to be so confident. Hong Wukong accuses him of fishing for a confession and refuses to speak further, but Jin Hu says he does not need one, because he already has everything required. He simply points toward the assistant's face, judging from his expression that no help is coming. And Jin Hu is correct. The assistant confirms that Hyundai has refused to step in. They have also ordered Wukong Enterprise to deal with the matter by itself. With that settled, Jin Hu says his job here is finished and turns to go. In desperation, Hong Wukong tries to bargain, saying there is still time to settle on a price. Jin Hu has no interest in his money, because he already has more than enough. He promises to use every resource he has to push this case through the legal system. Hong Wukong warns him that creating this kind of precedent could come back to hurt him someday. Jin Hu remains unfazed. He has broken no laws, and he tells the old man that if he is truly innocent, then there is nothing for him to fear. Hong Wukong was frightened, but he still pretended that nothing could happen to someone under Hyundai's protection. Instead, the opposite occurred. A few days later, he was officially charged, leaving the public to question why he had not been taken in sooner. Even with the scandal and arrests, Hyundai emerged completely untouched. The employees of Wukong, however, were moved to better companies, with OTK guaranteeing full support for them. Seok Bom was transferred to a specialized hospital to treat his head injury. At last, he began receiving the proper care he needed. Sometime afterward, Jin Hu goes to visit his honorary uncle. His uncle thanks him for everything he has done. Jin Hu's mother is there as well, gently comforting Seok Bom's wife. She understands that pain well, having endured similar hardships herself. And, as usual, Taikyu is the one crying harder than anyone else. Later on, the long-awaited company party finally takes place. To everyone's amazement, Chase Southwell really attends, and the staff see his appearance as a pleasant holiday surprise. After the celebration, Jin Hu receives a call from Seo Sang-won, Hyundai's former president. He agrees to work under Jin Hu, but only if his old team is allowed to join him. Seo Sang-won explains that his colleagues were caught in the same misunderstanding that cost him his position, and he assures Jin Hu that each of them is a top-level expert. Jin Hu accepts without hesitation. He understands that a rival's mistake has delivered an entire group of elite professionals straight to OTK. As the new year begins, Michael Lee reports that every issue he had been handling has now been resolved. He notes that even with the recent hires, OTK is expanding so quickly that they will soon need more staff. He also says their legal work is outsourced and strongly suggests forming an internal legal department. Jin Hu says he will handle it, then informs Michael that Seo Sang-won and his team will be joining the company. Michael also says they need a public relations team, since OTK still has a negative image in certain circles. Jin Hu replies that he already knows the perfect person for the role. He contacts Jung Gi-hong and asks him to take charge of public relations. Jin Hu has known him for quite some time and places complete trust in him. Gi-hong accepts the position and vows to put everything he has into the role. After that, Jin Hu offers Henry the planning and coordination team leader position, him, saying he has been with OTK long enough to earn it. Henry pauses uncertainly and asks whether it is truly alright for him to accept such a senior position. After all, his long-term goal is to eventually take control of Golden Gate. Jin-Hoo understands they may part ways someday, but until then, he wants Henry to stay beside him. With that decision made, Jin-Hoo completes his final personnel adjustment. He brings in Lee Cheol-jin from XCOP to lead his personal and home security. Lee Cheol-jin admits this is not his usual type of work, but he is willing to make an exception because he enjoyed working with Jin-Hoo before. And with that, the new leadership team is officially formed. Park Sang-yeop comments that he had expected January to pass quietly. Instead, it has been anything but calm. Jin-Hoo reassures him that things will stabilize once the new staff adjusts. Then he moves on to the next matter, saying he and Tae-kyu will fly to the United States for Donald Trump's inauguration. Tae-kyu immediately refuses, telling Jin-Hoo to go on the trip by himself. But Jin-Hoo does not back down and tells him they both need to be there, because this trip is not meant to be a vacation. It is a business trip. Not long after, they are meeting the Kairos team at the new headquarters in Detroit. Daryl Sagan reports that dealerships are filing complaints. Sales have fallen, and the dealers want extra incentives to cover their losses. Jin-Hoo expected this. He approved slowing Chrysler's sales to redirect resources toward Kairos technology, but weak sales are hurting third-party dealerships, and may push them toward other automakers. Even worse, they may need to stop production entirely to prevent a huge buildup of unsold vehicles. They could shift toward online sales like Tesla, but that would not solve the main problem. Jin-Hoo is looking at the bigger picture. Once the new factory is finished, their production capacity will double, and they will need dealerships to help sell all that inventory. Abandoning physical sales now would damage their future and also anger Trump along with his voter base. So Jin-Hoo presents the real answer. Stop producing Chrysler cars and begin building Kairos vehicles. He reminds them that Chrysler was purchased only for its infrastructure. The name itself was never the goal. He invested in Kairos and bought a failing automaker, knowing the old brand would vanish, so they should not mourn Chrysler. Instead, they must build vehicles advanced enough to make Tesla seem outdated. Then, even if some dealerships leave temporarily, future buyers will still find a way to get their hands on Kairos. Once the meeting ends, Jin-Hoo tells Tae-kyu they can return home right after Trump's party, but Tae-kyu says Henry's grandfather called and told them to cancel their tickets because he has arranged another way home. Sometime later, the team flies to the American capital. Daryl Sagan joins them and notes that the Golden Gate CEO's private jet makes the journey remarkably comfortable. Tae-kyu agrees, remembering that economy class feels like the exact opposite. Jin-Hoo changes the topic and asks what the public thinks of Donald Trump. Daryl Sagan says Trump's support remains strong in the Rust Belt, though it is weaker in other regions. Tae-kyu simply hopes public opinion improves after the election. If not, it could hurt their business. Daryl Sagan explains that Kairos is racing to release its internal combustion vehicle this year, equipped with self-driving technology. However, making electric cars would require a battery company partnership, and most are already tied to other manufacturers. He adds that battery firms are still cautious about EV investment. Tesla was fortunate enough to secure an exclusive arrangement with Panasonic. Jin-Hoo compares the situation to Kodak. Kodak kept clinging to film while other camera companies embraced digital technology, a decision that nearly drove it into ruin. He refuses to let Kairos repeat that mistake. They need to acquire a battery company, and they need to do it soon, because the shift to electric vehicles is coming, ready or not. After reaching Washington, Tae-kyu is amazed to see so many world leaders gathered in one place. Jin-Hoo even notices Hillary Clinton and assumes she is only there for the cameras. But then she notices Jin-Hoo and recognizes him at once. She walks straight over and says she is pleased to finally meet him, explaining that her campaign schedule had allowed only formal introductions through an aide. She apologizes for the delay and congratulates him on his recent achievements. Then Donald Trump delivers his first speech as president. In simple terms, the message is America first. He promises to rebuild the nation from within by creating more industries and more jobs. He also announces plans to reduce trade with China, withdraw from the Trans-Pacific Partnership with Japan, and review many agreements involving South Korea. Jin-Hoo knows he helped this man win office. If Korea suffers from these policies, the criticism aimed at him will not be mild. After the inauguration, he meets Trump. Jin-Hoo calls the speech straightforward and clear, which Trump takes as praise. Jin-Hoo understands that high labor costs and taxes pushed much of manufacturing toward Mexico and Southeast Asia. To address that, Trump promised to lower tariffs and bring more factories back onto American soil. And Jin-Hoo promised to support that effort. In return, Trump assured him that regulations would not block them and told Jin-Hoo to call whenever he needed anything. The agreement remains valid as long as both parties still have something worthwhile to bring to the table. That means means Jin-Hoo no longer needs to worry about Kairos having its progress obstructed. He thinks Trump is still more businessman than president, but in this situation, that works in their favor. After returning to the hotel, Tae-kyu tells him that Daryl Sagan has already gone back to California after thanking them for the jet. Right then, Jin-Hoo receives a call from the front desk. The receptionist informs him that a VIP has arrived to discuss the L6. Tae-kyu instantly grows nervous, convinced the visitor must be someone from Samsung. Jin-Hoo stays composed, assuming nothing serious could happen inside a hotel like this, and asks them to send the guest up. Not long after, Lim Jin-young, Samsung's vice president, appears at their door. Tae-kyu recognizes him from television. He is the man who had to speak publicly about the faulty L6 phones. Jin-Hoo points out that saying that directly to a guest is rather impolite. Lim Jin-young simply lets it pass, saying people online have said far worse. He then apologizes for visiting without notice. Still, after hearing they were also in the United States, he felt he could not miss the opportunity. Lim Jin-young quickly gets to the main subject, explaining that his company has a division known as Samsung SB. This division develops batteries for electric vehicles, and he asks whether OTK would consider investing in it. Jin-Hoo immediately invites him inside, because this is exactly the kind of discussion he wants to hear. During the meeting, Lim Jin-young says the L6 incident shocked him, but he holds no resentment over it. In fact, he believes it eventually helped both sides. He also mentions that he and Jin-Hoo attended the same university. Jin-Hoo had already known that. Lim Jin-young is well known on campus for donating scholarship funds every year. Tae-kyu adds that his older sister studied there as well, so they all share a connection. He says that in Korea, shared ties like that often make business easier by closing the distance between people. Lim Jin-young goes further and says he already sees them as friends. Then he moves directly to the real matter. He needs their support. His father is seriously ill and has only about 2 weeks left, something the family has known for a while. Lim Jin-young speaks calmly about it. Death reaches everyone, rich or poor, and he has been trying to prepare himself. What truly worries him is not his father's passing, but his family. He knows a battle over the inheritance is about to begin. The main Samsung assets should remain stable. Real concern is the SB division. Jin-Hoo recognizes the name since SB developed the L6 battery along with other crucial technology, so he asks what exactly the problem is. Lim Jin-young explains that his younger brother and mother want to seize control of Samsung SB, even though they understand nothing about it. To complicate things further, Hyundai is also targeting the division, and Lim Jin-young fears SB may be sold to their strongest rival. Tae-kyu groans at the mention of Hyundai again, already tired of clashing with the same opponents. Jin-Hoo asks how Samsung and Hyundai are connected. It turns out Lim Jin-young's aunt, his mother's sister, currently owns Hyundai, making the two companies family linked. He says selling SB to a friendly buyer could still be blocked by internal shareholders, including his brother, as well as outside forces. Tae-kyu wonders if the whole situation is basically one huge family dispute. The matter is even more tangled. Lim Jin-young's brother is about to marry Han-chun Yu-won, Hyundai's vice chair, creating an even closer connection. Even worse, the current president of Korea is involved, and he is determined to interfere with the deal. Jin-Hoo pieces the situation together. Lim Jin-young's father currently holds complete authority within Samsung. Once he passes away, that power will be divided among the heirs. Their rivals will move in to weaken them, while some heirs are already willing to help Hyundai. Lim Jin-young is one of the few people resisting that outcome. Since he cannot manage it alone, he has turned to OTK. With OTK involved, he would gain stronger leverage. His proposal is for OTK to purchase a controlling stake in SB before anyone else can. The remaining shares would stay with Samsung. Jin-Hoo calculates the scale and realizes that even 10% of SB is worth more than $1 trillion, and even that amount would not secure control. He notes that the plan is enormous and extremely costly. He asks why Lim Jin-young chose OTK. Lim Jin-young says he needs a powerful ally he can trust, someone with integrity who will not betray him later. As those words leave his mouth, Jin-Hoo sees a vision of his eagle. The meaning is unmistakable. He must accept this deal no matter how expensive it becomes. Lim Jin-young presents his case, saying their partnership could reshape not only batteries, but the whole automobile industry. Samsung has been seeking a path into cars, and OTK's current investments make them an ideal partner. Tae-kyu immediately understands the opportunity. Samsung produces the finest smartphone chips. If that technology is built into smart cars, the result could be a huge success. Jin-Hoo agrees with him. He can source batteries from many places, but when it comes to chips, Samsung is the only serious option. Jin-Hoo then asks Lim Jin-young whether he trusts them completely. Lim Jin-young answers honestly that he does not. Investors can change their minds easily, but he knows Jin-Hoo has a personal grudge against Hyundai, which is exactly why he came to him. Since Jin-Hoo has already glimpsed the future, he knows this choice is the correct one. He agrees to form the partnership. Later, an ally asks Lim Jin-young whether the meeting turned out well. He replies that it's still too soon to call it a success. success. He may have secured a partner, but his own family is already making arrangements with his competitors. His associate, Kim Young-soo, says money is a dangerous poison, and those consumed by it always crave more. Lim Jin-young understands that well. He only hopes he's ready when the situation turns harsh. Back with Jin-hoo, his friend asks if he's truly fine using one conglomerate to bring down another. Jin-hoo says he doesn't despise monopolies themselves. What he wants is to break up the power concentrated around them. Besides, only a handful of companies worldwide can match Samsung's technology and manufacturing scale. At that moment, Sang-yeop calls him. After seeing Jin-hoo on television at the Trump inauguration, he asks when he'll be returning home. Jin-hoo says his plans shifted because something unexpected came up. He promises to explain later, then gives a clear order: buy as many Samsung SB shares as possible, and do it quietly. He tells him that he'll be back before long. Not long afterward, Jin-hoo returns to OTK headquarters and gathers the entire team for a meeting. He reveals that he met Lim Jin-young in the United States and explains their plan to acquire Samsung SB. Sang-yeop finally realizes why he was given that unusual order to buy shares. Hyun-ju points out that beyond batteries, Samsung can also supply vital electronic parts, making this a very strategic move. However, she understands that this was not Jin-hoo's only reason for accepting the deal. Jin-hoo confirms it. His true goal is to stop SB from falling into Hyundai's hands, then asks whether Golden Gate will back them. Hyun-ju says they will, but warns that money alone won't be enough this time. They also need to persuade every current shareholder to give up their stakes. Sang-yeop raises another issue. The current government openly favors a Samsung-Hyundai alliance, believing it would make South Korea stronger. Hyun-ju agrees and asks Jin-hoo whether he has a way to get past that obstacle. Ellie adds that once they acquire more than 5% of a company, the information becomes public, making it impossible to hide their actions from the government. Hyun-ju concludes that buying everything at once would be ideal, but that is difficult when the shares are divided among so many owners. Jin-hoo says he'll inform Kiros and asks the others to offer more suggestions. Henry proposes using several brokerages to purchase shares, making it harder to trace the original buyer. Meanwhile, Lim Jin-young's father is lying in the hospital. He sees a vision from his past. It begins with him as an ordinary factory worker, before rising to become chairman of one of the nation's largest conglomerates. Now that his son will inherit his responsibilities, the thought gives him peace as his life ends. Doctors try to save him, but it is too late, and the family must be informed. The news races through the media almost instantly, leaving the entire country stunned. Lim Jin-young understands that his father has passed away, and with his death, the one force holding Samsung's structure together is gone as well. From this moment on, he must face his own family alone.